Medaka is a religious loser who ignores all the girls in the world due to his religion. However, after ignoring the most beautiful girl in school, she becomes obsessed with making him fall for her and break his vows of celibacy. It all begins in a hospital where many kids are born, but one in particular is so beautiful that Cleopatra would look like an ogre beside her. This made everyone crush on her as she effortlessly looked cuter than a puppy in a field of roses, which made everyone give her special treatment. Years later, as she arrives at school, everyone greets her in a very friendly way, except for Giga Chad Medaka, who isn't under the spell of her good looks. This pisses her off, so she tries initiating small talk to get him to loosen up, but he seems to be irritated by this and continues treating her like an annoying mosquito buzzing in his ear. Seeing how he's mistreating their goddess, the simps of the class become mad at him, but my boy doesn't give a rat's bum, telling her to assume there's a pandemic and give him some distance. This makes her rethink his sexuality as he doesn't regard her hotness, and her ego begins to reach 1 horsepower. Just then, she leans over to see what he's searching on his phone and spots him liking a cat post. So she assumes he's a furry and channels her inner Neko, acting like someone with a speech defect, but he is stunned by how dumb she looks and ignores her harder, while the class simps lose their minds in anger. He then tells her to stop talking to him, and she goes brain dead from shock since men have always showered her with attention, and experiencing such rejection makes her do the Sonic Dash. In an attempt to make him fall for her, she hangs up some posters to check if he's a thigh lover, but this seems to give him a migraine, and she gets so desperate that she decides to show him the gates covering paradise, which he walks away from, making her annoyed. As a last resort, she tells the teacher she's not feeling so well during a class and asks to go to the nurse's office with Medaka. Immediately they get there, she turns him into an art piece, pinning him to the wall, and the idiot can't take a hint, asking if she isn't feeling good. After assuring him that the nurse won't interrupt them, she admits that he is the only guy that has pushed her to put out this much and asks if he likes her and wonders if she's done something wrong to him. He immediately says that she's taking things the wrong way, while he soon turns into a human kettle to let some steam off, so she doesn't lose momentum. She drags him to the bed, but they both slip and she falls directly on him, making her panic. When she sees the stone-cold look on his face, she can't understand why he's still mad and that her charms don't work on him. Not wanting to back down, she unsheathes her twin daggers, and this gets a reaction from him, but her shyness almost makes her explode. However, he chants some phrases to get blood flowing from his lower head to his main head, and this gets on her last nerves, making her crash out. While doing this, she almost falls out of the bed, but Madoka pulls a Prince Charming move on her. But then he realizes that his hands are on her natural balloons, which makes him nervous. So he quickly pulls back, and on his way back to class, he says that she should keep herself for a guy she really likes, which causes her to be as red as a tomato. The following day, during physical education class, Mona assumes a heated yoga pose, intending to get his attention, and invites him to work out with her, but he ignores her like a terms and conditions page. Seeing this, she tries to figure out how he swings since she has tried using her upper and lower body cushion to make him fall for her. And then she decides not to overthink things, making up her mind to make him fall for her. In an attempt to do this, she suddenly complains about being tired from the workout, exposing sensitive areas of her body, and this almost gets him. However, he locks in, walking away with a stone-cold face which crushes her. After this, she turns into the female version of Joe Goldberg and follows him behind the school where he's cooling off. After staring him down, she decides to cool off at the fountain and suddenly notices him goggling at her. So, in a last attempt, she decides to get herself a little wet to tease him, but mistakenly drenches her clothes, making them thinner than Nami's waistline. This makes both of them nervous, so he gives her his shirt, and she turns into a tomato when she sees his chiseled body. While walking away, some dudes from his class stop him, telling him that he's too mean to Mona, and they soon end up at a playground, where he lets them know that he is a monk at a cat temple, narrating how he grew up in a remote area away from girls, making the guys understand why he ignores Mona. The following day at school, she meets up with him to return his shirt, claiming she washed it before bringing it to him. However, he says she shouldn't have gone through that stress, and she teases him, asking if he wanted her scent on it, which makes him blush. She then notices him trying to resist her charms, and this gets on her nerves. The following day at school, during art class, everyone picks an art partner, and Medaka turns out to be Mona's partner. In line with her plan to get him to simp for her, she strikes different cute poses to draw his attention, which gets his heart racing. But he chants his anti-simp phrases to calm himself down, and Mona becomes annoyed as he isn't giving the reaction she wants. He then tells her to strike normal poses, but she tells him that she doesn't, or she doesn't get the chance to model often, so she will do anything he says on this drive. The beta males of the class crazy. She proceeds to tease him, saying that poses of her in her first birthday outfit are off limits, which does not faze him a bit, and this gets on her nerves, also annoying the whole class. However, she makes up her mind that she should get him to fall for her using the art class and decides to use her poses to accomplish this. While searching for a pose to use, she recalls how shy he was when she was using the fountain, giving her an idea of what to do, but she does not know that he is fighting the urge to propose to her. Following this, she calls out to him and shows him some skin, captivating the whole class as they begin, showering her with compliments, and this seems to work on him as he becomes as red as hot iron. However, he locks in, switching to ultimate virgin mode, since he takes this as part of his training. And while the class is on, she feels disappointed that he didn't flinch at her poses when she notices another chick staring at her. However, she's too busy being annoyed at how focused he is on drawing her, and she soon realizes that his eyes are glued to her, which makes her nervous. To get her mind off things, she asks what part of our body he is on, and he tells her he's currently drawing her neck, which he thinks is awfully hot. Meanwhile, she struggles to keep calm as the thought of him staring intensely as her neck makes her feel hot, and while looking into his eyes, she loses the staring contest to him as she puts a stop to their session together together, becoming faster than Minato as she dashes out of the class, which surprises everyone. As she arrives at the restroom to cool off, she admits that his total focus on her took her by surprise and wishes that he gives her that attention every time. Later on at the library, the two meet there as they both reach for the same book, which is Fate, and immediately suggests they read it together, seeing this as an opportunity to hit on him, but he turns down her invitation without then walks away while fighting his urge demons. While she is pouting, she notices Haruno staring at her and wonders why. In the meantime, she goes ahead to sit with Medica, still wanting them to read the same book, but he appears to be extremely irritated by this, and Mona soon catches Haruno imitating Joe Goldberg. However, Mona thinks she has her eye on Medica, which makes her panic as it dawns on her that there might be other cute girls crushing on him. This makes her picture them together, and she refuses to let this happen. She then switches gears, putting on a pair of glasses while reading a novel with some tea to look pleasing to him, and he eats up the look. She proceeds to flirt with him, using her leg to touch near his antenna, and this makes him struggle to maintain his cool. To put more pressure on him, she asks what he thinks about her, and he immediately walks away from her, so he doesn't sneeze with his lower body head. While she thinks her attempt at flirting has failed, she spots Haruno looking excited and assumes she is happy he is not interested in her. Later on, Mona meets Medica at the school's rooftop while he is having a peaceful time and does a little flirting with him, feeling fully confident that any boy in the world would fall for a hottie like her. However, when she tries using her famous line on him, she realizes she's too nervous to tell him she loves him, and as she tries figuring out why she's so nervous, a gust of wind almost shows him the promised land. This makes him freak out while she bails on telling him she loves him and runs off, beating herself up for being a chicken as she panics about losing Medica to Haruno. Later on in class, Mona and Haruno are chosen to be on the school festival planning committee, and this annoys Mona. After this, they hold a meeting together to plan what their class will do at the school festival, and Mona doesn't feel comfortable with how chill Haruno is, thinking she doesn't see her as competition. After a while, Mona notices that Haruno is hiding her phone from her, so she insists on seeing what she's hiding, yelling that she should keep her hands off her Medica, and soon discovers that Haruno has an ungodly amount of her photos on the phone. This makes Haruno panic, telling Mona not to see her as a creep, and Mona says she isn't bothered by it. So Haruno then explains that she has been Mona's fan ever since she saw her at their entrance ceremony, so she took a few photos of her from time to time, and while Mona comforts her, she realizes she slipped up earlier. In an attempt to cover up the mess, she says she was talking about a fish and not Medica, but Haruno goes with her idea that she is into Medica, not listening to what Mona has to say. The following day at school, while everyone prepares for the festival, Mona is stuck figuring out where to get the needed equipment for their class activity, and Haruno shows up, claiming that her sister is in the theater club, which means they could borrow some of the costumes needed. Meanwhile, Mona notices that she has been talking with Haruno a lot, and she feels more comfortable around her. Just then, she notices Medica doing some origami, and Honoka whispers that she hopes Mona can show off for Medica at the festival, which makes Mona feel embarrassed. When she tries to clear things up, Honoka walks away without listening to her, and she feels annoyed that Honoka has the wrong idea about her having a crush on Medica, as she just wants him to fall for her, like the others. Following this, Honoka takes Mona to check out the outfits at the theater club, and she's excited since they can easily get costumes for their activity. While they check out the clothes, Honoka suggests she try out the outfits as they will look good on her, but Mona turns down her request, and soon after, Honoka makes mention of a popular school legend about a love bridge, saying that whichever couple holds hands on the bridge at the festival is destined to be bound together in love forever. She goes on to state how excited she is about the bridge, as she claims it has kicked off a lot of relationships in the past, and says that she prays Mona and Medica can hold hands there. But before Mona can clear things up, someone calls Honoka out of the room. In the meantime, Mona figures that she can use the outfits during the school festival to make Medica fall for her and start trying them on, feeling confident that he won't be able to resist them. As a last line of attack, she puts on a bunny outfit, which makes her look like a pole dancing enthusiast, and she thinks it's a bit too much. Before she can take it off, Medica walks in, and this throws her into a frenzy. She immediately tries explaining that she's testing out the costumes for the festival, and Medica says he's there to deliver some papers from the teacher. Well, he put together the papers so he could leave. Honoka walks towards the room, and to avoid further misunderstanding from her, Mona reflexively pulls Medica into the closet to hide. Meanwhile, Mona panics as she is stuck in a tight space with Medica and is pressing her natural balloons against his chest, making him reconsider his beliefs. She desperately prays that Honoka leaves very soon, as she is pressed up against him, and, well, she tries pulling back, but Medica is busy fighting for his life. The urge to bump human hardware builds up as Medica turns into a human chimney, and fortunately for them, Honoka soon leaves the room. Immediately, they rush out of the closet, and Mona thinks that his lower body Wi-Fi has picked up strong signals since he spent a good minute with her in the dark, but she is disappointed when she sees he is cooler than Shikamaru. Just then, she sees herself in the mirror and realizes she might have crossed the line with him, blurting out that she doesn't even look cute in the dress. To console her, he tells her she looks cuter than a basket of puppies, tugging at her heartstrings like a harp, and before walking out says that she is showing too much skin, making the butterflies in her stomach go gaga. While she scolds herself for being charmed, Medica regrets why he said she was cute, as he isn't supposed to be friendly with females, and he tries to calm down by chanting his anti-simp spells. The next morning, Mona arrives in class feeling happy as she thinks Medica is finally vibing with her, so she cheerfully greets him, only for him to respond to her like she smells of a week-old raw fish, which shocks her. On the day of the school festival, their class set up up a bunny-themed cafe, and the class did their best to serve their customers well. Later in the kitchen, a classmate of theirs thanks Mona as she feels she has attracted so many people, and they begin to switch shifts, telling Mona to take a break. She didn't make her move, asking Medica to take a break with her, but he says he's fine without a break. However, she persistently tells him to come with her, saying he should have lunch with her since he must be hungry, and in response to this, he snacks on a customer's order to avoid going with her, which annoys her since she thought she had made some progress with him. His response to her makes her feel like he's rejecting her more than before, although she assumes he is just embarrassed by what he said to her. She shakes off the feeling, making up her mind to settle things with him during the festival since it's the perfect place to set the mood. Saying he doesn't want to cooperate, Honoka orders him to advertise their bunny cafe with Mona, and she thanks her for the assist. The two head out to the school hallway, looking for an activity to do together. But before Mona can suggest anything, Medica becomes engrossed in the haunted house, so Mona suggests they go in, even though she's terrified. As they walk in, Mona encourages herself, claiming that it might not be so scary, but it turns out to be more terrifying than she imagined. Meanwhile, Medica seems to be having the time of his life, just then scared and gets stuck on some equipment, so she holds on to him to help her, and he becomes nervous as he almost sees her lower swimsuit area, which makes her embarrassed, causing her to run away. After this, she makes up her mind to take control of the situation, and the two head to get some snacks. While doing this, wanna try putting on the cute girl act, but it fails terribly as a bird snatches her snack, and Medica couldn't be bothered. Not discouraged by what happened, she takes them to a concert in an attempt to get on your shoulder, as she couldn't see the stage from where they were. However, she mistakes him for someone else, failing at her second attempt. Then she tries making balloon animals with him, but accidentally pops hers while he's too focused on how cute his balloon animal turns out. Just as she's about to give up, trying to figure out what to do next, she notices a ton of couples at the love bridge and gets the idea to take him there. In the meantime, their classmate struggles in the kitchen and begins to call Medica back, while Asahi decides to leave the cafe. Meanwhile, Mona realizes she's on the love bridge with Medica and feels weird seeing so many couples holding hands. Seeing the two together, everyone starts talking as they assume she's dating him, which makes Mona panic. Just then, Medica suggests they go back to class, but she gets the idea to promote the cafe as a cover-up for being there, and he plays along with her idea. This clears everything up with the crowd, which relieves her, and as she walks through the bridge with him, she tells him about the legend of the bridge, saying that couples who hold hands there during the school festival are bound to be in love forever. Just then, Mona tries to hold his hands, which startles him, so he quickly withdraws his hand, and she notices that he is blushing, which makes her glad. She teases him, but he tries ignoring her, then turns to leave. Just then, Mona acts as if she has fallen, hoping he'll lift her by holding her hand. Instead of doing this, he picks her up like a baby, which makes her shy, and he walks away like a boss. The festival ends, and their cafe is doing quite well, but Mona is very sad because none of her plans to get Medica work, and Honoka notices this, so she orders Medica to help her move some stuff around. Later on, while he moves desks with Mona, he notices that Mona is very sad and she feels that maybe she wasn't that cute, wishing that one of her plans would have worked on Medica. While lost in thoughts, she collides with the boxes, and before all of them fall on her, he rushes to save her. In the process, he holds her hand, and this makes her blush, especially when she realizes they're on the love bridge. Medica then stands up and starts arranging the boxes. Then he admits that he had fun with her that day before he leaves, and hearing this makes Mona very happy. After school, they head to a bowling alley to play a game of bowling, and as they start, Mona hits a good shot, so she goes to high-five everyone, but as soon as she goes near Medica, she remembers when they held hands at the bridge, making her red and run away. Later on, Mona sits on the sofa next to him and starts talking sweetly to Medica, then asks to drink from the cola in his hand. She goes ahead to collect it, and even when he says he has taken a sip of it before, she doesn't mind it. She then starts drinking it, and as it touches her lips, Medica's heart starts to beat faster. After teasing him, she finally drinks it, and Medica turns completely red with shame, after which Mona says that it is an indirect kiss, asking if he would like to drink it again. She thinks she has him in the palm of her hands, but he says he's good and walks away, hurting her ego. The following day, everyone shows up in their winter clothes, and as usual, they gaze at Mona since she looks good in her sweater. However, Medica does not bat an eye, so she decides to tease him, saying he can hide in a sweater for warmth if he wants to, but he says he can handle the cold, then continues ignoring her, making her upset. This annoys his friends, so they call him behind the school building to tell him he's being too mean to Mona, but he says it's not on purpose, and then they advise him to force himself to be kind to her, saying that his temple teachings must have mentioned something about being kind to people, making him rethink his attitude towards her. As he heads back to class, Honoka also meets him in the hallways and scolds him for being cold towards Mona, ordering him to be kind to her before angrily walking away. During the next lesson, he notices Mona was looking for her textbook, so he offers to share his with her, which makes her excited. But as she tries drawing her desk closer to him, he suddenly jumps away, which upsets her as she thinks she's blown her chance once again. However, his friends hint to him on what to do, so he moves closer to her, apologizing as it seemed too sudden for him, and this makes her very happy. This makes everyone glad, and he makes up his mind to be kinder to her without falling for her. On this day, as Momo wakes up, she isn't feeling as happy as usual since it's a rainy day, and this makes her day a bit harder as she takes a longer time to style her hair. Also, her favorite shows get wet. However, on her way to school, she looks on the bright side, taking the wet route as her red carpet, and the raindrop sounds like applause for making Medica a little open towards her. Just then, she sees him standing under a shelter and takes the opportunity to approach him. Instead of a cold response, he forces himself to calmly greet her, and seeing she's making some progress, she asks if he forgot his umbrella at his house so they can share hers. He then explains that he actually gave up his umbrella to cover some kittens he found on his way to school, and this rizzes her up, but she shakes off the feeling to stay in line with her mission to make him fall for her. Immediately, she offers to share her umbrella, which he almost refuses at first, but he thinks back to the advice his friends gave him and goes against his reflexes, taking her up on her offer, which gives her a confidence boost. While they're walking, she attempts to take things a bit further, telling him to move closer to her as his shoulder was getting wet, but he says he's fine with that and tries keeping his distance from her, even when she comes closer to him. After almost running into a pole while trying to stay away from her, he finally agrees to get a bit closer and chants his anti-simp lines to stay calm, while Mona feels that she doesn't understand him, but makes up her mind to get to know him. When they arrive at school, she suggests they follow a route through the gym area, as it's a shortcut to their class, and on their way, she notices the female team practicing with Asahi, particularly catching her eye as she dribbles through the opposing teams, playing like Steph Curry. As they watch her, she gets distracted when she spots Medica falling on her face while losing the ball, and it almost hits Mona on her face, but Medica stops it like a Sigma that he is. While everyone is still checking on Asahi, she approaches Mona to apologize for almost hitting her with the ball and scolds her for being a distraction, telling her to watch from the higher platforms if she wants to see them play. While they caution her for being so rude, she holds Mona by her wrist before they can leave, saying she wants to have a word with her, and after she drags her to a corner, she starts interrogating her, asking what her relationship with Medica. Mona replies that he's just her classmate, but Asahi claps back at her, saying that she can't walk to school with just her classmate under one umbrella. Hearing this, Mona explains that they just happened to meet on her way to school, and that he had forgotten his umbrella, so they shared her own. However, this doesn't sit well with Asahi, and she directly asks if they're going out, which Mona denies. This doesn't make her back down as she continues asking if Mona likes Medica, and Asahi's friends quickly step in, dragging her away before she loses it, while Mona stands there feeling confused. On her way back to class with Medica, she asks him if he knows Medica. If he knows her, she says he doesn't, which makes her wonder why Asahi was so invested in knowing about their relationship. While he goes ahead of her to change into his gym clothes, she figures that Asahi may be into Medica, and this makes her panic as she thinks Asahi may want to get in her way. After this, while Honoka takes her daily photos of Mona, she asks Honoka about Asahi, and she tells her Asahi is the most popular girl from the first year, saying that she is beautiful, good at sports, and smart too, while showing her the articles written about her. Just then, other classmates join in to confirm her statement, and this makes Mona panic at first since it'll be a problem if such a hottie has feelings for Medica. However, she assumes she's just misreading the situation since Medica doesn't even know the chick and makes up her mind to focus on making him fall for her. Later on, someone calls Mona out of the class, and she is shocked to meet Asahi outside, who says that they hadn't finished their talk, but immediately Asahi sees Medica. She becomes a human glow stick, which confirms Mona's suspicions. When Medica compliments Asahi's basketball skills, her legs turn into boiled spaghetti, and she falls to the ground, exposing where the sun doesn't shine, making Medica turn away while suppressing his thoughts. This makes Mona panic as she knows Asahi likes Medica, and Asahi then tells Mona she won't lose before running off, which Mona takes as a declaration of war. The following day, Mona becomes annoyed as she thinks about Asahi and her quest to get Medica's heart. This is a new feeling for her, as she has always been showered with affection and never been opposed by anyone before. Just then, she spots Asahi scouting out her classroom, and this bugs her. Soon after, Medica meets Asahi at the door, and she immediately freezes up, then struggles to greet him. Before she can say anything, Mona moves faster than the Flash to interrupt them, and she finds it annoying that Asahi can't even greet him properly after she showed him the color of her lower swimsuit piece. She then asks Medica to walk into the class with her, using her cute charms, and this makes him blush. As soon as he hears the bell ring, he tells Asahi to head back to her class also. While she walks away like a broken robot, the two take their seat in class and Medica tries recalling Asahi's name, which worries Mona since Asahi has left an impression on him. Later on, Mona decides to override Asahi's impression on Medica by making him see how awesome she is. And after Medica shows how terrible he is at basketball, Mona crushes it, showing that she's not only a pretty face, but also awesome at sports. After this, Medica gets stuck cleaning out the gym, since he lost a shooting contest against his classmates. And while they leave him behind, Mona shows up, offering to practice his shots with her. She uses this opportunity to put the moves on him, pressing her twin flotation devices against his back, which sends signals to his organic antenna. And this makes him weak in the knees. As things are getting heated, Asahi interrupts them, and Mona quickly explains that she is helping Medica practice his shooting. However, Asahi doesn't believe her, and confronts her about Medica. Since Mona insists she's just helping him practice, Asahi decides to join in and tells Medica to do planks with her to strengthen his core. While doing this, he gets a glimpse of the valley between her chest hills, and this makes him nervous. When Mona sees why he's acting that way, she decides to deploy the same tactic, and Medica almost explodes.
Nice.
Not wanting to lose to her, Asahi asks if Medica prefers smaller bouncy castles, and his virgin brain can't take it anymore, causing him to spaz out while the girls run away, feeling that they went too far with him. The following day, Mona notices that Medica isn't in school, so his friends tell her that he was homesick, claiming they saw him running away from the gym the day before in his gym clothes. Hearing this, Mona thinks it's her fault since they made him run out of the gym into the rain and got him wet while sharing her umbrella before that. Hanoka then suggests that his friends check on him, which freaks them out as they think a girl should check on him, and this gives Mona an idea. Meanwhile, Asahi tells her friends that she feels guilty for making Asahi sick, so she advises her to check up on him and says it would even give her the chance to see him in his casual state, which excites her. After school, Mona tails Medica's friends as they head to his house, intending to go in once they've left, but unknowing to her, Asahi has the same idea and meets her hiding out. This surprises Mona, who then asks if she lives in the area so Asahi won't figure out her true intentions. And in response, Asahi comes clean about wanting to check up on Medica. When Mona asks if she doesn't have other things to do, she replies that her practice was cancelled for the day and says Mona can't deny having feelings for Medica since she even tailed his friends to find out where he lives. When she insists that she doesn't, Asahi says that she shouldn't have a problem with her visiting him since they're not dating, and Mona gets annoyed as she realizes that Asahi is serious about taking her head on. Following this, the two wait for Medica's friends to leave and head to his door. When he answers the door, he is shocked to see them, and Mona immediately takes control, asking to come in so she can care for him. This makes him nervous as he's never even been in contact with a girl.
Yeah, boy, help me.
And he says he'll be fine alone, but before he can ask them to leave, Mona places her face close to his face to check his temperature, which actually makes his temperature rise. She says they can't leave him in that state and forces her way in, offering to nurse him back to health. The two immediately get into a housewife competition, trying to see who can take care of him better, and they decide to make a meal for him, only for Mona to find that Asahi is a horrible cook. After feeding him, Mona decides to make her move, getting into a nurse's outfit that'll make a monk's faith shake, and pulls out a thermometer from her inventory between her twin pillows to check his temperature. This makes Medica blush, giving Mona a confidence boost, but Asahi counters her by putting on the doctor's costume she had brought along as backup, then asking to check his breathing, which annoys Mona. After a long battle, Medica passed out from exhaustion. The girls admitted that they put up a good fight, deciding to let him rest. Following this, Asahi tells Mona to drop the cute girl acting, but Moa says she's not acting and counters by pointing out that she isn't nervous around Medica anymore, which takes Asahi by surprise. In response, Asaho says she's not over it completely, but she got it under control since she's competing with her, and this makes Mona ask why she's trying so much to get his attention. Asahi replies that she's doing so because she likes Medica, surprising Mona, who can understand why anyone would fight so hard for someone they like, and Asahi admits that she would like to date him, going ahead to say that she wants to do the dirty hip dance with him. Immediately she comes to her senses, not knowing why she mentioned that to her rival, and decides to get a drink, telling Mona not to do anything to Madala while she's out. Just then, Mona approaches Medica as he's asleep and sits by his bedside, thinking about the whole love thing. Suddenly, Medica sits up in bed and holds her tightly, making her heart beat at double speed. Meanwhile, as Adahi gets the drink, she recalls when her friend told her about some guy she fell in love with at first sight, and how she thought it sounded stupid. However, she soon bumped into Medica and immediately fell hard for him, which made her embarrassed as she was currently at his house when she once mocked the idea of love. On the other hand, Mona is still shocked that Medica hugged her suddenly, and soon discovers that he's asleep. After she lays him on his bed, she thinks back on what Asahi said about kissing him, and gets the strong urge to lock lips with him, but stops right before their lips collide. Just then, Asahi walks in on her, taking her by surprise and angrily jumps at her, claiming that she suspected Mona would make a move on him. As Mona tries explaining, they realize they are making a lot of noise that would disturb Medica, so she takes Mona outside and says that Mona can't deny having feelings for Medica after what she just did in the room. However, Mona kept denying her feelings for him, but Asahi kept hitting on the fact that she definitely has feelings for him. And this pushes Mona to blurt out her true plan to make him fall for her just because he isn't glazing her like every other person. After hearing what she had to say, Asahi figures out that she actually likes Medica but doesn't know she likes him, which makes her pity Mona. However, she still makes up her mind not to back down, promising not to tell anyone what she said. The next day, while waiting for class to begin, Asahi teases Mona, claiming that she's worried about Medica and wants to see him so badly. Just then, Medica's pals walk in asking why Asahi is in their place, and a random dude says that she is pals with Mona. While they talk, Asahi mentions that they visited Medica together, which stuns Mona and also surprises Medica's friends, who promise to drill him about it when he comes to school. Meanwhile, Hanoka soon figures out that Asahi has become Mona's love rival, and gets jealous since she's getting close to her. Soon after, Medica arrives in class, and Asahi immediately zooms off. When he greets Mona, she thinks back to what Asahi said about her feelings for Medica, and she soon realizes that she can't hold a conversation with him, even though he wants to talk to her. This continues for a while as she keeps on giving excuses to avoid talking to him, and eventually she bumps into him in the school hallway, but before she can run away, she suddenly passes out. Later on, she wakes up to find herself in the nurse's office with Medica at her side, and after telling her he carried her to the office since she was running a fever, he thanks her for taking care of him, then leaves while she becomes embarrassed, thinking of the ways he might have carried her to the infirmary. The next day at school, while the boys are hanging out, Medica's pal plays a prank on him by changing his lock screen wallpaper to a picture of a hot chick in a bikini, which tickles him in his sweet spot, and his friends mock him for not being resistant to dirty stuff. He then leaves to change the wallpaper, reminding himself that a monk in training can't have such things on his phone, so he should delete them. Meanwhile, Mona meets with Haruno to hang out and finds her glued to her phone. When Mona asks what she's up to, she says she's sending a cute pic of Mona to Medica so she'll have an upper hand in her rivalry against Asahi, claiming that an enemy of Mona is her enemy too. Besides that, she also doesn't want Asahi to get too close to Mona, and just then, she sends the pic to him, hoping it will spark something in him. This sounds like a good plan to Mona, however. She asks to see the particular photo she sent, and gets nervous when she finds that she was staring at Medica with hearts in her eyes in the photo. So he doesn't get the idea that she loves him. She tells Haruno to unsend it, but before she can do that, her battery dies, making her panic, and apologize for not consulting her about the photo to send. However, Mona tells her not to worry about it, and rushes out in search of Medica so she can delete it from his phone, but can't seem to find him while searching around the school. Meanwhile, Medica decides to take one last look at the photo before he deletes it, but while opening his phone, he realizes he needs to go to a more private environment. Just then, Mona eventually meets someone who points her in the direction he went. Following Thias, Medica heads to the school's roof to take a look at the photo, but before he can open his phone, Mona barges in on him, which shocks his soul out of his body, and she tells him not to take a look at his phone, which causes him to panic as he thinks she's talking about the bikini photo on his phone. While he's still spazzing out, she grabs his phone and deletes the mag only to see the hot girl on his lock screen page. Before he can explain, she hands him the phone with a gloomy face, which confuses him, and then she heads back to the class, pouting about him using another chick as his lock screen. Later in class, he notices she's giving him the silent treatment, since she's pissed that he was into dirty stuff but refused to succumb to her. Meanwhile, he decides to scold his pal for putting the photo on his phone, and she overhears him, especially when his friend says that a boy's lock screen needs to be a pretty girl. This makes her send a selfie to him, thinking he would use her as his lock screen, but he quickly deletes the photo from his phone and chants his anti-simp phrases, which drive his friends nuts. While she is still pissed that he deleted the photo, Haruno meets her with a carved pumpkin, telling Mona someone gave it to her outside as a Halloween token, and adds that she would like to have a picture of Mona in her Halloween costume. This gives Mona the idea to throw a Halloween party, so she can dress in an amazing costume that'll force Medica to use her as his lock screen, and everyone gets on board with it. When Medica attempts to turn down the invitation, as his friends pressure him into agreeing, and this makes Mona excited, but she still doesn't know what kind of costumes Medica is into, so she suggests they go out to shop for costumes so she can get to know him better. The next day, the boys head to the waiting point, and while waiting for the girls, Medica's friends picture what Mona would look like in different outfits. Just then, Honoka shows up and asks after Mona, claiming that she said she's nearby. Soon after, they see her walk on like a Vogue model with everyone commenting on how stunning she looks. She meets up with them, and Honoka doesn't miss the chance to take photos of her, while Medica is so captivated by her that he has to recite his anti-turn-on phrases. As they're about to start shopping, his pal says he invited a +1, and Asahi shows up, which surprises Mona. Medica's pal explains that he invited her since he thought they were friends, and Asahi says that she thought it would be fun to tag along, even though she couldn't care less about Halloween, making Mona feel uneasy. Just then, Medica approaches her, and she immediately switches personalities. Shortly after, Honoka introduces herself to Asahi, asking to be her friend, and she tells her that she should take her place in Mona's life since she has been a longtime fan of Mona, which confuses Asahi. As they begin shopping, Mona feels fired up to find out what Medica is into, and the group decides to meet at the changing rooms after they pick what they like so the girls can try them on. After this, Honoka invites Mona to try on some costumes with her, and she has so much fun doing so that she almost forgets her main objective. After Mona tells Honoka to find her own outfit, she wanders around the store searching for Medica and spots Asahi looking confused about what to wear. Mona, however, feels confident that she'll look better than her and heads on her way while Asahi's friend comes to her rescue and claiming she knew that she'd struggle to find a costume, so she tagged along to help her out. She then takes her to try out some costumes, but Asahi doesn't feel comfortable with most of them. And finally, they find a costume she's interested in. Meanwhile, Mona finally finds the boys selecting their costumes and overhears them saying that they can select whatever costumes they like, but the girls have to take theirs seriously. After they select what costumes they're into, they ask Medica to make a pic, which is what Mona has been waiting for, but Medica feels like he's being watched. He goes to see if there's someone behind the shelves, but Mona hides better than a chameleon. He then heads back to select what he thinks looks nice, and Mona takes note of what she thinks he chose, which she thinks is crazy, as it looks like what a professional pole dancing enthusiast would wear for work. After this, they meet up at the changing rooms, and Medica's friends can't wait to see what the girls pick to wear. They start the show with Honoka, and after everyone is done with their showcase, Mona walks out last. What she is wearing shocks everyone, and although they find her cute, it's so revealing that Medica has to turn away to hide his active trouser wand, which she takes as him ignoring her. When she discovers that it wasn't the dress he selected, she shuts herself off in shame, while the crowd asks to see more of her. After this, Mona laughs about it, saying she wore it as a prank, while Medica is still waiting for his tower to fall, and she then promises to never give up until he falls for her. On Halloween Day, Mona feels pumped up about the party since she selected the costume that Medica chose, feeling that it'll get him to use her as his lock screen, and then she heads out. Later on, the girls meet up with the guys at the location of the party, and Medica's pal welcomes them. He informs them that everything has been set up, and tells them that he has prepared the guest room for them to change into their costumes, while Mona feels anxious when she sees Medica pass by. Before changing into their costumes, Asahi asks what Mona decides to wear, and she pulls it out of her bag, asking Asahi not to mock her. Honoka finds the outfit cute, but Asahi isn't impressed, and it turns out she settles for the outfit her friend picked for her. She then tells Mona that she would have regretted it for life if she had worn the mummy costume she initially picked, and Mona feels glad she didn't. The girls change into their costumes, and Mona doesn't feel impressed by her outfit, but Asahi doesn't seem bothered by that. They're all surprised when Honoka shows up in a ghost costume, asking why she didn't stick with her fairy costume. So she explains that she didn't feel comfortable with it, so she went back to get something that could hide her face. When they step out of the room, Mona notices that she has forgotten her hat, so she tells them to go ahead of her while she gets it. As she picks it up, she notices that her zip is undone and struggles with it, but soon realizes she couldn't zip it up herself. Meanwhile, as Medica heads back upstairs from getting supplies to decorate the halls and runs into Mona, who mistakes him for Honoka and drags him into the room without giving him a chance to explain himself. Seeing that he is in the girls' changing room, he starts panicking and immediately tries to dash out, but she stands at the entrance, saying that her zip came undone, asking him to zip it for her. This drives him crazy, making him think she's tempting him, and he becomes more nervous than Zenitsu fighting an upper moon demon. Just then, he notices she keeps calling him Honoka, which initially confuses him, and soon enough he realizes she's got him mixed up with Honoka. As he discovers he's missed his chance to tell her he's a guy, he decides to man up and zips up the dress while desperately suppressing his desires. After doing this, she thanks him for doing so, but notices he's acting weird, so she unzips his costume, thinking he's having difficulty breathing, only to see that it was Medica all along. This makes her freak out, and Medica explains that she's the one who mistook him for Honoka, but this doesn't calm her down as she realizes he just saw her bare back. After this, Mona ties Honoka's costume to differentiate her from Medica, and while everyone has fun at the party, she pouts about what happened, then focuses on the main objective of getting a pic that Medica would use as his lock screen. She then recalls how he deleted her selfie, which makes her annoyed, and tells herself that he doesn't appreciate how cute she is. Just then, the host announces that they'll be playing a game where a girl and a guy will be paired, and the guys have to mummify the girl, with the winner being whichever couple makes the best and most complete mummy, adding that the winner gets a supply of snacks. This gives Mona the idea that she could take a picture with him if they win as a pair, without making it look weird. They select the pairs using a draw, and Medica selects the number 8. Seeing this, Mona and Asahi immediately dash for the box and go after the same number. Mona tries convincing Asahi to give up the ball, but she grips the ball harder than a football quarterback, which scares Mona. Eventually, Mona tricks Asahi into giving up the ball, and this makes Asahi pissed off. Mona then meets Medica, and even though she hasn't gotten over the zipper issue, she suppresses her anger, so she can win with him to get the picture while Asahi is paired with a random dude. As the host signals that they start, Honoka takes a photo of Mona with Medica. Right from the start, Medica feels very nervous and loosely wraps the paper around her, which annoys her as they'd lose the game if he doesn't step up his game. When she scolds him for not doing it properly, he gets triggered since he is distracted by being so close to her body and the paper showing off the shape of her body. Seeing they're getting nowhere, she collects the paper from her to show him how to do it, but Medica finds the game too provocative, and after trying his best to stay calm, even with Mona nagging him, he finally crashes out, saying he quits. Following this, the game comes to an end, and they end up losing, which upsets Mona as she can't take the picture she wanted with him. However, some other chicks decide to take selfies with him regardless, making him feel uncomfortable, and Mona tries to keep her cool, telling herself that he'd just end up deleting their pictures. Eventually, she gets too jealous to keep calm and rushes to interrupt them, asking for a picture with him, but it's too late as he gets fed up with interacting with baddies and turns down her request, which crushes her spirit. After this, everyone gathers around for a group photo, and Mona is still feeling bad that she couldn't take a photo with him, even when she put in so much effort to look good enough to be his lock screen, and before the camera takes the shot, she grabs his shirt, calling him a dumbass. The next day at school, Medica tells his pals that Mona might be mad at him because of what he did the previous day, explaining what happened to them, and they scold him, advising him to apologize immediately. Just then, Mona shows up, so his friends tell him to take the chance to apologize. But he is too much of a wimp to do this and runs away. Meanwhile, Mona thinks he's upset with her because of how she treated him at the party the previous night and tries coming up with ways to apologize. During class, she notices he's avoiding looking in her direction, which makes her desperate to fix things between them, and they somehow end up on the same cleaning duty, giving her a chance to talk with him. While cleaning up, she decides to get his attention by putting on her usual cute girl act, but everything she does keeps on making things worse. As she is about to give up, they both simultaneously apologize, and Medica clears things up with her. Later on, while Medica is chilling at his house, he receives a photo of him with Mona and instantly uses it as his lock screen, but quickly switches it back to his cat picture since he must not have any women in his space. The following day, Mona gets a text from an old friend of hers, and when she asks what she wants so early in the morning, she replies that she is in town, which excites Mona. She immediately says they should hang out soon, and her friend says she'll pick her up at her school, but Mona turns down her suggestion. Later in school, while the boys discuss going to karaoke, Asahi is busy drooling over Medica, and he soon notices her watching him, making her run off, but she loses her ID in the process. After this, Asahi complains to her friend about any progress with Medica, so she gives her some advice on what to do, saying she should steal a kiss from him, but this makes Asahi freak out. Just then, Medica shows up looking for Asahi, which shocks her, and the class starts talking about this. He then hands her the ID, and before he can leave, her friends ask if he has plans for lunch, suggesting that Asahi treat him to lunch for returning her ID. This makes Asahi panic, but her friends tell her it's her chance to grab a kiss or two from him, and he agrees to her request. Meanwhile, Mona tells Honoka about her best friend from her hometown and how she's excited to have her around, but she feels weird that she suddenly came visiting during a school period. On the other hand, Asahi has lunch with Medika on the rooftop, and she feels very nervous being alone with him. Although she feels like she's being weird, Medika is fighting to maintain his cool as he's never had lunch with a girl. To make it easier for them to hang out, Asahi turns him into brown-haired Gojo,
だって君弱いもん
and she can talk with him better, which makes her happy. She then wishes she were his girlfriend, and then she says that she wanted to spend more time with him at the Halloween party. She follows this by asking him to pick between trick or treat, and he's forced to pick trick, so she kisses him on his cheeks, which is enough for her. After school, Mona rushes to meet her friend and meets her hitting on a group of guys, and she immediately ditches them as soon as she sees Mona. While hanging out at a cafe, she scolds her for hitting on dudes without even seeing her, and she hands Mona a gift from her hometown, which excites her. Moma then asks if Tomo has the day off school and is around to sightsee, but she doesn't give her a straight answer. She then judges Tomo for dressing very lightly even in the cold, and she says it's to get some Tokyo boys, hearts on fire. While they talk, Tomo asks why she met up with her so far away from her school, and Mona says that she doesn't like to mix her school life with the life from her hometown. Hearing this, Tomo figures that she's still acting all cutesy and recalls when all the boys at her former school kept asking her out. She then admits that she wishes she was as popular as Mona, and when Mona accuses her of having so many boyfriends, she reminds her that it was her way of consoling the guys Moma had rejected. While they talk, Tomo says she wants to date a Tokyo boy and asks Mona how the boys in Tokyo were like, but Mona says she doesn't know as she hasn't dated anyone yet, which surprises Tomo. After Mona reminds her that she hasn't had a boyfriend in her life, Tomo asked why she did just pick a guy since she could have anyone she wanted, and Mona says she never understood all that dating stuff. Hearing this, Tomo mocks her for being so pure, but she counters Tomo, saying she hasn't really fallen in love either. Tomo goes ahead to ask if she is interested in anyone at the moment, and Mona initially denies having anyone, but Medika soon pops into her head, making her blush, which hints Tomo that she is actually interested in someone. Just then, Medika shows up out of nowhere, which surprises her, and he explains that Sho lives around there, adding that he sent him on an errand since he lost at rock, paper, scissors. Not wanting him to meet Tomo, she pleads for him to quickly leave, but it becomes too late as Tomo gets a hold of him and begins pressing herself against him, which makes Mona annoyed. Seeing her expression, Tomo figures that he must be the guy Mona is interested in, but when Tomo asks if she likes Medika, she denies it without batting an eye. So Tomo decides to test out her statement. She does this by asking where he likes to hang out in the city, but Medika tells her to dress properly while looking the other way. She then asks him to help her out since her hands are soiled with chips, and while he zips up her sweatshirt, her chest mountain stops it from going further, causing her to make happy noises which almost makes his lower body head explode. This triggers Mona as she interrupts them, saying that Medika can take his leave since his order is ready, and after this, Tomo bursts out laughing, which confuses Mona. When they come out of the cafe, Tomo asks her if she likes Medika, but she denies it, and Tomo claims that she can see through her lies since she's her best friend, then she leaves her. The following day, the homeroom OK teacher walks in to announce that a transfer student would be joining them, and Mona is shocked to see Tomo in the class. Later in class, the girls rally around her so they can get to know her, and she tells them her dad transferred to their town because of his jobs. When they feel bad for her, she says she's not lonely since she has Mona, her childhood friend, to keep her company. Later on, as Mona complains about having her around, Tomo threatens to expose Mona's act, and this makes her act chummy with Tomo, but she still has a bad feeling about her. Soon after, Sho shows up with Kido and introduces themselves to her, and as they are about to introduce Medika, she says they already met at the cafe. Kido then asks if she knows Mona well, and she claims they go way back, grabbing her twin headlights to prod how close they were, but this makes Mona run out of the class with her. She scolds Tomo for being so playful with her, and explains why she's so interested in making Medika fall for her. Even with this, Tomo lets her know that she's into him, but she gets triggered, but Tomo doesn't care, saying that she must be into rude guys. This makes Mona rush to his defense, narrating how he's been kind to her, then says that he's a really nice and cool guy. After she realizes what she said, Tomo promises to help her see that she likes him before running back to class, and Mona still decides to reject the fact that she might actually be in love with him. After this, Tomo tries to help Mona realize her feelings, asking if she wants to see him so badly that she trembles, but Mona denies having such experiences, telling Tomo that she's being a pain, which upsets her a bit. Just then, Asahi, alongside Minami, meets them there, and Tomo doesn't hesitate to hug them after she finds out about Mona's juniors. She then tries introducing herself to them, but Asahi shrugs her off, saying she dislikes chummy people. However, this makes Tomo hug her more, claiming she likes her prickly attitude. Meanwhile, Minami examines Mona like a test subject, and when she asks if Monami is Asahi's friend, Minami introduces herself to Mona, then she reminds Asahi that she planned on talking with Mona. So Asahi frees herself from Tomo and grabs Mona, saying she has to talk with her in private. When they get to the rooftop, Asahi says she'd feel guilty if she kept a secret about their rivalry from her, reveals that she gave a kiss to Medica, leaving Mona in shock as she walks away. She then bumps into Tomo, who is eavesdropping, and ignores her. Hearing this, Mona figures she isn't lying or making things up and can't figure out why she's getting worked up over this, while Tomo feels glad that this is happening as it's an eye-opener for Mona. Later at night, Mona thinks back on everything that's happened and becomes worried when she thinks that Asahi is dating Medica. However, she feels annoyed that he doesn't pay any attention to her and starts overthinking things, saying she said she gave him a kiss and not what they were saying. After coming up with so many possibilities as to why they may have kissed, she tells herself to remain calm since she just wants him to be part of her worshippers, not minding if he dates her or not. But it actually bothers her when she pictures them together, which frustrates her. The following day, the group gathers at the train station and Kido makes a roll call, noticing that a few of them are yet to arrive. Just then, Mona shows up looking like a zombie as she couldn't sleep well, thinking about Medica, and after exchanging pleasantries with the group, she makes up her mind to focus on stopping Asahi from making any moves on Medica that day. Seeing how thrown off balance she is, Asahi feels a bit guilty as she knew it was because she mentioned the kiss to her, but she shakes off her guilt, making up her mind to get Medica no matter what. Just then, Medica arrives with Tomo, which surprises everyone, and as he explains to his pals that he randomly met Tomo on his way to school, Mona can't stop staring at his lips. Seeing she's distracted, Asahi goes ahead to talk with Medica first, which prompts Mona to rush to his side, and Tomo predicts that if things go on like this, the chances of Mona getting with him is slim. So she helps her friend by taking them to a place she calls the birthplace of love. And when they arrive there, everyone seems excited except for Mona, who keeps reading into everyone's actions. She also can't get Medica's lips off her mind, and while she's distracted, Manami suggests they ride the roller coaster, while Asahi gets the clue to ask Medica to ride with her, since she'll be scared. Seeing this, Mona picks up on their game plan, but she can't ask him to ride with her since she's not ready to be so close to him yet. When the other guys try to pair with Asahi, Manami finds a way to get them off her back, and Tomo soon sees through Asahi's scheme, so she says that she's too weak to ride the roller coaster, asking Medica to ride it twice to get him to ride with her. After he agrees to this, Asahi drags him away, and Tomo asks if she likes the assist, but Mona says she has no idea what she did. As the ride begins, Asahi tells Medica that she'll feel better if he holds her hand, but right before they start the ride, she confesses that she wasn't really scared and just wanted to be with him. Meanwhile, Mona desperately looks around for them after the ride ends, and she becomes worried when she sees Asahi looking happy. After this, the two get on the ride, and before the main part of the ride starts, Mona asks Medica if he has fallen for Asahi, and he says he hasn't. Then asks if she has feelings for anyone at the moment, but she doesn't reply. When they get off the ride, everyone notices a weird vibe around both of them, with Tomo and Asahi figuring out that something went down. Just then, the girls decide to take some pictures with a mascot, and after they take another one while paired with a guy. Seeing that everyone is distracted, Tomo sends Medica to get some snacks with Mona, and on their way, Mona feels sad that she couldn't do anything with Medica, as she was thrown off guard by his question. They then arrive at the food stand, and the attendant says there's a special sale for couples, so the two decide to pretend to be dating, and the dude asks them to kiss to prove they're really a couple, which makes them panic. However, Mona braces herself and holds Medica, telling him to close his eyes. Although they seem very close to jamming their lips together, Mona pulls out at the last minute, and Medica feels relieved by this. They later return to the group with snacks they got, and Mona makes up her mind to keep making moves on Medica since she still has time. However, Asahi notices she's making progress and decides to step up her game, making sure she sticks with Medica during every activity, which annoys Mona. Later on, Tomo consoles Mona in the ladies' room, saying that Asahi is totally upstaging her, and she wants Mona to be more aggressive with Medica. She also adds that Asahi is obviously her rival, and when Mona tries to deny the fact, Tomo just smiles, recalling when Mona used to pretend a lot around people in middle school, saying she had romantic interest when she was never interested in romance. Tomo then adds that Mona cares too much about what people think and ends up hiding who she really is, claiming that she is too greedy as she wants people to like her more than they already do. She also says that people would like her if she acts like herself, and that it's refreshing to see her acting naturally around Medica, telling her to give him a chance so she won't have any regrets later in life. After this, both of them head back to the group, and while they think of the next activity, Mona thinks about the conversation she had with Tomo, realizing that Tomo was looking out for her from the start and what she meant by dropping her mask, which makes her panic as she thinks Medica has seen her mask slip. However, she shakes off the feeling and realizes she has lost sight of the group, so she decides to call Tomo, but her phone gets ruined, causing her to scream like a demon from The Conjuring. Seeing she can't reach out to anyone, she decides to sit and wait for them to find her, but soon enough, random uglies start hitting on her, which annoys her. Meanwhile, the crew panics as they find out Mona isn't with them, and they are unable to reach her through text or calls, making them wonder if her phone died or got stolen. They decide to split up into groups to look for her, and Asahi says she'll follow Medica, but he tells her to sit this one out since she's eating at the moment, which makes her sad. On the other hand, Mona turns down the request of the dudes, but they forcefully grab her, inviting her to hang out with them, and this adds to the anger she already has from not being with Medica. Just then, Medica shows up telling them to back off, and Mona runs to meet him, calling him her boyfriend, while he uses his observational hockey to scare them off. She then thanks him for saving her and explains that her phone got ruined. Just as he is about to reach the others, his phone gets ruined the exact same way as Monica's did, which freaks them out, so he suggests they take a look around to find the others. Being alone with him makes Mona very nervous, and while they walk, she notices that the Ferris wheel ride catches his eyes, but when she asks if he wants a ride in it, he pretends like he isn't interested. After a while, Mona decides to take him to ride the Ferris wheel as her treat for defending her earlier on, even though she feels nervous about being in a tight space with him, but she braces herself and gets on the ride with him. Even when she feels a bit nervous, she becomes annoyed when she sees him having fun. Just then, she spots reflection and is shocked by the sincere look on her face, which makes her realize all the time she has let her guard down in front of Medica. She immediately realizes that Tomo was saying the truth about her feelings towards Medica, but she still tries to deny the feeling. Just then, Medica spots a show happening on the ground, and as she stands to take a look, she loses her balance, making her almost kiss him. She immediately pulls back and sees her flustered reflection, causing her to hide her face as she feels embarrassed, wondering why she looks like she is in love. She then states that she doesn't look cute at that moment, and Medica says that she acts weird sometimes, which upsets her. However, he quickly explains what he meant, saying that her different facial expressions make his heart race, which rizzes her up. This makes her realize that she only feels flustered when Medica calls her cute, and feels bothered that she might be in love with him since she's supposed to be the one charming him. She desperately denies having feelings for him, but when she sees his bright smile, she finally admits that she's in love for the first time in her life. After this, the two meet up with the rest of the gang, and they are so happy to see that she's alright. However, Sho scolds Medica for not calling on time, so he explains that his phone got busted. Meanwhile, Mona tries telling Tomo about her newfound love, but Asahi shows up behind her, and this makes her chill out. However, Tomo and Asahi notice that something is off about her. As the group tries to decide what to do next, she tells them she isn't feeling too good and asks to go home, so they all agree to call it a day and to plan another outing some other time. She feels really bad for cutting their fun short, but they tell her it's okay and assure her they all had fun. While on the train back home, Tomo asks how Mona is doing since she noticed something was off about her earlier, and her guess is spot on as Mona becomes shaky when she mentions Medica's name. So, she opens up about her feelings for Medica and tells her everything that happened while she was with him. After this, Mona meets with Asahi, and although she feels bad for denying her feelings for Medica before, she finally reveals it to Asahi, expecting her to be mad at her. However, Asahi is as cool as ever, telling her that she won't lose, which surprises Mona, and as the two go their separate ways, she also tells Asahi she won't back down. The following day, Mona wakes up with a fever, and she also feels confused since she doesn't know what to do next, since she's now in love with Medica. Later on, she calls Tomo to keep her company, complaining about being lonely, and Tomo teases her, saying it's because she wants to be with Medica, but Mona denies her accusations. Just then, Tomo spots Medica, so she decides to test out her theory, and tells Mona that she wants to hand him the phone. This makes Mona panic as she looks like a mess, and Tomo gives her a little time to tidy up while she takes him to the rooftop and hands him the phone, telling him to talk with her while she hits the bathroom. Although it seems weird at first, the two finally generate a vibe, and Mona becomes very happy to talk with him, wishing they could be in a relationship since she'd be able to have moments with him every time. Just then, her mom barges into the room and she hides the tablet between her thighs, showing him the promised land, and this makes both of them crash out. The following day, as she is fully recovered, she prepares for school in a hurry so she can get to see Medica, fantasizing about going on movie dates and holding hands on the beach with him. When she arrives at school, everyone is happy to see her, and they all make sure she's feeling fine. She then takes her seat next to Medica and tries to remain calm, telling herself that she'll make him hers. Before she can greet him, he tells her good morning, and this sends a cupid arrow straight through her heart. As the class is about to start, her eraser falls to the floor and their hands touch as they both reach for it. This makes him freak out and immediately pull back, apologizing to her. Meanwhile, her brain shuts down for a minute and she suddenly rushes out of school, promising to make him her boyfriend. Arata is a rizzless wimp whose crush was stolen from him for being a shy loser. However, his no-game life takes a turn when he discovered that he's adopted, and his 5 sisters are not related, so now he can clap them with no fear of Alabama allegations.
Nice.
In an upper-class area of Tokyo, in a mansion resides a brilliant, self-made entrepreneur, and because that man loves to clap, he has 7 children living there, all loving each other the Alabama way called the Shionji family. The oldest brother, Arata, asks his younger brother, Shion, for some tips on how to bag a baddie for him to clap. But Shion tells Arata that he can't help him. Shion asks him about the girl he likes, and Arata reminds him that he only finds her cute, not clappable. It confused Shion how Arata, the heir to the Shionji family, is unable to bag any baddie, but Arata tells him that he's having difficulty finding love because of his disbelief in destiny. Just then, their 5 sisters, Uka, Kotono, Banri, Minami, and Seiha, pop up, suspecting these 2 brothers to be talking about girls. But Shion counters, saying how Arata was actually curious about Uka's 3 sizes. It pisses her off, so Uka orders their dog to attack Arata, and when it does start biting him, the sisters tell him that it's karma for creeping on his sisters. Arata tells them how he will never be interested in his own sisters, but Seiha reminds him about the incident with Kotono. He assures them that it was a misunderstanding, and Banri supports his statement, saying how it's normal for boys like him to be curious about his own sister's plots, but Seiha warns them that sibling relationships might create taboo babies. Meanwhile, Minami believes that Arata is actually a cool dude, but when he tries to thank her, she punches him hard. saying how her reflexes are alert after playing Street Fighter, which confuses the others with how her reflexes work. Just then, Uka reminds the boys about Kotono's upcoming birthday, and while Shion can attend it, Arata tells them that he has other plans, but when Kotono asks him if he can come, Arata assures her that he will be there. On their way to school, people take notice of the sisters, saying how much of a jackpot it is for all 5 sisters to be beautiful, and that the brothers are lucky to be living in the same house with them. However, at school, Arata vents to Shion how the reality is different, as they, the brothers, are always on the receiving end of punishments compared to the sisters, and that their father always took the sisters' side. Shion understands people's idea in seeing how they get to live with Banri, who is the gentle hottie, Saiha, who is the cute genius, Minami, who is a future Olympic athlete, Uka, who is a future council president, and Kotono, who is a pure and beautiful being who needs to be protected. However, unlike how others see those girls as angels, Arata can only see them as his devilish sisters. But when Shion reminds him of his incident with Kotono, where she told Arata she liked him, Arata was forced to decline her Alabama feelings. Just then, through the window, Arata sees the girl he likes, Lala, and when Shion sees her, he understands how Arata's childhood scars from the sisters made him passive with girls. Back home, Arata is contemplating whether he should send a friend request to Lala, and it annoys him how Shion was right about him being passive with girls. Just then, Uka walks in and asks him to share his school notes with her. She thanks him as her twin for the notes, but he reminds her that they are fraternal twins. While she's writing down the notes, Arata can't help but notice her plots. And when he tells her that she's dressed to open, she tells him to control his gaze from being too Alabama. Just then, she asks him about the girl he likes, and while flustered, he reveals that it's Lala, which she recognizes. She tells him that she's in the same committee as Lala and offers to hook him up with her, but he stops her from doing so. He tells her that he has his ways of rizzing girls, saying how it's none of her business, and after hearing that, Uka gets upset and leaves the room. Meanwhile, Kotono is in her room, looking at her family picture, but she can't help but keep staring at Arata. Days heading to Kotono's birthday, Arata thinks hard about the nature of destiny, questioning what he would be if he weren't a brother to the 5 sisters. But on his thoughtful walk, he sees Lala with a man he assumes is her baby daddy, which gives Arata a heartbreak. On the weekend, fully dripped out, Arata exits his room for Kotono's birthday party, and on his way there, he runs into Uka, who compliments him on his outfit choice. Then the siblings gather around the dining table awaiting their father, but just then, an argument starts. Uka finds out how Minami lost the AirPods Uka lent her, and they start calling each other names, wishing they were never siblings. While the others can only watch, Arata has had enough and orders them to stop. He reminds them how they will always be siblings, and the others smile at him, showing approval towards his short speech. Then their father, Kaname, shows up and they start the party, but before they make a toast for Kotono's birthday, Kaname tells them that he has an announcement. To everyone's shock, Kaname informs them that they are not actually siblings, and while he will always love all of them like his own, the truth is, they are all adopted. He states that while Minami and Shion are really twins, the rest are not, and he's telling them this truth because of a promise he made to their mother years ago. He asks that they continue the party, but while dinner is being served, every single one of them is still in shock over the life-changing news they just received. Later, the siblings gather in a room, and when their maid is about to serve them tea, Banri sends her away, asking for privacy. While the others are tense, Minami is still joyful, even though her life has just changed, and they credit it to her having their father's bright personality. Uka expresses how she feels cheated, believing that their father could have said it earlier. But Seiha disagrees and thinks that Kotono's birthday was the perfect moment, as it was their father's promise to their mother. Being the oldest, they ask Banri if she remembers anything about her past when they were first adopted, and while she does recall something, she refuses to share it with them, saying how it's unimportant. She assures them all that what's important is that they love each other, and that they will always be siblings. They applaud her for the speech, which lifts their mood, and they all head to bed. But while everyone is walking back to their rooms, Arata is still there, contemplating what just happened. Back in his room, Arata continues thinking about what just happened, and to get his mind off it, he goes to take a bath. He sees someone's plot armor but ignores it and goes in. However, he makes eye contact with Kotono, who's taking a bath, and after seeing each other's assets, Arata runs away, apologizing to Kotono. Instead of being upset, Kotono asks Arata as his brother to wash her back, and just like old times, he does what she asks, which she enjoys. While he tells her to scrub her own back, she admits that she likes it when he is the one who washes her back. Meanwhile, Uka is chilling in the kitchen when Shion joins her. After what just happened, Uka asks Shion if Arata said anything, saying how it's affecting Uka heavily to find out that Arata is not her fraternal twin, and Shion assures her that Arata feels the same way. As the heir to the Shiunji family, Arata has a responsibility as the big brother to all of them, but unbeknownst to them both, in the bathroom, he is getting a soft hug in the back from Kotono. Meanwhile, Shion tells Uka how, since they aren't siblings, they are all legally allowed to marry each other, and while it disgusts Uka thinking about marrying someone like Arata, she knows that Shion is telling the truth. She orders Shion to get Arata to stop staring at her plots, but Shion tries to excuse his former brother, saying how Arata is just like any hormonal young man. She then asks Shion what exactly happened between Arata and Kotono in the past, and while Shion knows what it is, he already promised to Arata to keep it a secret. But Uka tells Shion, while the others like to tease Arata about that incident, they all know how Arata is not a creep who would jump his own sister. After hearing that, Shion tells Uka the truth, and to her absolute shock, she finds out how Kotono confessed her feelings for Arata, even when they were still siblings, but Shion informs her that Arata rejected Kotono's feelings, not wanting to have an Alabama-loving relationship. However, it was Kotono who tried to force Arata to love her, which ended with him on top of her, which was what the girls saw, and after they just knew how they were not actually siblings, they realized how things could get spicier than before. Back in the bathroom, Arta tries to get Kotono to get her Alabama-loving hands off him, but Kotono reminds him how, since they're not blood-related, they can be together, and even one day marry each other. She asks him if she's a bad girl, but Arata turns on his big bro mode and tells her that, while they're not blood-related, he will always be his brother who will look after her until the day she marries someone. Kotono walks back to the bathtub, saying how Arata is both the kindest and meanest person he knows, and Arata exits the room, saying happy birthday, and leaving Kotono wishing that Arata responded to her feelings. Unbeknownst to Arata, when he steps out of the bathroom, someone is watching him. Then he heads to his room, thinking if Kotono did what she did because of what happened, and when he steps inside, he is greeted by Seiha, who's studying while waiting for him. Without beating around the bush, she asks him where he's been, and not wanting to tell the truth, he lies, saying that he's been walking around the house. She talks about how his room, which is the smallest among the siblings, feels like the biggest, which reminds them of when they first played rock, paper, scissors to determine who gets the biggest room, and Arata remembers how he lost. While hearing Seiha's yappings, Arata wonders what this girl wants, and in that moment, to Arata's surprise, Seiha pushes him down to the bed. She gets on top of him, saying how they have to keep it a secret, and sticks her plots to his body, which makes him get closer to her danger zone. Arata starts suspecting that Seiha is the same way as Kotono, but to his relief, Seiha says that she has no concern over him. She reveals that she saw him in the bath with Kotono, saying how she saw all of their interaction, but before he demands an explanation, he gets her off his body before his volcano explodes. Seiha tells him how she always knows about Kotono's feelings for him, but suspects that after knowing that they are not actual siblings, Kotono loses all of her restraints. She praises him for handling the situation properly, but to ensure that he won't fold to his own sister's advances, she had to make sure that he doesn't want to develop the plots with them. He asks her if she doesn't have any other ways aside from getting on top of him, and Seiha tells him that since she has no feelings for him, she doesn't see the issue in her method. She reminds him how a relationship between siblings resulted in questionable offspring, but after what happened that day, that rule doesn't apply to them anymore, and their relationship as siblings won't stop Kotono in the future from wanting Arata to expand her domains. She suggests that it might even happen between them, and while Seiha hates the idea of them bumping bellies, she knows that it's not impossible. She leaves the room saying how glad she is that Arata didn't fold, but when she gets outside, she starts questioning herself whether she folded when she was on top of him. The next morning, Arata wakes up feeling horrible after the roller coaster of emotions he endured the night before. When he steps out, his eyes are refreshed at the size of Banri and Kotono wearing a nurse outfit, and Banri informs him that it's her uniform, which she wanted to try on, but decided to try on Kotono as well. When she asks Arata if he likes how hot they look, he says no, causing Banri to cry, demanding him to say that he likes them, but he refuses and gets flustered. Then, they head to school, and joined by Shion, they watch, as other dudes ogle over their sisters, which makes Shion wonder how they would react if they knew that they're not actually siblings. Seeing how calm his sisters are makes Shion believe that girls are better liars than men, and while Arata agrees, he knows that deep down, their sisters are as affected as they are after what happened. They continue their day as school normally as if nothing ever changed between them, but after school, he realizes that things have changed and he tries to convince himself that everything hasn't. Just then, Minami pops up, and it surprises Arata to see her not in practice like usual. They walk home, and Arata praises her for her dedication to athletics, where she won multiple trophies and even got herself dubbed a future Olympian. Suddenly, she gets surrounded by her fans, asking to lick her toes and to let them drink her bathwater, and after they leave, Minami reveals that she got simping fans after she did a photo shoot wearing a men's outfit. He asks her if she wants to have fun in her day off from practice, but to his shock, Minami informs Arata that the reason she got a break from practice was because her coach told her to study, as her grades are all failing as it turns out. While Minami is the most athletic among the siblings, she's also the biggest moron. As the big bro, Arata declares that he will tutor her. He brings her to a karaoke to study in private, and while he's teaching her, he can't help but acknowledge how pretty she looks up close. When Arata is busy explaining something, he doesn't see that Minami is distracted and has picked a song for her to sing, and when she tries to solve the questions by herself, it ends with her answering everything wrong. However, she doesn't get bothered by how dumb she is and starts singing horribly, changing the lyrics of the song into about her life as a tennis athlete, And while Arata wants her to study, he can't help but enjoy the fun with his own sister. After they finish the session, they step out of the room, but Arata quickly hides from someone. And when Minami sees who it is, she sees the girl Arata has feelings for, Lala, with her man. Then, on their way home, they talk about what happened from the night before, and when Arata asks her what she thinks about it, she tells him that since they're not their father's children, they have to find out their real parents. She expresses how she feels bad for Kotono as their youngest, and Arata realizes that not only is Minami smart in some ways, but she's also a good sister. She teases Arata, saying how since he's not actually her big brother, she gets to treat him like her senpai, but Arata tells her not to say that out loud, not wanting other people to know about their weird and complicated relationship. However, Minami states that what's important is the bond they created for all their life, where he knows who he really is. So he shouldn't feel sad not being able to bag the girl he likes. He asks her how she knows about Lala, and Minami reveals that Uka told her, which makes Arata realize how much of a blabbermouth Uka is. Minami assures Arata that, as his former sister, she knows how good a person he is, so he should cheer up even though Lala didn't get to see what kind of person he is, unlike his sisters. And Arata gets touched by what she says. Back home, Minami hands a cake to Uka, which pleases her and returns her earpods, apologizing for losing them before. However, while Uka accepts her bribe, she hands Minami the earpods, telling her to keep them, and she accepts, which ends their previous fight in peace. The next morning, after waking up, Arata brushes his teeth as usual, thinking about what Kotono did the other day. When he steps out of the bathroom, he runs into her in the hallway, and they greet each other awkwardly, but Arata knows that it's because of what happened between them. Just then, Seiha pops up, roasting him for still remembering the bathroom incident, and he gets surprised by her presence. When he calls her name, she asks to be called Seiha-chan, which was what she told him to call her, and when he does call her that, she gets mildly satisfied. She asks him if he's worried about what might happen between him and Kotono, but while he's not worried as he holds no feelings for her, Seiha is worried as she felt something for him the other day. Suddenly, Minami pops up acting like she's from Street Fighter, and she talks to Arata about their gaming session from the other day, boasting about how she defeated him countless times. When she calls Arata senpai, Seiha is surprised and informs Minami that she should call someone a senpai when they are more mature and not an idiot like Arata. As the two girls are leaving, Arata wonders why he has to start his day like that. Then, at school, Arata freezes when he spots Lala and decides not to do anything. Uka pops up, mocking him, saying that he should just tell her how he loves her, and when he informs her that Lala is dating someone, she tells him that he lost all his aura after getting rejected without telling her his feelings. Just then, Uka's friends call for her, and when she hangs out with her friends, she informs them that she will be going to a sea park for Kotono's birthday. While watching her, Arata can't believe how popular Uka really is with everyone, thinking how different she is compared to the little gremlin he knows at home. Uka's friends notice Arata behind Uka, and they tell Uka how hot Arata really is, saying how they would love to date him and be his baby mama. However, Uka tells them that it's a bad idea, as she believes that Arata is a knobhead who can't bag a baddie. But while trying to undermine Arata, she can't help but praise him and ends up blushing to her own words. When they leave for class, Arata hears about the sea park trip and hopes that nothing weird will happen there. The next day, the sibling arrives at the sea park for Kotono's birthday, and when they see the place's mascot, Uka and Minami rush him, wanting to take a picture. Minami tells the others that she's getting hungry, and after hearing that, Banri asks Arata to come with her to help her get food. Moments later, the two of them get food for the others, but when they look at the mascot, they are no longer there, leaving Arata and Banri with the food. Arata tries calling for them to get their location, but when they don't answer his calls, Arata thinks that they are on a ride, and Banri has an idea. She declares that they are on a date, just the two of them, believing that they will eventually run into the others. And when Arata asks her about what they do with the food, Arata ends up having to eat all of it. Like a real couple, Banri hangs onto Arata's manly arms, and he thinks to himself how, despite Banri's older sister's charm, she always makes Arata nervous. He notices how his arms are sticking to her squishies, which makes him blush, and when he tries to remind her that he is her brother, she tells him that nobody there knows that they are siblings, so they should just enjoy the moment. When Arata blushes even harder at her plump, instead of pulling away, Banri teases him, saying how she knows that he's enjoying her plots, and he gets flustered. Banri apologizes for her plots, saying that they are too big to control, especially for a guy without experience like him.
Emotional, damn it!
As they are walking side by side, Banri tells him that he should be happy to have such a baddie beside him. While that annoys him, Arata acknowledges how all the gooning-loving men around them are staring daggers at them because of Banri. Just then, she offers him to touch her melons as a treat, and he blushes redder than a tomato, telling her to stop it. While walking up the stairs, Arata can't help but stare at the lovely view in front of him, and he falls over the stairs, which makes him feel completely embarrassed. She offers him her hand as help, and when he accepts her offer, she calls him cute. Then the two of them enjoy their private date, all the while the others are doing the same. However, Arata keeps trying to call, and after the many attempts, he manages to contact Shion, who informs him where they are. However, they are far from each other, so they decide to just have fun. The girls talk about how they know how Banri will tease Arata heavily, making him wish they were never siblings. They switch their attention to the birthday girl, Kotono, and encourage her to enjoy her birthday by riding all the rides she wants. Back with Arata, he and Banri rest after all the rides they tried. And while Banri feels hungry, Arata is not after all the food he consumed earlier. When she takes a bite of the churros, Arata notices just how precious her smile is behind her fox-like act. He gets curious about how she feels about their father's announcement, so he asks her straight up. She expresses how, while she was shocked at first, she wanted to know details, and Arata sees just how much she thought about it. She asks him what's on his mind, and when he tells her how he doesn't want their relationship as siblings to change, Banri's eyes glitter, saying how adorable he is. She rubs his head like a big sister, and it reminds her of how she always did that whenever Uka and the others made him cry. Banri tells Arata how, as their oldest sibling, she made a vow to always protect all of them, even if it means taking her life. That reminds Arata of how Banri has always been that way, protecting the others and being the coolest older sister anyone could ask for. Suddenly, a stupid little girl pops up with drinks, and she slips, causing the drink to fly towards Banri. However, Arata acts quickly and gets himself between them, which gets him wet. The stupid little girl apologizes, but Arata warmly tells her that it's okay. Banri gets worried for him, telling him that he shouldn't have done that, but just like her, Arata expresses how he will protect them all alongside her as her little brother. It rizzes up Banri, making her realize just how much of a man Arata turns out to be. Just then, the others pop up and they reunite. But when they see Arata drenched, they ask him questions on whether Banri got too excited and almost drowned him in her seafood juice. They continue to the next ride, and on their walk there, Banri asks to hold Arata's hand. When he asks why, she grabs it and pulls him with her, saying she just wants to hold his hand. That night, while they're playing around at the bridge, acting like princesses, the boys and Kotono go to the toilet. But Seiya sees this as a chance to inform the others about what happened between Kotono and Arata. After informing them, they can't believe that Kotono has the guts to cling on to Arata with her plots out. And they ask Seiya what Arata did. She informs them that, like a good brother, Arata talked Kotono down and stopped her advances. She assures them that Arata has no degenerate desires for his sisters, after Seiya herself tested it out. When they ask her how, she calmly reveals that she mounted him to see whether his heart beat and ding-a-ling was rising, but to her relief, neither of them did. Seiya explains that the reason she told them this is because she believes they need to do something before something happens between them. And they decide not to confront Kotono, so she won't panic. Just then, Aoka informs them that Kotono already tried something similar in the past, and Arata took the blame, which caused him to get called a creep by them. That makes Seiya realize that their father's announcement about them not being blood-related gave Kotono the impulse to want to have Arata's taboo babies. Banri calms them down, saying that they shouldn't jump to any conclusions yet. She reveals that she talked with their father after his announcement, and when they ask her what she talked about, she tells them that she wanted to find out her background, and finds that, as an orphan, they never knew Banri's parents' whereabouts or who they are. She suggests that they should keep it low profile and keep an eye on them, which everyone agrees to. Then, on their way to the merchandise store, some of the girls are fired up, wanting to get themselves action figures. When he sees how Kotono is acting, Arata feels relieved to see her act normal, like usual. He knows how their father's announcement took them all by surprise, but is happy to see that they are still hanging out like normal, and he's convinced that nothing will ever change between them. At that moment, a fireworks show starts and they enjoy it together, as siblings. Later, while the others are buying merchandise, Arata sees a girl who looks like Lala and gets nervous for a second. Uka pops up seeing him nervous and invites him to walk with her. She talks about how weird it feels to know that they are not actual twins. But Arata stops her thought process, saying how she will always be his twin, even when they're not. After hearing that, Uka talks about how in the past they believed that they could use telepathy as twins, and that they knew how each other thought all the time. It makes Arata flustered hearing that, and he asks her why she suddenly brought that up. To his shock, Uka tells Arata that she loves him, making him realize that everything is about to change. Days before at school, Shion asked Arata if he had ever seen any of their sisters romantically, but instead of answering, Arata asked him why he asked that question. Shion explained that since they are no longer siblings, making offspring is no longer taboo, and that Kotono has even shot her shot at Arata, but Arata assured him that he had never seen his sisters romantically. However, in the present, after Uka confessed to him, he saw her as more than a sister, but a romantic partner. However, Uka expresses to Arata that she loves him platonically, which relieves him of his tension, and he is convinced that even if hell freezes over, Uka would never see him as a romance candidate. He calls her a tsundere who plays hard to get, and she leaves him, reminding him to get her souvenirs. However, while he laughs it off, he recalls what Shion told him about seeing his sisters romantically and starts tweaking. Meanwhile, on her lonely walk, Uka can't forget what she just told Arata, and she realizes that she felt jealous of Kotono after Seiya told her how Kotono told Arata that she loved him. The next morning, Arata is spending his time working out at the home gym, building his chiseled, lady-folding abs, when Minami pops in and wants to join him. He expresses his excitement about her joining the workout, but she tells him to tone it down due to it being the early morning. morning. She praises him for never skipping training, and she reminds him how their father used to always train Arata to the bones in order to make him a leader. But Arata still fails to see how it was beneficial for him mentally. Arata also shows Minami respect for never missing training and fighting to become a future Olympian. And while she brushes off his compliment, she blushes heavily. Unbeknownst to Arata, the night before, when the girls are at the souvenir shop, they realize that Uka and Arata were missing, so Minami went to look for them. To her shock, she heard Uka telling Arata that she loved him. And ever since then, Minami has been stressing over how she could confront Arata about that incident, not wanting to be their children's aunt anytime soon. While she is thinking hard, Arata tells him to stop lazing around. So Minami quickly does some dumbbell flies to pretend like everything is fine, but Arata tells her that her form is trash. After gathering her bravery, she asks Arata if something happened between him and Uka, but not knowing what she's referring to, Arata assures her that while he fights with Uka a lot, they are always extremely tight with each other, which is something that Minami doesn't want to hear at that moment, knowing what happened between them. She then leaves the room, not able to contain the pressure on her shoulders and not knowing what to do with the situation. Later, after finishing the workout, Arata heads to the bathroom, thinking about what Minami just said to him regarding the relationship between him and Uka. Suddenly, when Arata opens the bathroom door, Seiha is there, wearing the last of her plot armors, and while Arata is flustered, Seiha couldn't care less. She talks about how they are experiencing what a lot of rom-com anime MCs go through, but unlike them, Seiha doesn't punch Arata to the moon. When Arata tries to close the door, he sees that Seiha's clothes are blocking it from closing, so he is forced to pick them up and put them in the laundry basket that is inside the bathroom, while preventing himself from looking at Seiha in the shower. When he does look at her showering, he realizes that Seiha doesn't act any differently compared to before, unlike himself, who carries degenerate thoughts. He notices Seiha's ring, the one that their mother left for them, and asks her if it finally fits her. She tells him that it's a bit loose, but she refuses to let go due to her memory of her mother. Later, while alone in his room, Banri knocks on Arata's door asking to come in. When she does, she starts teasing him for having such a clean and tidy room, reminding him of all the times their father would scold him for making a mess on the bedroom floor. He asks her why she's here, and she chit-chats around him, saying how she only wanted to visit his room. However, she casually snoops around his laptop, asking if he has any spicy videos, and to his surprise, Banri reads the title of one of his limited edition Mia Khalifa videos. But he quickly grabs his laptop away from her, asking how she opened his password. To his embarrassment, it turns out the title can be seen on his email notifications, and that she didn't need to put in any passwords. While Arata is embarrassed, Banri expresses how she is actually relieved to know that his brother is a cultured man who enjoys Johnny Sins and Mia Khalifa videos. Just then, she invites Arata to go on a date with her. The next day, on their date, she takes him to a phone store, knowing that Arata has wanted to upgrade his phone for a long time, and he feels happy with her gesture. However, she starts teasing him, saying how they should go to a hotel afterward and do hot yoga until the sun goes up and down. Then, when Arata chooses his new phone, he chooses it quickly and efficiently. And when Banri asks him why he chose quickly, Arata expresses how he doesn't care about the design that much. Just then, Banri starts yapping about how people choose their phones like their partners, and that if someone chooses their phones only for their features, that means that someone prefers personality over appearance. However, Banri believes that looks do matter. As if one day Arata were to get an annoying lover, at least he could still look at her pretty face instead of an ugly pig. Then, the saleswoman brings the phone, and when she spots Banri beside Arata, she offers them a couple's deal to get a huge discount. While Arata wants to decline, Banri pretends to be his lover, saying that they will take the deal, but he quickly declines. Afterward, Arata wonders why Banri suddenly took him out on a date, but his thought process is stopped when Banri sees an ice cream stand. After getting the ice cream, she reminds him of the time they all fought over an ice cream incident, and Arata remembers how Minami accidentally ate Kotono's ice cream. But because Kotono was too reserved, Uka stood up for her against Minami, which started a fight between all the siblings. However, because she was too scared of confrontations, Kotono always hid in the closet whenever she was sad, which granted her the name the Closet Fairy from her sisters. It reminds Arata of how Banri used to be scared of the supernatural, but she tells him to shut his mouth, as the idea of Casper the friendly ghost being freaky from behind her still scares her. Just then, Banri asks Arata if anything happened, assuring him that, as his big sister, she will have his back, and he assures her that everything is okay. Meanwhile, Kotono is in her room, looking at the pictures they took on the birthday trip, but when he sees Arata in the picture, she can't help but stare at him a bit longer. Suddenly, she gets a message from Banri in the sisters' group chat, showing how she's on a date with Arata, eating ice cream, and while that makes Kotono extremely jealous, she stops herself from going too far and instead saves the picture. Back on the date, Banri asks Arata to continue the date, which surprises him, but suddenly she reads a message intensely on her phone and tells Arata that she needs to go somewhere as soon as possible. Before she leaves, Arata tells her that she should go on a date with a proper boyfriend next time, and while Banri blushes from cheek to cheek, she teases her brother, telling him not to get carried away. When she leaves, everyone she passes stares at her, refusing to believe someone so beautiful exists. Then Banri calls Minami, telling her that she couldn't get Arata to open up about what happened between him and Uka, even after the date they just went on. However, Minami still refuses to believe that nothing happened, still convinced that Uka told Arata that she loved him, so she sends a message to Banri, expressing how she must have misheard about Uka telling Arata that she loves him. Suddenly, she notices that she sent the message to the sisters group chat, so she quickly deleted the message, praying to the anime gods that no one saw it. Just then, Uka pops up in the bathroom, asking that she gets her turn to bathe, and while Minami was initially nervous, she feels relieved to know that Uka didn't read the message. However, unbeknownst to Minami, Kotono saw the message before it as deleted, and she couldn't believe that she now has a love rival. Later, they have dinner together, and when Arata looks at Seiha, who's brooding, he can't help but notice that she looks like she has had issues for a while. Then he runs into her while she's alone, and while he initially ignores her, he ends up asking her if she is okay. To his surprise, it turns out that Seiha has been meaning to play Twister, and since Arata asked, she takes him to play with her. He asks her why she wanted to play Twister all of a sudden, and she informs him that after her visit to his room, she has been having degenerate thoughts about him. So she needs to find out if she actually wants to bump bellies with him. Arata wants to refuse to play, but when Seiha reminds him of who helped him during his test, he folds and agrees to play Twister with her. When the game starts, Arata begins the game by purposefully staying away from Seiha to avoid contact, but since that won't answer Seiha's questions, she purposefully tries to get closer, hoping to get a reaction out of herself so she can see whether she wants him. They continue for a few more rounds when Seiha mentions how Arata is still being hesitant, so the next round, she purposefully puts herself in a position that would make most men bark for some roast beef. It gets Arata to almost start drooling, and he declares that he forfeits, but Seiha doesn't allow him to back off, so he forcefully continues the game. In the next round, Arata has to put his foot in the color blue, which is directly under Seiha. He tries his best to be careful, but still ends up bumping her rice cakes anyway, which makes him malfunction because of how soft they are. Just then, Seiha starts yapping about the humans' hormones, and she explains how humans have both dopamine, which is released when they win something, and oxytocin, which is released when a person wants to do hot yoga with someone. She questions at what point she switches from dopamine to oxytocin when she's with Arta, whom she sees as someone who can make her kitty purr. Just then, she gets into a peculiar position that Mia Khalifa usually gets into, which, in that moment, makes Arata wish that he were Johnny Sins. He starts tweaking, but suddenly Seiha loses her strength and drops her rice cakes on Arata's body, saying that her muscles gave up. Arata can't believe that he felt her own sister's rice cakes on him, but to Seiha's relief, she tells Arata that she didn't feel any plotful thoughts towards him during the game, which means that she can continue her life like normal. When Seiha leaves, she thanks Arata for his help, which leaves him frustrated, wondering what kind of BS just happened. Just then, Uka pops up after hearing his frustration, and she asks him to join her later for a game session. It makes Arata wonder why Uka would suddenly ask him to play games with her alone. And he assumes that it's because she just really wants to play games with him. He still remembers how Uka would put him in submission holds whenever she lost to him, but what bothers him more is how she told him that she loved him out of the blue. They start playing the game, where Uka plays with excitement, like it's the best game in the world, while Arata plays calmly. Just then, being too excited, she leans onto his leg, and Arata realizes that she doesn't realize that she's sticking to him, but when he sees the bright smile she has on her face, he can't help but see her as his adorable little sister. While Uka manages to defeat Arata for the first few rounds, Arata gets into the zone and defeats her again and again, leaving her devastated by the number of losses she has to him. Just then, she tells him that she needs to go to the bathroom, but when she gets behind him, she puts him in a chokehold like the old days. During it, Arata starts begging her to let go, saying how both he and his character in-game are dying, but what worries him most is the fact that she has her plots sticking on his body, and him trying his best not to wake up the beast. Having had enough of her BS, Arata uses his raw strength to turn the situation around, and pins Uka down on the floor, saying that he was hurt. However, he just realizes the position he is in, and when he looks down, he sees that Uka is gazing at him like prey being caught by a lion. She mentions how he's a man now, and it takes him by surprise to hear that. She quickly leaves the room, realizing that she doesn't stand a chance against Arata, and deep down she wishes that Arata would go to town on her. It leaves Arata confused about what just happened, questioning what she meant by calling him a real man. And out of fatigue, he decides to go to bed, but unbeknownst to him, Kotono was in the room next door, listening to the whole thing. The next day, the siblings continue their day at school as usual, and at the end of the day, their father calls up Arata for a father-son talk. He first asks Arata if the siblings are okay after the big announcement, to which Arata tells him that they have become more expressive since the announcement. But to Arata's surprise, the father asks him if he has found his special someone. Meanwhile, the girls are watching a romantic series together, where the guy proposes to his special someone on a bridge. While Banri sees it as romantic for a guy to profess their love in the wild, Uka feels the ick seeing a girl getting a proposal in the wild like a bum. They ask Uka what her ideal situation is, and she expresses how she would love to be proposed to by a rich alpha in an expensive restaurant using $1 million ring. Seiha tells her that she should lay off the henny, and when she gets asked the same question, Seiha expresses how she would love to marry someone who already has everything figured out, starting from how many children they will have to how many hot yoga sessions a week. However, Minami completely shits down the topic by saying that what truly matters is not the place or the circumstances, but it's the person who proposes to them, which they all wholeheartedly agree. As they are walking back to their rooms, Kotono is slowly losing control over her emotions, and when she loses it, to everyone's shock, she declares to them how she is in love with Arata. Banri tries to calm her down, understanding that she loves him as a brother, but Kotono once again declares to make it clear that she loves Arata and wants to marry him. After everything she saw, she declares that every single one of her sisters is her rival, and she's not intending to lose. Back with Arata, his father expresses how he's worried that Arata might not have a wife as the future heir of the family, and out of curiosity, he asks his father what made him choose their mother. He initially jokes by saying that he fell in love with her creamy plots, but ends up confessing that he was weakly in love with their mother's powerful, bright soul. Arata asks him why they only have one picture of her, and the father tells him how truly beautiful people don't like to be in photos. He asks Arata if he remembers the secretive 8th room in the house, and Arata tells him that he and the others, who still haven't been inside that room, used to believe that it's a room to get them to an Isekai. Arata tells his father that while he believes that the father had a reason to reveal the truth just recently, he believes that they will work through it and that he's proud to be his oldest son. As the future heir of the family, Arata tells his father that he will always look over his siblings and ensure that they will all have a happy life. When Arata leaves, the father looks at the picture of his wife and expresses to her how proud he is to have adopted Arata as his son. The next morning, Arata goes for a run after his conversation with his father. Meanwhile, the sisters are still conflicted after Kotono's declaration, telling them that she wanted to marry Arata. When Minami steps out of the house, she walks into Arata and gets nervous, remembering what Kotono said. Arata knows something is wrong and asks Minami to spill it out, but she refuses to do so and runs away to practice for the inter-high tournament. Inside the house, Banri is scolding the dog for eating too much and not getting enough exercise, warning it that it might become a fat, useless dog. When Arata spots them, he joins in scolding the dog for not wanting to jog with him, and instead eating like a fatty. Suddenly, Banri suggests that they should decrease the dog's food, which angers the dog so much that it bites Arata, blaming him for what just happened. Just then, Shion pops up, getting some breakfast, and he reminds Banri that she's late for her meeting for the day. However, when they look at Arata's body on the floor, they wonder what to do with it. Later during tennis practice, Minami struggles to focus, still stuck with what Kotono told them. However, despite being out of form, she still gets praised by her peers, who ask her what her secret is. Instead of answering seriously, Minami yaps about some BS about lions and cats. Just then, Minami notices her senior, Nao, and challenges her to a game, betting a drink in the process. They play a childlike tennis game that tests their agility, which Minami wins in the end. While resting, Nao tells Minami that the inner high will be her final tournament, but she's not worried as she knows that their great hope lies in Minami. She talks about how she initially thought that Minami would be an arrogant brat. And while she is arrogant, Nao also saw how Minami worked the hardest. She wishes that they both reach their dreams, which touches Minami's heart. She jokes about Nao's motivational speech, and she gets flustered, so she challenges Minami to a rematch. Afterward, Minami hears that Nao didn't receive any college scholarships, so after she graduated, she had to stop playing tennis and get a job. It reminds Minami of the first time she met Nao, where she greeted Minami warmly and invited her to play the game with her, which ended in Minami's victory. Now, Minami wants nothing more than to send off Nao with a gold medal, and she makes it her mission. Back home, the maid calls up Arata for something, and she tells him something about Minami. Arata confronts Minami, who's working out, and she gets freaked out by him approaching her. Suddenly, Arata declares himself as his trainer, and while she's yapping about how she doesn't need one, he reveals that he knows that she's injured. He tells her that the maid saw her taping her ankles, and Arata intends to stay by her side during her training. Meanwhile, Uka is in her room, still thinking of what Kotono told them, and while they wanted to believe that Kotono was not serious, Seiha warned them that, as they are no longer blood-related, Kotono's declaration of love towards Arata should be taken seriously, which, to this night, Uka is still thinking about. Back in the gym, Arata helps Minami stretch to help with the injury. It reminds him of the time they used to stretch together in the past, but unlike before, he notices how much Minami's body has changed from her soft skin to her supple plumps. He quickly gets his mind off it by asking Minami if she told her team about her ankle, and she tells him that she hasn't. Arata tries to scold her, but Minami expresses how she wants to win the inter-high, not just for herself, but also for someone precious. After her stretching, she turns the table and stretches Arata. When she pushes herself on his back, he can feel her holy attributes pushing into him, but to his surprise, he realizes that she doesn't notice them. After leaving the gym, Arata runs into Kotono, who freezes in place at the sight of him. He realizes it's the first time they're alone after the fun bathroom incident. She asks him if he was just alone with Minami, as she's worried that she might tell him about her declaration. And he tells her that he was. Kotono pushes and asks if Minami was acting weird, and Arata gets flustered after the stretching session that he just had, but he tells her that she wasn't. Arata asks Kotono if she knows something, but she gets flustered and quickly runs away to her room. Days later, Minami competes in the semifinal of the inner high, and with her senior on her mind, she fights through her pain and wins the match, sending her and her team into the finals. Outside of the bus, the team congratulates her for getting them to the finals. But as she's walking inside, Minami feels tremendous pain in her ankle, and now notices it. Back home, Arata continues helping Minami stretch her ankle, but Minami informs Arata that after she told her coach about her ankle issues, the coach decided to assign Minami a private trainer to help her. Arata realizes that he will be fired after the finals, but Minami thanks him for his help so far. In his room, Arata puts away all the books he has about stretching, realizing they're not needed for now. The next morning, Arata and his chiseled abs walk into the walking fan service boundary having breakfast. He tries to warn her about only eating cereal in the morning, but she teases him, saying that if she gets too fat, Big Arata needs to help her do hot cardio together. Arata asks her if Minami has already had breakfast, but Banri tells him that she hasn't seen her the whole day. Just then, Seiya pops up, also asking about Minami's whereabouts, which shocks them. When the others show up, they ask them if they know Minami's whereabouts, which they don't, but to their shock, Shion informs them that Minami's tennis shoes are still there, which means that Minami is not with her team in the finals, and she has gone missing. They quickly look for Minami in her room, and when they can't find her, they worry sick about her. Suddenly, to their surprise, Minami pops up, saying that she has just been to the convenience store. When they ask her about her inter-high final, she brushes them off, saying that she has it under control. They ask Shion if he knows anything, and he tells them that he doesn't. Arata feels worried, so he goes to her room, expecting her to be in tears. But to his surprise, Minami is happily snacking away like a fat pig, enjoying her life. Arata expresses how he's worried for her, and she reveals that after her coach discovered that she got injured, she has been taken off the team to avoid her risking her bright future. Arata asks her if she's okay not fighting for that someone precious to her, and Minami brushes him off, saying that she has no choice. Just as Arata is about to leave, he looks back and sees Minami smiling at him half-heartedly. When he steps out, Shion pops up to confront him and reveals something he didn't tell anyone. He tells Arata that earlier that morning, outside of the house, he saw Minami crying all by herself, avoiding anyone from seeing her, and Shion chose to pretend not to see it, as he knows that Minami doesn't want others to worry while deep down, she's hurting deeply. After hearing that, Arata barges into Minami's room and takes her with him outside, where Uka and the others are waiting for Minami, so they can all go support her for her tennis final. On their way there, while the others are worrying that they're going to be late, Minami is lost in thought, remembering the moment she was taken off the team after Nao told the coach about her injury out of her worry. Minami begged them to let her compete, revealing how she knew about it being Nao's last dance with tennis and wanted it to be a victory for her. Nao hugged Minami, thanking her, but wanted Minami not to risk her injury for her own future. Arata tells Minami that he's not sure whether they made the right decision and asks Minami to forfeit if anything goes wrong. He also asked her to never lie to them or to herself ever again. Meanwhile, Minami's team loses the doubles competition, leaving only the singles competition to bring back gold for Nao and her team. Back with the car, everyone panics as they are stuck in traffic, and Arata thinks hard about what to do to get there. Just then, they notice rental bikes on the side of the street, and Seiya tells them that she has the app to rent them. Arata quickly pulls Minami with him to get to the competition, and Shion hands Minami her tennis equipment, sending her off with luck on her side. On the bike ride there, Arata tries his hardest to go as fast as he can, sweating and struggling to breathe properly. He reminds Minami of a time years ago when their school asked them to write things for their mother for Mother's Day, but because their mother is already gone, every single one of them struggled to write anything due to their sadness, apart from Minami. Back then, Minami expresses to her deceased mother how she and her siblings grew closer in her absence, and Arata expresses how he appreciates her as a family member who always smiled even in the toughest times. Arata tells Minami that while she's not a genius, she's a workhorse who has a positive attitude, and Arata prays that she will get rewarded for all of her hard work. In the final, Nao manages to win her side of the singles match, leaving Minami's substitute to win her game. However, Minami and Arata pull up to Nao and the team after a long bike ride. Before Minami gets to say anything, Arata bows down to the ground, begging the coach to let Minami play, saying that to her, the game that's about to happen is as important to Minami as her future. After hearing that, Nao vouches for Minami, and the coach decides to let Minami play. Then the game starts, and when the nerve starts to get to Minami, his family cheers for her from the stands, lowering her nerve. Minami receives first, and through her skill, she manages to win the first point against her opponent. Then the opponent serves again, but this time, she makes it difficult for Minami to keep up. And just as Minami thinks she's winning, the opponent counters. It forces Minami to use her left ankle, which strains it, and she manages to win another point, at the cost of risking an injury. After a grueling final, Minami's team cried in agony as Minami lost the game. She tries to cheer them up, apologizing for her loss, and offers Nao to slap her after all the big talk she did before the game about winning. Instead of a slap, Nao bows to her, thanking her for helping them to achieve their dream of competing on a high level. She prays that the game won't affect her future, and Minami holds herself back from crying. Meanwhile, the siblings are waiting for Minami to come home with them, but they know that after her loss, she's somewhere alone. Arata goes to look for her and finds her by herself sitting on a bench. When she sees him, Minami degrades herself, saying how she let them see her get embarrassed, and that her own team even thanked her despite the loss. She thanks him and the others for bringing her there, and is ready to move on to the next chapter after her loss. However, Arata pulls her in for a hug and tells her to stop lying to herself, not while she's in her brother's embrace. Minami starts asking what she needs to do for her to be good enough, starting from being the best tennis player, all the way to winning Wimbledon and breaking records. She desperately wants to know what she needs to do to become stronger so she won't lose again in the crucial moment, and Arata assures her that in time, she will be strong. And Minami cries her heart out in Arata's embrace. Days after the loss, Minami is deep in her thoughts, still remembering how Arata fought so hard for her and embraced her after her loss, which makes her feel tingly inside. Meanwhile, Uka is arguing with everyone about how she believes that one of Minami's plays was cheated, and she should have gotten a point, which would have shifted the momentum in her favor. She asks Arata for his opinion, and he brushes her off, saying that what matters is that Minami now has no regrets. Minami walks out to the commotion and is unable to look Arata in his eyes. Uka asks her for her opinion, and to her annoyance, Minami no longer cares about the game, and is more grateful that she didn't worsen her injury. Minami takes a seat right in front of Arata, and he gives her pointers on what to do with her injury, and while Minami responds to him, she's unable to turn around to look at him. Still refusing the result with a ball, Uka declares that she will show what actually happened, still believing that Minami should have won. She waves the ball around in frustration, all the while the dog thinks that she's asking to play. Suddenly, the ball slips and heads towards Minami, risking the dog to jump at her, but Arata swoops in and catches the ball to save Minami, which rizzes her up and folds her like a lawn chair. He scolds Uka for not being careful and asks Minami if she's okay. In that moment, Minami remembers how both Uka and Kotono expressed their love for Arata, and he starts thinking whether the tingly feeling in her heart is the same feeling that her sisters had. Later that night, Kotono is thinking hard about her confessions towards Arata when Uka knocks on her door, asking to talk about something. She steps inside and chit-chats about how cute her room looks, which fits her aesthetic, but Kotono is not interested in small talk and asks her to get to the point. Uka confronts Kotono about her confession to Arata and asks her, sister to sister, that Kotono speak to her if she needs someone to listen. Instead of answering, Kotono reveals how she knows that Uka also confessed her feelings to Arata during their trip, and how she saw her with Arata snuggling on the floor in the game room. Uka realizes that what she did pushed Kotono to declare her love for Arata in front of them, and she tells Kotono that she misunderstood. She tells Kotono that she told Arata that she loved him as his former twin sister, and that nothing happened in the game room, which Kotono also saw. Kotono gets extremely close and asks Uka if she really is not in love with Arata, and when she tells Kotono that she's not, she sees how much Kotono feels relieved. She apologizes to Uka for misunderstanding, but when Uka steps out of the room, she can't help but think about Arata. Later, Banri panics and begs any one of her siblings to come with her to her nursing school for something, and when none of them can help her, she turns to her old, reliable brother, Arata. Then, they sneak past security into Banri's nursing school, and she expresses how she was too scared to go there alone, out of her fear of ghosts. Arata starts talking about how her school does look haunted, and Banri starts getting scared, begging him to knock it off. It confuses Arat why she picked nursing school, but when he asks Banri about it, she doesn't answer. Suddenly, a loud bang occurs, and Banri latches onto Arata, thinking it's a ghost, but Arata tells her that it's just the wind hitting the windows. With her on his arm, Arata can't help but feel the marshmallow on him, and tries to pull away, but it makes Banri even more scared, so she squeezes even harder, forcing Arata to drag her. Suddenly, Arata pulls her from the back and closes her mouth, telling her to be quiet. At that moment, a security guard walks past, and it makes him wonder why they have to hide when Banri is a student there. Just then, Banri calls out for him, and he realizes that for this whole time he has his hands pushing on her fun pillows, and he quickly lets her go. It reminds him of how they used to play and get in contact physically, but he now truly realizes how different it is with how thick and soft Banri has become. Then they make it to their destination, Banri's club room, and she finally finds what she forgot at school earlier: her handmade dolls that she planned on finishing that day. Arata asks her what they are, and Banri tells him a story about when she first got into the nursing school. She was brought to check on a hospital. There, she saw children who were hospitalized for a long period, with some of them happily playing, and others sitting depressed in the corner. She then saw some students cheer up the little sad kid and brought his mood back up, which turned out to be volunteers from her school. After she saw that, she applied to the volunteer club in her school so she could do the same thing, and so all the children would never leave the hospital empty-handed with a doll in their hands. Banri told Arata that the reason she applied to a nursing school was that years ago, when she visited their sick mother, she always cried alone whenever she had to leave her. It was back then that a nurse came to cheer her up, and it was then that she knew she wanted to be exactly like the nurse who made a sad little girl happy. Then, Arata and Banri head home, and Banri tells Arata that she is still too embarrassed to tell the others of the reason she became a nurse. As thanks for accompanying her, Banri tells Arata that he must have enjoyed feeling her plots on him earlier, but instead of answering, Arata leaves her behind, forcing her to chase him out of fear. The next day, Banri manages to finish working on the dolls and handed them to the sick children. She sends a picture of it to Arata and thanks him for the help. Days later, Uka and her class receive their results for the mock exam. The others ask Uka what grade she got, and Uka tells them that she got the usual, which doesn't surprise them. They boast about how Uka always got an A and will probably become their next council president, but what they don't know is that Uka actually got a D. On that weekend, in the morning, Uka prepares herself to go somewhere, and Arata asks her where she is going. When Uka tells him that she's going to Yamanashi, he gets surprised, but she brushes it off and goes anyway. It confuses Arata why Uka is going there, knowing they don't have relatives, but he assumes that she just needed some time for herself after everything that happened and expects her to come back during school day. However, after the weekend had passed and the school day started, Uka still hadn't returned home. Heading to school, the girls group up like usual, but without Uka by their side, they acknowledge how weird it is not to have one of their sisters with them. Arata is worried for her as well, and at school, her friends ask him about it, as Uka has never skipped school before in her entire life, and Arata could only assure them that Uka will be back. It makes Arata wonder what is on Uka's mind to be gone for 3 days. Later at home, Uka still hasn't come home and will miss another day at school, which worries the siblings even more, knowing that it would destroy her reputation if people know that she ran away. Zeha asks Arata if Uka contacted him, and when he doesn't show any urgency, she gets frustrated with him. Suddenly, Banri pops up with her phone and tells her that since Uka once lost her phone, she has a GPS that tracks her. And on Banri's phone, to everyone's shock, Uka is at Mount Fuji. The girls get scared for her, thinking of the worst scenarios, but Shion calms them down. Meanwhile, Uka is on her way to the top of Mount Fuji, climbing alone, and manages to reach the summit to stay one more night. The innkeeper tells her that it's unusual for people to stay as long as her, and Uka tells her that she has something she needs to see. Back at the house, Arata decides to track her down, and while Banri expresses her concern with Arata leaving, Seiha tells him that he fully trusts him to find Uka and bring her back. He rides an express to get to Mount Fuji, and once he gets there, he contacts Banri, asking him about Uka's position. Banri informs him that Uka is at a higher place, and Arata assumes she's staying in a mountain lodge. He starts walking there by himself, flashlight in hand, not caring about the darkness, all for his precious sister. It impresses him how Uka also walked the trail by herself, and despite knowing that she has a lot on her mind, Arata still wonders why she came to Mount Fuji. Back home, both Minami and Kotono are unable to sleep due to them both being worried, but when Kotono expresses how she's more worried for Arata, Minami gets nervous and assures her that Arata will be fine. After an hour of walking, Arata reaches the mountain lodge, surprising Uka. She asks him why he's suddenly there, and to her surprise, he simply tells her that she's looking for her. Arata tells the innkeeper that he will be staying the night, and she signs them both into the same room, knowing that they're siblings. Arata texts his family that he has found Uka, and all of them breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that Uka is safe. Then, Uka and Arata enter their room, realizing how awkward it is for them both to sleep next to each other. Just then, Uka tells him not to look, as she's about to change. He quickly turns around, feeling nervous about his inner freaky Alabama thoughts, wondering why he's seeing Uka in a different light, even though he has seen her body multiple times before his siblings. After she finishes changing, they head to sleep, and Arata tells her that they are heading back in the morning. But to his confusion, Uka tells him that she refuses to go back home. He asks her why she went to Mount Fuji, but instead of answering his question, she asks whether the others are worried, to which Arata tells her that they are. Then she tells Arata, reminding him of how Mount Fuji was the place where their mother and father met, which Arata forgot. She tells him that they were strangers, but their father was the man who carried their mother from the top, all the way down, when their mother was ill due to the extreme altitude. Uka then expresses how, just like how their parents met each other, she believes that people have their destined partner assigned for them since birth. To Arata's shock, she wonders whether that exists in their family, and while Arata rejects that idea, Uka reminds him how Kotono really loves him romantically, which Arata still refuses to believe. He asks her if this is what has been on her mind, but she doesn't answer, and he realizes that she's already asleep. While looking at her back, he sees how the usual arrogant sister of his looks so weak and fragile, and that the amazing Uka Shunji is nothing but a normal girl. He puts her blanket on her properly and goes to sleep, so he can rest for the next day's journey home. However, when he wakes up to his surprise, Uka is not there beside him, and instead, she left a note telling him that she has gone home first. He doesn't believe what she said and contacts Banri to ask her about Uka's location. Banri tells him that Uka is still on the mountain summit, and Arata heads there. Meanwhile, Uka continues her climb by herself, and when she reaches the summit, she stands there by herself, confusing other visitors who saw her there the day before, making them wonder what she's doing. As the fog starts to thicken up, Uka starts getting impatient and waiting for her fated lover, so she heads back down, questioning why she's there in the first place. Arata tries to meet her halfway on the summit, but doesn't find her, so he heads back down, assuming that Uka has gone down before him to the lodge and is heading home. Back with Uka, she got distracted and ended up lost in the mountains, after realizing that no one was there. She tries to find people calling out for them, but death calls for her as she slips down the mountain and lands where no one can get to her. She realizes that her leg is horribly injured and desperately screams for help. Back with Arata, the innkeeper tells him that Uka has not returned and her luggage is still there. Back home, Banri has lost her signal of Uka and doesn't know her location anymore. With death closing in, Uka's life flashes before her eyes and she remembers the moment her father gave her her mother's earrings. She asked him how they met, and it was then that the father told Uka the story of how he saved her mother on Mount Fuji. To her, her father was like a prince who met his princess on Japan's highest peak, and the father assured Uka that she would one day find her prince. Uka then wakes up, realizing she was asleep for a moment. She realizes that her life is in danger, but doesn't see how it matters, as she has caused trouble to her family again. She looks at the earring her father gave her, and it falls from her hand. She struggles to find it in the fog, but sees a light reflecting on it, which helps her to get it back. She quickly looks up to find the light source, and there she sees Arata, her prince, reminding her of what her father told her about fate. Years ago back then, whenever Uka had something to vent or talk about, she would always talk to her father about it, and the old man was always willing to listen with a smile on his face. But after what happened recently, Uka has been unable to do the same thing. Even when her father asked her about it, she blew him off. Back on Mount Fuji, Arata sees the injury on Uka's leg, and without skipping a beat, he tells her to get on his back so he can carry her. She tries acting tough, saying that she can walk alone, but Arata tells her to knock it off and get on his back. Meanwhile, the other siblings are heavily anxious, not knowing what's happening on the mountain, so much that even their father canceled his meeting and is heading back home. Back on the mountain, Arata carries Uka back to the track, slowly getting back to where they were staying. He quickly realizes that with the heavy rain falling on them, he struggles to walk and breathe. Just then, Uka confesses that the reason she went to the mountain was because she saw a TikTok about how if a person brought a dead person's precious belongings, they could meet that dead person one more time. However, she now realizes that it's impossible as she's not really her mother's daughter, and that she doesn't really have a real family in this world. With tears in her eyes, she painfully expresses how she can no longer talk to her father like she used to, knowing that everything has changed, even when everyone told her it hadn't. With her grades dropping and her mind full, she doesn't know what to do anymore. From his own heart, Arata tells Uka that despite what happened, he is still her twin, which is why he managed to find her. Despite not being a real family, Arata assures Uka that he will always be there for her, and his shoulder will always be there for her to cry on. It makes Uka tear up, and as Arata yaps along, she cries on his shoulder. Then, they leave the inn and head down from the mountain, where, to their surprise, Banri and the others are waiting for him, saying how worried they are when Arata stopped contacting them. When Banri notices Uka's injury, she turns on her mom mode and starts worrying for her. They reveal that the reason they are there is because Minami demanded that they chase after them. And when Arata thanks Minami for it, Minami blushes. On the car ride home, they ask Uka why she ran off to Mount Fuji, and not wanting to tell the truth, she simply tells them she wanted to see where their mother and father met. They simply accept her reasoning with kindness, but Uka feels conflicted with how nice they are treating her after the stunt she pulled, and realizes that she could never tell them the real reason she ran away. Suddenly, Arata falls on her shoulder and falls asleep heavily. Uka blushes and recalls how in the past, she once scolded Arata for not being a gentleman, and taught him to always provide his shoulder when a woman needs it. Arata demanded gender equality, and Uka agreed that women should also provide their shoulder for a man, as long as that man is their romantic partner. And now, Uka can't help but remember her own words and see Arata as a romantic partner, so she lets him sleep on her shoulder. When they get home, the others get ready to unload the car when Uka realizes that Arata is not waking up and his temperature is extremely high. Then, Shion carries Arata to his room so he can lie down. And in that moment, their father pops up, worrying about his children. They tell him how Arata carried Uka in the rain, and he praises his son for his action and tells the others to rest up. Later that night, Uka meets up with her father and vents about how she struggled to see him, as her father like she used to. However, after what happened on the mountain, Arata made her realize that she still loves him and gives him a warm hug, one that the father gladly accepts. The next day, Uka is back at school and his friends greet her back for her return. But because Arata is sick, they feel bad for him. Later, at home, Banri cooks up some porridge for Arata, and when she finishes cooking, she asks the others if anyone wants to bring it to Arata. Minami and Kotono both quickly want to take that role, and they both wonder why the other is excited to bring the porridge to Arata. Banri asks Minami to bring it to Arata, and whispers to Minami about how she's worried that Kotono might get freaky in Arata's room, not knowing Minami would love to do the same. Then, Uka shows up, and Seiha points out how she's supposed to be the one to nurse Arata after what he did for her, but Uka brushes them off, saying that the muscular idiot should be fine. She goes off to take a bath, thinking of what she should do, and when she finishes, she tells the others that the bathroom is free and secretly goes to Arata's room, saying that she will get the porridge bowl. When Uka enters the room, she apologizes for what happened and expresses how happy she really is that Arata came to save her. She tells Arata that one of the things she wanted to ask their dead mother was whether it's okay for her to fall in love with him, but despite not meeting their mom, she now knows her feelings for him after how he saved her and comforted her. While the others are fooling around downstairs, not knowing what's happening upstairs, Uka is alone in Arata's room, kissing him tenderly and letting the kiss linger, all the while Arata is asleep. She then takes the porridge bowl and leaves the room, saying that she will come back later. But unbeknownst to her, when she leaves, Arata is wide awake, thinking what in the Alabama is going on. Some days later, to get themselves some fresh air, Arata and the others visit their family's holiday villa, one that Arata remembers used to be where he and the others visit every holiday, but this time their father is not with them, so it's just the siblings. When Arata imagines their usual sleeping outline, Banri pops from the back, teasing him about shaking the bed together with her, and Arata scolds her for the degenerate plot ideas. Then, when he looks at Uka, he can't help but remember how she kissed him after she thought he was asleep. He questions what Uka meant when she said that she liked him, but in that moment Uka notices that Arata is deep in thought, so she goes to confront him, asking if he's okay. He tries brushing her off, but when he notices her luscious lips, the same ones that kissed him, he starts tweaking and runs away. Later, Arata is in the middle of his thought-provoking shower when Shion suddenly pops in, telling Arata he forgot to close the door. Arata asks him where he went off to, and to his surprise, Shion confesses that he went to find his real parents and that he was the one who suggested this trip so he could achieve that goal. However, he informs him that he failed to find them. He asks Arata if he's also curious about his real parents, and Arata expresses how, while he does have an interest, he only sees their father as his father, as he believes that blood doesn't determine one's family. After hearing that, Shion tells Arata that he's over finding his real parents and now holds the same sentiment as Arata, seeing his current family as his real family. The next morning, while the others are asleep, Uka wakes up early, only to realize that Arata is no longer there and is in the sauna tent, getting himself warmed up. However, due to thinking about Shion's search for his family and Uka's confession, he overheats and steps out of the tent, only to find Uka waiting for him, which makes him even more heated. His thoughts wander with Uka being close to him, especially after she has been trying to get even closer to him, not knowing he was awake during their kiss. Just then, she invites him to enter the sauna with her for an endurance test. But feeling the awkwardness, he tells her to go alone. But to his surprise, she decides to just sit next to him instead, which makes him even more flustered, knowing how she feels for him. He quickly gets her to do the endurance test, and they both enter the sauna, just like how they used to, but unlike before, this time Arata can't help but stare at her plots that are slowly getting sweaty due to the heat. Suddenly, she asks him if he's planning to get a girlfriend, and not wanting to make it even more awkward, he tells her that he's not interested at the moment. Unable to handle the heat, Arata exits the sauna, which worries Uka, and she asks him if he's no longer simping for Lala, his longtime crush. When he thinks about it, he expresses how, despite his history with her, he has no more feelings for Lala, and is not so pathetic to be struggling to move on. When Uka hears that, she gets joyful and runs off to take a shower, where she's conflicted by her own feelings and actions, where she constantly wants to get close to Arata and be around him. She remembers all the times she was with Arata in the sauna, asking him whether he has a crush on someone. But now she just realizes that even from back then, she had already developed feelings for him. Back with Arata, he imagines that what Uka feels for him is the same as Kotono's, so he decides to do something about it. Just then, Minami pops up and invites him to go somewhere. To his surprise, they go to a flower garden, which to Arata is not somewhere Minami would usually go to. But considering that she's a girl, he can see that she may have an interest in it, and notices changes in her, like wearing a skirt to be more girly. However, when he looks around, he sees all the couples on a date there, and he wonders why Minami chooses to go there. Suddenly, she asks Arata what his ideal wife would be like, which surprises him, and he gives a basic answer of someone with whom he can be comfortable with. Her question reminds him of all the questions Uka asked him just then, making him confused. Suddenly, Arata notices that Minami's skirt still has a price tag on it, and when she tries desperately to take it off, he goes to help her. When he struggles to do so, he tells her that he will bite it off, and she is left flustered while Arata bites the price tag off of her. Afterward, they enjoy their trip at the park, taking pictures to commemorate their trip, and not before long, 2 hours pass by. Arata suggests to Minami that they should go home, and she suddenly tells him that she's in love with someone. Despite not knowing who it is, Arata expresses how happy he is for his little sister, and when he recounts the date they just went on, he realizes that she was practicing a date by using him as her training partner. She expresses how helpful their trip really is, and runs away flustered to buy some merchandise. There, she goes to buy matching merchandise for both her and Arata to show how grateful she is, and all he cares about is how happy his little sister is. But when he recalls how Minami told him she's in love with someone, he can't help but remember Uka's confession, which gets his brain to start trembling. The next day, the siblings go to a waterfall to go swimming like the old days, getting wet and wearing swimsuits. Some simps in the back ogle over the girls, thinking they're here for a shoot, and Shion tells Arata how lucky they are to always get first-class seats to see their sister's plots. Arata tells this weirdo that the girls are their sisters, but when he looks closer, he can't help but imagine freaky thoughts and quickly stops himself from thinking too far. Then they do their own thing, and Uka jumps off from the back, just like how she used to. But while she's enjoying herself, Seiha informs her that people who like extreme sports usually have low IQ and are idiots. Hearing that reminds Shion of how Seiha used to join Uka and hold her hand while jumping, but Seiha quickly brushes it off, saying that the old her is dumb as bricks. Uka then invites Arata to join her, but when he sees how pretty she is, he quickly rejects, not wanting to jump while doing a full salute. She then asks Minami if she wants to jump, and she tells her that she only wants to jump if Arata joins her. After hearing that, Arata agrees to accompany her, and she takes this chance to grab his hand before jumping with him alongside her. Just then, Seiha jumps down as well, and Arata can see that despite how much older they are still the same old siblings who likes to have fun. Suddenly, Seiha starts panicking, and when Arata asks, Seiha reveals that she lost her inner top during the fall. Arata starts tweaking, realizing that her pepperonis are on site, but then they both see it. Seiha heads towards it, but when Arata sees the pudding, he quickly gets it for her. After handing it to her, he convinces himself that they are siblings, but when Seiha exits the water, he sees the black lace and can't help thinking some Alabama thoughts. Then Banri declares that she wants to swim, and when she orders Arata to join her, getting wet, Minami and Uka watch closely in jealousy. The two get into the water, where some simps are gossiping over the beautiful sight they are seeing. and Arata can't blame them, acknowledging how plotful his older sister is. Suddenly, she jumps on his back, pushing her melons into him, causing his mind to wander. She tells him that if he needs to vent, she will be there for him, but he stays silent, not wanting to reveal what his lips tasted like with Uka on them. He simply tells her that he will be a brother that won't make her worry, but that only reminds Banri of what happened with Kotono. They get closer to the waterfall, and Banri insists that they get even closer. She pushes herself too hard into him, and Arata slips, causing them both to fall. Silence falls into them, and in that moment, Banri tells Arata that she loves him, but because of the waterfall, he couldn't hear her. However, near them, Kotono hears everything. Later, when Arata is all alone, Kotono asks him to accompany her to a nearby vending machine to get some alone time. Arata suspects she wants to say something, but when he brings it up to her, she brushes it off. It reminds Arata how she once drowned in the river, but Kotono assures her that she's a big girl who won't drown now, and when Arata looks closely, he gets some Alabama thoughts and blames it on Uka's kiss. Once they get to the vending machine, Kotono wants to say something, but stops halfway. As her brother, Arata encourages her to open up to him, saying how he will always be there for her, and in that moment, Kotono cries heavy tears, which takes Arata by surprise. She blames herself for acting impulsively for what recently happened with the other sisters, but Arata assures her that, despite her impulses, being there for her is what an older brother should do. His warmth reminds Kotono of their old days, when she was always spoiled by their father and received special treatment among the others. It made the others follow suit, not involving Kotono in their business, which makes Kotono feel that everything would stay the same if she suddenly disappears. Then, one day, everyone panicked as Kotono was drowning in the river. The others could only watch in fear, seeing Kotono so close to death, but Arata was the one who jumped in and saved her from sleeping with the fishes. Once saved, she apologized to Arata for being a burden to him and everyone. But as a big brother, Arata told Kotono that he would always be there to save her. In that moment, Kotono saw Arata differently than the others, as someone who put her first, and it made her want Arata to be more than just her older brother. When they return to the others, Banri scolds them for being late, but in that moment, Minami and Uka realize that Kotono managed to get some alone time with Arata, which makes them feel conflicted. That night, following their tradition, they end their holiday by visiting the church for a candle night. Meanwhile, Arata is still lingering over Uka's kiss and starts panicking, not knowing what to do. He realizes that if he does nothing, it would make things worse for Uka, so he decides to find a solution to it. Just then, he stumbles on Kotono, Minami, and Uka, talking in secret. He realizes that Kotono is about to face her dilemmas, and he supports her from afar. Kotono apologizes to the two for making things complicated to them by telling them her true feelings for Arata. She reveals that she saw the message Minami sent and also knows about Uka's confession to Arata in the amusement park. She declares that she truly loves Arata and apologizes for her selfishness. However, to her shock, Minami confesses that she also loves Arata romantically, and she refuses to hide it anymore. So she tells Kotono that from then on, they will be rivals in love. Suddenly, Uka also confesses that she also loves Arata, which surprises them both, and she reveals that deep down she has loved him for a while, but was always in denial. Until now, the three face each other, and as sisters promise that whoever Arata chooses to love and bump bellies with, the other two won't have any hard feelings, and will continue to love each other as siblings. Meanwhile, Arata, who heard the whole thing, curses the sibling-loving gods for what his ears have just heard. But what they all don't know yet is that among them, there is a pair of actual siblings, waiting to be revealed. Kyotaro is an emo loser who watched too many gore animes and now wants to reference Yuno Gasai on his classmates, especially in the most popular girl of his class, but she ends up falling in love with him and consenting to be stabbed by his edgy sausage. Before all this, Kyotaro gives us a POV of what the quiet kid in class thinks about as he thinks of increasing the population of anime heaven with his classmates. Following this, he spots Yamada, who he's itching to transform into a ghost, and dreams about seeing her cold, lifeless body every night, which sends strong signals to his trouser monster. To get away from all the noise, he heads to the library only to find Yamada eating like she's a death row prisoner having her last meal, and this freaks Kyotaro out. As he walks in, she says something to him, but he just awkwardly agrees even when he did not get what she said, and then hides behind a bookshelf to spy on Anna while she happily consumes enough snacks that'll feed a nation. As he thinks up a scheme to send her to the lobby, he notices that she's working on a social studies project and that she forgot her box cutter to cut up her cardboard paper. So he thinks about lending his cutter to her, but wonders if she'll think he is freakier than Hisoka since he's randomly carrying around London welcome kits. When he sees her ripping the paper in half like Gojo, Kyotaro jumps in to help and offers her his cutter. To his surprise, Yamada thanks him, and he retreats behind the bookshelf, feeling relieved that she didn't find him creepy. Soon after, the school's bell goes off and Yamada leaves with her box cutter in her pencil case. He immediately chases after her to get it back, and just then, she runs into one of her friends who scolds her for eating more than a sumo wrestler. Following this, she rushes to meet him and offers him the bag of chips in her hand, but before he can grab it, she pulls a level 100 disrespect move by quickly finishing the chips before handing the bag to him so he can throw them out. Then she leaves him there, feeling frustrated that he couldn't make any progress to end her. The following day, as Kyotaro arrives at school, he realizes that he still hasn't received his box cutter back and heads to class, only to see it just lying on his desk. Noticing how it feels warm, he becomes Sherlock Holmes, wondering if Yamada had it in her hand the whole way here so she won't forget, but he's also shocked that she knew what desk he sits in. At the same time, their social studies teacher announces that it's time for everyone to present their group projects, and Yamada notices that her project looks completely different, and Moko tells her that she redid the whole thing since it looked like what a toddler did, pointing out the chocolate stain she used in place of a marker. This angers Kyotaro because he knows Yamada put in a lot of effort into the project, but he soon sees that she seems chill about it. As Yamada's classmate presents their project, Kyotaro notices that Yamada looked like she was about to crash out, and hearing Moko happily present the project pisses him off. Following this, Kyotaro's group then presents their project, and while doing this, he spots Yamada being a human water hose in the distance, making him wonder if the project meant more to her than he realized. Suddenly, someone hears helicopters flying past the class window, and everyone looks in Yamada's direction. To stop them from seeing her in tears, he uses his box cutter to tear up his project, and this shocks the class while group partners scold him. Later on, Kyotaro heads to the library for some alone time, and runs into Yamada again. This time, however, Hara arrives shortly to meet Yamada, and she talks about going on a diet to lose her status as a planet, while Yamada says she's doing the same, which triggers Kyotaro as she's munching down junk foods. While they chat, Kenta soon joins them, and Kyotaro wonders if he'll ask Hara out. While they talk, Kenta passionately explains that he likes girls who are thicker than Tsunade, and this makes Kyotaro cringe, wanting him to stop talking. Just then, he mistakenly draws attention to himself, so Yamada signals that he should act like a cat, which he does a terrible job at. This forces Yamada to meet him in the back to show him how to make cat noises, and the others fall for Yamada's scheme, thinking the supposed cats are about to fight. Shortly after, Hara, alongside Kenta, leaves the library, and Yamada comes out of hiding with Kyotaro, telling him that she's glad it worked out before leaving. The following day, as Kyotaro heads to school, he spots Yamada with Haruya, making him wonder if he's her boyfriend, and this makes him upset. He overhears them talking, and although she didn't seem interested at first, they hit it off as they continue talking. Shortly after, Haruya tells Yamada to add him to her contacts, but she doesn't seem comfortable with the idea, and he suddenly grabs her by her arm, making her scared. Even after seeing this, Kyotaro doesn't want to admit that he cares about Yamada's situation, as believes he's a messed up person, but unexpectedly resorts to using his bike as a wrecking ball to break up their connection as it lands in the water. Just then, Moeko tells her about the situation, and Yamada asks Kyotaro why he did it. He cracks a quick joke, and Yamada laughs louder than a hyena, telling Kyotaro that he's a funny person. The following day, as Kyotaro takes on the work of a spy camera, he reflects on how the library is his domain expansion, and how he doesn't want anyone to enter it. At the same time, he notices Yamada preparing to make a snack, and she runs out to get some water. After a while, he notices that she's struggling to fetch water to craft her meal, as she keeps spilling the water on the floor while rushing back. As he realizes she's messing up the floor, so Kyotaro cleans it up, and Yamada soon meets him, claiming that she planned to clean it later. She then notices they only have 3 minutes of recess time left, and hurries to get the water, and he notices that her IQ is a single digit as she keeps doing the same thing. To help out, he becomes Prime Usain Bolt, rushing to the home economics room to get her a glass. However, he returns to find Yamada already eating her treat at the tap, making his help more useless than Sakura. To save face, he decides to drink from the glass, and Yamada mocks him for it. Suddenly, she hands him her trash and says he can keep it, making him wonder if he likes being treated as trash, since he's a bit excited about it. Later in class, while Kyotaro ponders his plan to eliminate Yamada, she struggles to fan herself from the heat, and this triggers Moko, who decides to assist her. While Yamada and the others fan each other, Kyotaro wonders why Yamada likes eating alone when she has so many friends, and he wonders if Yamada is planning to change him into a corpse in the library. Meanwhile, Yamada asks someone for their shirt as she's drenched in sweat, and Kyotaro overhears Sho saying that the sweat has given them X-ray vision to see through their shirts. This gives him an idea to take a sneak peek at Yamada, but before he can get to her, Kyotaro drops his box cutter on the ground to catch Sho's attention while the girls exit the classroom in search of a free air conditioner. Feeling relieved that his plan worked, he heads out of class and notices Yamada's closest friend, whom he likes to refer to as her boyfriend, and notes how Kobayashi doesn't ever complain when Yamada bugs her. Later in the library, he meets Yamada there, and while he's being delusional about how she's caught onto his plan, she asks Kyotaro to pass his fan over. After sniffing it, she says it's one of those fans that smells amazing and tells Kyotaro to take a whiff. As he comes close to her to smell the fan, he notices that Yamada's wearing her swimming attire underneath her school attire. Just then, Yamada receives a phone call from Moko and suddenly becomes scared, hiding under the table. She then asks Kyotaro to quickly sit down, which confuses him, and immediately he takes his seat. Kobayashi angrily enters the room, asking Kyotaro where Yamada is. Knowing that she's mad at Tamada, he says he doesn't know where she is while trying to hide the snake in his pants, and she figures that Yamada is hiding under the table, so she decides to join Kyotaro at the table, which makes him feel bothered. When Kyotaro offers her a snack, she turns him down as she's allergic to junk food, and explains that Yamada usually has snacks alone to avoid triggering her allergies. She also states how jealous she is of Yamada's personality and looks, baiting Yamada Yamada by praising her for being a model. This makes Yamada reveal herself and confirms Kobayashi's claims that she likes hearing people praise her. Soon after, Yamada leaves with Kobayashi on her back, while Kyotaro runs to the restroom to tame his dragon. Months later, after summer break, the students prepare for the upcoming cultural festival, and Kyotaro's class is left in charge of working on the haunted house. While Kyotaro thinks of a way to bail on doing any work, Yamada suddenly approaches him, asking if he can help with the decorations since he did a good job at designing his presentation. After he hesitantly agrees, Kyotaro assists Hara by advising her on how to make the design scarier, but gets distracted by her massive twin cannons. Suddenly, Yamada jumps out of nowhere and scares Kyotaro while Kobayashi tells her she's not scary enough. As Hara finishes up, she says that she's jealous of Yamada's banging figure and leaves to empty the bucket. Just then, Yamada notices a gravestone drawing with her family's last name written on it, which upsets her, and Kyotaro wonders if Hara wrote it because she has a vendetta against Yamada. Without wasting any time, Sho grabs Kyotaro and asks if he wrote it. To avoid a conflict between both girls, Kyotaro admits he did it, and Sho threatens to beat Kyotaro up to impress Yamada, but fortunately Hara arrives in time to tell the class she wrote it, then apologizes before erasing the names. While Kyotaro helps Hara erase them, Yamada huddles near him and apologizes while Kobayashi tells her to come over and practice her haunted house routine. To make the design appear realistic, Kyotaro writes his family's name on the gravestone and heads to one of the stalls to wash his hands. While there, he wonders what Yamada meant by her apology, and suddenly, Yamada startles him as she pops out of thin air, asking if she'd be scarier if she was bloody. She starts messing with the paint, so Kyotaro shows her how to make the paint look more like actual blood, and Kyotaro almost sneezes with the head in his pants when she leans closer to him, causing him to leave in a hurry. Some days later, the culture festival begins, and just as Kyotaro plans to hide away from all activities, he spots Haruya, who invites Yamada and her friends to walk around the festival with him, which makes Kyotaro panic. Although Kyotaro has beef with Haruya, he recognizes that Haruya isn't all bad since he helped retrieve his bike from the river. While tailing them, Kyotaro runs into Yamada, and she suggests they check out one of the exhibits that highlights their town. They head into the room and find a map on the ground. Just then, Yamada locates her house on the map and Kyotaro learns he lives close to her, which makes him flustered. Following this, he asks if he can take a picture, and Yamada takes his phone so they can shoot a selfie. This makes him feel weird since he wanted to take a photograph of the map, but he takes the win as this may be the virgin's last chance to take a picture with a hottie. The following day at school, Kyotaro visits the school nurse because he had a headache during the school's marathon race and spots a pair of sneakers with Yamada written on them, which makes him freak out. However, he assumes it belongs to another Yamada in the senior class, but he's shocked to see her lying in the next bed. While he stares at her, fantasizing about the different yoga poses he can try with her, she notices him. However, she claims that it's okay if he stares at her since he's not a stranger. While they talk, he learns Yamada visited the office because she's having stomach problems, and he explains that he's having a headache, so the human candy jar pulls out a ton of candy from her pocket and hands him a pill for his pain. He then finds a cup to take the pills and notices that Yamada had used it earlier, which makes him nervous. However, he braces himself as if it is his only option and struggles to take the medicine, but forcefully swallows the pill when Yamada startles him. As Yamada leaves for class, Kyotaro notices that she left her gym clothes behind and fights his demons, telling him to get freaky with it. Just then, the nurse returns, getting annoyed that Yamada left candy all over the place and throws Yamada's clothes on Kyotaro, telling him to return those to her. He then accepts the gift from the heavens and tests if he has a kink for smells. After this, Kyotaro attempts to return Yamada's clothes and sees her rushing back to the nurse's office to secure her candy. Later on, Kyotaro returns to class to continue working on his novel, and overhears Sho suggesting that they play a game, asking the girls if they have late-night solo DJ sessions, which triggers Kyotaro. Immediately, he approaches the girls and they give him a cold look, so he changes tactics, asking to see how short their nails are, and assumes that they all nurture their beans since they're all short. Shortly after, Sho hands Kyotaro a letter to give to Yamada, which he assumes contains a dirty message, and since he doesn't want to get into trouble with the girls, he hands Yamada his drawing of his female protagonist instead. Kyotaro then leaves the room to look at Sho's letter, where he discovers he just wanted Yamada's line address. Following this, he returns to class and hears Sho conjure a new dirty plan for the girls, suggesting that they stretch out their fists, and however the girls position their hands around it shows how freaky she is in the sheets. They proceed with the scheme, but the girls catch onto it and avoid interacting with his fist directly. However, they still develop assumptions about their favorite yoga positions. After this, Kyotaro returns to the library and questions Sho's adult personality test. Just then, Yamada enters the room and notices someone has eaten her chips, so grabs Kyotaro's hand and realizes he didn't eat them. On the other hand, Kyotaro is shocked by Yamada's gesture since, according to the test, it means that she likes to dominate during late-night battles, which makes his natural carrot active. Later on at basketball practice, Kyotaro realizes he's straying from his original goal of neutralizing Yamada, and can't seem to understand the strange feelings he has for her, as his actions don't match his intentions. While he's lost in thought, he spots Yamada looking at him from afar, and this leads to her getting hurt by a basketball. Even though she gets back on her feet, the coach sends Yamada to the nurse, and Kyotaro's simp instincts kick in as he follows behind them. As he sneaks into the office, Kobayashi decides to get her things from the gym, so Kyotaro hides under the bed and overhears her conversation, while Yamada calls her mother in tears since the photo shoot she has the next day is ruined. Just then, Yamada drops her wallet, and Kyotaro notices Yamada has kept his drawing in it. This triggers Kyotaro to recount all his meetups with Yamada and makes him realize he wants to do the dirty dance with her. After this, Kyotaro returns to class and overhears Sho telling his friends he has samples of Yamada's bloody tissues. This makes him mad, but before he can react, he notices he has blood marks on his shirt, and this makes him pipe down. The following day, Yamada shows up with a bandage on her nose, and everyone she meets asks what happened to it, turning her into a broken record as she keeps repeating that she got hit with a basketball. To solve this, Kobayashi writes the reason for her accident on her bandage, and Yamada tells her friends she was worried that her nose would be crooked forever. Also, she feels her manager and parents would have been disappointed in her, which makes her feel sad. Following this, Kyotaro runs into Yamada crying at the school's stairwell and notices that she ran out of tissues. So, Kyotaro returns to the library and leaves enough tissues to mummify a town on the tables for Yamada. Then he hides behind the bookshelf and watches Yamada use the tissues while eating chips, feeling happy that she's back to her usual self. Some days later, Kyotaro questions what it means to like someone as he makes his way to school, and he tries to deny the fact that he has a crush on Yamada, saying that it's more of a not hate her kind of like. He then concludes that love is just a mental illness that leads to bad decisions and decides to be the king of the singles. Later during lunch, he notices Rin staring at Yamada and sees that Yamada is stashing away a milk carton, so he assumes she wants to feed some lost puppies. However, he finds that she intends to make a new meal with it, which gets on his nerves, since she could just get a simple snack that doesn't need alchemy to prepare. When she attempts to pour the snack into the milk carton, he jumps out of hiding to stop and tells Yamada to get a bowl from the home economics lab. She then treats him like a dog, telling him to fetch it for her, and the simp moves faster than Mac 10 to do so, but Yamada explains that she was kidding. While they head out to get a bowl, Haro tells Yamada he's noticed that she loves eating snacks she has to make, and she replies that she's on a cooking kick, which makes him realize that she's unfamiliar with intelligence since she thinks mixing snacks is cooking. The two find that the home economics room is locked, so he suggests they use the science lab instead, and after they sneak into the lab, he starts preparing the snack like he's building an atomic bomb. After this, he hands her a sample to taste, and she uses his hand as a spoon to taste it, which makes him blush. As she gulps the snack, a teacher stumbles upon them, and this startles her, causing her to spill the goo all over herself, which gives the teacher a wrong idea of what's happening. As punishment, they are put on cleaning duty, and while serving their time, Rin walks up to Yamada to talk to her, but this makes her drop her rag out the window. She then heads outside with Kobayashi to retrieve it, while Sakina tells her to stop putting off apologizing to Yamada for hitting her with the ball, and this causes Rin to crash out. Later in the library, Kyotaro spots Rin looking at Yamada while she's eating, and figures that she's trying to find the right time to apologize. So he decides to give them some space, but Yamada suddenly stops him to show him some filters she finds funny, and asks him to take photos with her, but Kyotaro refuses, as he doesn't want to get in Rin's way. He rushes out of the library, and Sakina grabs him so they can spy on the two. Just then, Yamada asks Rin to take a photo with her, and she accepts without a second thought. Afterward, Yamada comments that she would make funnier faces if her nose wasn't injured, and this makes Rin feel guilty, so she apologizes for throwing the basketball at her. However, Yamada doesn't even know she did it, which shocks Kyotaro, and after assuring her she's not angry, Yamada offers to give her candy as a sign of peace, dropping some candy wrappers on the ground, and Sakina suddenly shows up to help her pick them up. After this, Yamada heads back to class, and Sakina tells Rin that she was worried for nothing and apologizes for pushing her so much. After school, while Kyotaro heads home, he bumps into Yamada, who notices Kyotaro has got a new bike, and asks Kyotaro to take her to a snack shop, while mounting his bike like she wants to have 7 minutes of heaven with it. To bribe him, she gives him the cap of her snack, and the two head on their way. She then asks what school club he belongs to, and he replies that he's in the data processing club, while she says she's in the basketball club. However, she tells him that she's thinking about quitting the club, since she hasn't played in a while and has been forbidden from playing, suggesting that she join the data processing club. Seeing his dead response, she says that he should sound excited, but she doesn't know he's almost getting a heart attack since it's the Virgin's first time being so close to a baddie. Shortly after, Kyotaro notices a police station and starts overreacting, thinking her career would be over if they got caught double riding on his bike, picturing his family and friends being disappointed in him. Before he can tell her to get down, she pulls some Sherlock Holmes-level deductions and clocks that he is a beta male who fears more than chickens, which provokes him to carry on with the ride. Eventually, Kyotaro takes her to her destination, and she rewards him with a treat, which shocks him as it's not trash this time around. As a joke, he hands her his trash this time, and she giggles at this, waving him goodbye. The next day, Kyotaro's teacher informs the class that someone reported that students have been bringing food to the library, reminding them that students cannot bring food there. And their teacher believes Yamada is the one responsible for doing the deed, which she denies. Not believing her, he tells her to meet him in the teacher's office after class. However, she gets off the hook since he is too busy after class. The next day, while Kyotaro's resting at a burger spot, worried that Yamada may not visit the library anymore since she can't eat there, his older sister joins him at the table and complains about being stuck with babysitting him, even though she was the one that dragged him out. While he prays that no one from school sees him there with her, Yamada and her friends suddenly walk in and sit at the table opposite Kyotaro and his sister, making him freak out. He channels his inner bat to eavesdrop on their conversation about getting hit on by boys, and Kyotaro's sister teases him for a bit, resulting in him leaving to buy himself a drink. While he thinks about how unlucky he has been, Yamada rushes to speak with him in the line, asking if the chick is his sister, and Kyotaro shares his grievances about his sister. However, Yamada says she wishes she had an older sister, and she soon realizes she doesn't have her wallet on her. This makes Kyotaro ask her why she got in line, and she tries giving the excuse that she really wanted to go to the restroom. So Kyotaro tells her they're all upstairs, which catches her off guard, so she rushes there. While Kyotaro orders, he realizes she may have wanted to just talk with him, so he gets snacks she said she liked to give her, and bumps into Yamada, who teases him for getting a dessert that she wanted to get. The following day at school, Yamada bumps into Kyotaro at the teacher's office while he is checking for her there, and she asks him to accompany her to see the teacher, since she's scared to go alone, which he agrees to. When they walk in, the teacher is surprised to see him with her, and he explains that he's just there to observe. Just then, the teacher starts tearing into Yamada for having snacks in the library, and Kyotaro uses only 2 brain cells to help Yamada get out of trouble. When he tries walking away quickly, the teacher stops him and he thinks they're done for, but the teacher claims he's impressed by how talkative he is. While they head back to class, Yamada presents Kyotaro with 2 candy options, and after he chooses one, she says he's such a kid, and tells him to refer to her by her first name, which makes the butterflies in his tummy go haywire. Some days later, Kyotaro becomes restless in class since it's time for them to participate in a workplace visit, and their teacher tells them to form a group of 6 students with similar interests. While he thinks of a group to join, Sho lets Kyotaro join his group and suddenly agrees with Kanzaki to disband the group, since Hara and Yamada's groups need 2 people each, which triggers Kyotaro. They proceed to approach Sakine and ask her for approval, but she sees through his scheme, then holds a draft to choose between the 4 of them, which makes Kyotaro nervous as he really wants to be in the same group as Yamada. After discussing things, they choose Kanzaki, and Yamada picks up on Kanzaki's disappointment, so she immediately persuades the girls to let him decide if he'd like to join their groups. Kyotaro then notices that he's struggling to say what he wants, so he comes up with the logic that he should join Hara's group since they all have similar grades. While they split the group based on grades, Kyotaro almost ends up separated from Yamada, so he lies about being as smart as Light Yagami, so he can join the half-a-brain cell group, and Sho also ends up joining Sakine's group. However, Yamada knows that Kyotaro was lying to join their group, and he is shocked that she figured it out. Later at the library, while Kyotaro hides to stalk Yamada like a Nat Geo wild cameraman in the rainforest, he spots Hara waiting there, and Yamada soon walks in to join her. Immediately she takes her seat. Yamada invites Hara to have some snacks, but she says she just wants to discuss with Yamada, and the 2 of them talk about Kanzaki and Hara's relationship status. Hearing this, Kyotaro is baffled that Kanzaki's making progress despite Kanzaki being a cultured mind like Sho, and meanwhile, Hare says she wanted some advice from Yamada since she thinks she has a boyfriend. In response, Yamada says she doesn't have a boyfriend, which stops Kyotaro's head from exploding from anxiety, and she takes minor offense to Hara's follow-up responses, saying that she doesn't need to be a player to coach someone. Yamada then gives her some advice on things they can do as a couple, while Kyotaro enjoys his time as a human CCTV camera, seeing such a cute scene, and Hara ends up taking a selfie together that exposes Kyotaro's position. Following this, Hara and Yamada confront Kyotaro, but Hara's okay with Kyotaro eavesdropping, since no one would know her secret since he doesn't even have imaginary friends, and this stings him a bit. After school, Kyotaro realizes it's raining, which he figures is a perfect excuse for a guy to walk home with his crush under the same umbrella, and sees that people are actually walking home together with umbrellas as he predicted. Just then, Yamada meets him and notices he's wearing a raincoat, so she asks him if she can borrow it to visit a store to buy an umbrella for herself, since she says she forgot to hold her umbrella to school. So Kyotaro gives Yamada his raincoat, and she leaves for the store, but he notices Yamada left her bag with her charge card inside. So he catches up with her and tells her she left her charge card inside it, and she extends her arms over Kyotaro to protect him from the rain, asking him to take it out of her bag. While searching through the bag, he discovers an umbrella inside her bag, but Yamada says it's broken and he finds her wallet, so she tells him to put it in her pockets, which he struggles to do while fighting his trouser carrot from getting blood. After Yamada leaves, he tests out the umbrella, only to find that it is working fine, and he gets the impression that she has the hots for him. But Yamada returns with a new umbrella and bag of snacks, which makes him think she just wanted a snack instead. Just then, she asks him if he likes or hates mint chocolate, and he says he doesn't care, which surprises her, and she asks him to guess if she loves it. As he delays answering the question, she says she just wants to test his reaction time, and hands him a chocolate bar. When he looks into her eyes, he realizes that he has fallen so hard for her that oil could be found at the bottom of the hole the fall had created. The next day, Yamada, Kyotaro, and their group arrive at Akita Publishing Company, and Sakina flaunts her manga knowledge in front of the others, while Kyotaro is worried things won't turn out well for their group. They introduce themselves to the front desk, and then follow someone into an office full of workers. While they look around, Sho tries to find something to discuss with Yamada, and seems to be failing, but after she spots a fellow model's art piece in the office, this gives Sho a chance to talk with her about a common topic they both know. However, Sho couldn't repress his cultured genes, remarking female natural flotation devices, and this ruins his chances. After this, the group splits as one group follows a guide woman elsewhere, leaving Kobayashi, Kyotaro, and Yamada behind. Someone then comes out to show Shoi's group some original artwork, and Kyotaro desperately wants to see it but doesn't want to leave Yamada behind. Just then, Yamada notices this, so she grabs his hand and takes him to Adachi's group, clearing a path for him to see the artwork. Seeing this makes him really happy, and he voices out his excitement. which leaves all of them in shock. After they're done, they head into an elevator on their way out, and a man rushes inside pushing the crew, which causes Yamada to get into a position that could lead to them bumping hardware, so Kyotaro decides to close his eyes to resist any temptation. When he opens his eyes at the end of the ride, he notices that she's staring into his soul, so he calls out to her, and this snaps her back to reality. While heading to the train station, Yamada asks Kyotaro if he reads a lot of manga, and he name drops a few, but Yamada says she reads more of rom-coms, recommending one for him. However, Kobayashi remarks that lacks the brains to understand novels like that as a joke, and Kyotaro decides to head to the restroom while Yamada waits for him. After this, Kyotaro realizes Yamada and himself have been separated from the group and missed their train, which makes them panic. Kyotaro feels excited to be stuck alone with Yamada, but tries to hide his excitement and suggests that they take a seat at the station until the next train arrives, but then he becomes shocked to see Yamada become a human waterfall. To calm Yamada down, Kyotaro buys her some milk tea and tells her that he's to blame for spending so much time in the bathroom, which got them split up from the group. While talking, she had a funny thought about him, and her mood became better. After getting on the train, Yamada holds him close so they don't get separated again, and the two discuss their relationship. Yamada feels excited as she thinks Hara would soon be Kanzaki's girlfriend, and says that the best relationships are secretive ones, asking Kyotaro if he agrees, which makes him nervous. Later on, the two reunite with the others, and before Yamada can apologize for getting lost, Kobayashi says she's sorry for leaving Yamada behind, since she's the group leader. The following morning, Kyotaro kept blabbing about what happened on the trip to his family, and his sister pointed out that he told the story the previous night already, but he explains that he told just his mom and wanted to tell her too. Just then, he jumps up to head to school, and Kyotaro's sister says that he's been having more fun at school lately before he leaves. While on his way to school, he realizes his sister's words were true, noting that it may be because he likes Yamada, but he refuses to let it get to his head since he has trust issues. Shortly after, he bumps into Yamada at the school gate, and she gives him a few manga volumes. After they chat for a while, she tells Kyotaro she'll be leaving early from school that day. That's why she wants to give it to him, and the dummy is blind too, as he doesn't realize she was waiting for him, telling her to get back to the gate so she doesn't miss who she was waiting for. Later at the library, Kyotaro assumes that Yamada tends to leave early or stay home from school for work reasons while reading his favorite murder book, and Yamada unexpectedly arrives, noting that she had never seen him sit so often when she was around. Seeing the book in his hand, she asks if they could read it together and gets into a struggle, leading to Yamada testing if her air balloons could wrap his face. Feeling embarrassed, Kyotaro asks Yamada if she'll be in school tomorrow, as he's now anticipating seeing her every day, and although he feels it's a weird question, she happily says she'll surely be attending school before leaving. Later at the house, Kyotaro then realizes he's enjoying school while reading the manga she gave him, and his intrusive thoughts win as he tries figuring out what position she reads it in. The next day at school, Yamada rushes to meet Kyotaro and so spots them talking casually about manga. Afterward, he meets with Kyotaro and asks him about his close connection with her, making Kyotaro think he wants to pick on him. However, he just wants to know if Yamada has a boyfriend, since he assumes Kyotaro is close enough to her to have such info, and warns him not to let anyone know he asked about it. In response, Kyotaro tells Sho he doesn't know, and Sho admits that he likes Yamada. When Kyotaro asks why he likes her, he lets his cultured spirit take over, saying that he can only oil his wand to Yamada, adding that she has more buns than a bakery and that he would love to be choked by her thick thighs, which makes Kyotaro feel uncomfortable. After hearing this, Kyotaro heads back to class, questioning if his feelings for Yamada are real or if he just wants to do the hip dance with her, and then takes his seat while she's on his table. Just then, he spots her thighs, making him blush, and he feels gross when Sho gives him a nod of approval. Later on, he finds Yamada startled in the library because someone posted a warning not to eat there, giving them the idea that someone must have ratted her out, so he starts narrowing down people who know Yamada eats in the library. But Yamada says it's best to ask the librarian about the sign. When they ask her, she shows Yamada and Kyotaro a honey drop wrapper she found in the library, and says that it's best to have a sign in there since most people tend not to follow the rules unless they see it written for them. Following this, Kyotaro returns to the library with Yamada, who looks very sad about the recent development, and Kyotaro is worried that Yamada won't stop by anymore now that she's lost a reason to be there. Suddenly, Yamada pulls out chocolates and says she'll continue to eat here despite the sign, but Kyotaro says it's not safe to do so. Just then, he spots the librarian and grabs Yamada's hand to avoid the librarian finding out about Yamada's chocolates. Afterward, Kyotaro realizes the chocolate melted in Yamada's hands and tells him to go away while she licks it off her hand. Before leaving, Kyotaro tells Yamada it might be best for her to lay off the snacks, and he feels it's best if things end this way, even though he feels devastated. The following, Kyotaro returns to the library and he is surprised to see Yamada, who says she's working on homework. However, he spots chocolate underneath her notebook. In her defense, Yamada promises she's laid off on a third of her snacks, which makes Kyotaro realize she would never change. Then asks Yamada who'd think about throwing food away in the library, and she brings up the moment when she gave Kyotaro a bag of chips when they first met in the library. However, Kyotaro says he never threw it away, and Yamada asks what he did with the bag, but he refused to answer. Some days later, while Kyotaro takes his stalking career to the next level, He discovers that Yamada on a television show called Columbus Gakuen Kyotaro turns on his TV that airs that day every week, so he rushes down to watch it, but realizes he's missed it, which makes him sad. The following day, on his way to school, Kyotaro tells himself he likes Yamada but thinks he's okay with things staying the same between them. Later on, during PE class, the students start running their marathons, and Kyotaro realizes Yamada is catching up to him. To retain the little aura that he has, he picks up the pace while Yamada struggles to keep up. Just then, he slows down to get a better view of Yamada's chest jellos, and he tells her she has her shirt on the wrong way, so she flips it around, and the physics of bouncy castles sends signals to his wand. This makes Kyotaro run out of breath, so he slows down some more, and Yamada notices Kyotaro's right eye for the first time, which makes him shy. After running, Kyotaro helps Yamada off the ground. Later on, the virgin researches holding hands, but stops himself from viewing the results because he doesn't want his urge to get dirty with her to go wild. Later in class, Kyotaro realizes he has Yamada's marathon vest and spots his vest around her waist. This makes him think about what the others would say if they discovered Yamada had his shirt, and to make matters worse, she puts his vest on during class while their teacher calls Sho to solve a question. Knowing that Sho would surely look at Yamada's balloons where the name is written, he asks his teacher if he can solve the question on the board, and he allows it. Kyotaro then tries alerting Yamada that she's wearing his vest, but she thinks he's just being confident about getting the question. Seeing this, Sho asks Kyotaro why he's posing like All Might, while his teacher tells him he got the question wrong. Kyotaro then returns to his desk, looking like a wet dog, and he still feels worried that they may spot his shirt on her. After she manages not to get caught with his vest, Yamada asks Kyotaro to visit the nurse's office with her, and returns Kyotaro's sports outfit to him. After they chat for a while, Kyotaro wonders when she noticed they were swapped, and Yamada suggests they check their heights. However, she keeps shoving her balloons in his face, which makes him excited in his trousers, so he suggests she check her height first. After doing this, he refuses to let her check his height, and this results in the two squabbling, eventually leading to Yamada landing on the weight scale. They get into another argument, this time about Yamada's weight, but Kyotaro denies seeing. Later in class, Kyotaro overhears everyone discussing Yamada's role in an upcoming film she's shooting the next day, and Kyotaro notices that Yamada is not showing as much enthusiasm about it as the others. He wonders if she's feeling sorrowful for lower-level folks like him, since she's climbing up the social ladder and thinks she's just a nice person. Just then, the teacher enters the room and announces that they'll be switching seating positions and asks the class to pick a piece of paper from a box to know their new positions. At the end of it all, Sho sits next to Yamada, and Kyotaro is behind them but next to Hara. Although he's sad that he couldn't sit next to Yamada, he believes this will go well for him. But as the day goes by, he realizes it's not all good since Yamada is making it hard for him to copy notes on the board. Yamada then looks behind her and thinks Kyotaro's checking her out. Later on, Kyotaro ruins Sho's chances of getting close to Yamada, and he tries leaning to the left to see the board, but winds up resting his head on Hera's shoulder. Seeing he's struggling, Hera tells Kyotaro to copy her notes and moves her desk next to his. Just then, Kyotaro looks at Yamada, who gives him a nasty glance in return and says that he's being partial. After the lecture, Kyotaro notices Yamada in a sour mood and wonders why, until Yamada says he must be happy sitting next to Hara since she's nice and cute. In response, Kyotaro tells Yamada that all he sees is her, and before he can tell her, she makes it difficult to see the board. He realizes what he just said, which makes him feel shy. Later at the library, Kyotaro explains what he meant by his words and says that it's taken care of now, since he's now sitting at the front with Sho while Yamada sits with Hara behind them. Kyotaro then asks Yamada about her role in movies, and Yamada becomes excited, sharing her iconic line from the role. Hearing her say the lines to him feels like she's attacking him, since it involves creeps, and he notices a group of girls gossiping about them. So he asks Yamada if they can go to a less crowded area, and the two enter a small room. Yamada then asks Kyotaro if he'll see her movie when it releases, and Kyotaro is unsure if he will. After Yamada convinces him, Kyotaro says he'll try to see it, and this makes her smile, telling Kyotaro that she no longer needs to practice. Later that night, Kyotaro makes an effort to watch the show he missed the week before and spots Yamada. Kyotaro notices the host doesn't give Yamada a chance to shine, but he feels relieved she didn't get an opportunity. Kyotaro is upset that he feels this way and arrives at school the following day with plans not to bring it up to her. However, he overhears Yamada asking Kobayashi and the others to share their thoughts about the program. Kyotaro's surprised that Yamada's this enthusiastic about her lackluster role. Yamada hands Sakini her co-star's autograph, but Sakina realizes it's a forgery. The episode concludes with Yamada and her friends laughing about the situation. The following day, while the girls goof around, Yamada feels lonely as Kobayashi isn't around, so she decides to sit on Moeko's laps, and she decides to use Yamada's balloons as stress balls, which throws Yamada off while Kyotaro tries to calm his dragon. After Yamada says that she has restricted zones on her body, she draws a layout of herself, marking out the zones and warns that no one should touch those zones. After this, Sho decides to clean the board, but Kyotaro quickly volunteers to help him with the intention of memorizing the diagram. The next day in class, Kobayashi complains to Yamada about meeting up with school and club activities, while Yamada brags about her above-average grades and work stress, which annoys Kobayashi. To solve her problems, Kobayashi decides to meet Kyotaro for help with her math homework, and Yamada gets jealous as Kyotaro never tutored her. Kobayashi then tells Yamada that parent-teacher conferences are coming up and says that Yamada should consider studying harder, and boasts that she'll definitely score higher than her on their upcoming test. While they talk, Kobayashi recognizes Kyotaro's mathematical knowledge and says she knows he's part of the school's data processing club, telling him that Yamada told her, which makes her freak out. She also says that she's been talking about him a lot lately, and Yamada says she likes to talk about many people, while Kyotaro thinks Yamada brings him up in conversations to belittle him. Following this, Kobayashi admits Yamada can be weird at times and gives an example involving her using ice cream to get some whipped cream off her face, which makes him giggle. This makes Kobayashi surprised as he hardly laughs or talks to girls normally, but Yamada defends him, claiming that he is actually normal. While on his way to meet his mom, Kyotaro notices Sho getting scolded by his mother, and he gets worried about his appointment with his mother and teacher. Soon after, he sees Yamada and her mother sitting next to his mother. Just then, Yamada overhears Kyotaro's mother talking about him and realizes who she is. Immediately, Yamada becomes happy and nervous to discuss things with Kyotaro's mother, and his mom tells her that Kyotaro's been telling her that he's been liking school a lot lately. While they talk, Kyotaro's mother gives Yamada a throat lozenge, and Yamada hands her a piece of candy from her pocket at the same time. After their conference, Kyotaro doesn't want anyone spotting him with his mother, so he tries increasing the pace he's walking, while his mother expresses pride in him for participating more in classes. She then says she exchanged candies with a stunning girl and unknown to them. Yamada trails behind them. His mother then asks him if she knows who he's talking about, and Kyotaro says it's Yamada, turning her face into a strawberry. As they spot her, Kyotaro almost gets a heart attack while Yamada walks past them, and is just as embarrassed as Kyotaro. The next day, Yamada tells Kyotaro about her encounter with his mother, and after asking him embarrassing questions about his mother, Kyotaro reminds Yamada about her homework. So Yamada says Kobayashi's been taking extra lessons at home and asks Kyotaro if he could tutor her. Without a second thought, Kyotaro accepts, and the school's librarian greets them. Suddenly, Kyotaro begins to panic because he spots Yamada's lozenge on the table and doesn't want the librarian to discover food in the library. He tries to alert her by whispering in her ear, but this ends up warming her oven, which surprises him. However, he successfully hides the sweet. After this, Yamada updates the area 51 zones of her body, and Kyotaro realizes he did something that triggered her. Later, Kyotaro rides home in the rain and spots Yamada with an umbrella, telling her he forgot his raincoat, so Yamada places a bag on his head. Just then, Kyotaro tells Yamada that he doesn't want the bag, so she puts her belongings in his bike's basket, then sits on his bike's backseat, planning to protect him from the rain with her umbrella. However, Kyotaro says it could be dangerous for him to ride with her on his bike in the rain, and she agrees to let him ride home alone. Soon after Kyotaro reaches his home, he notices Yamada's belongings in his basket and rushes to the station to give her stuff to her. Seeing how worried he looked, she tells him he shouldn't have panicked so much and asks if he's okay since he sneezed, but he brushes it off, telling her to get home on time to do her homework. After this, Kyotaro returns home and resumes his unauthorized private investigator lifestyle, looking through Yamada's Instagram profile. Just then, he spots a picture of her holding 2 pieces of food and wonders if she's seeing someone because of the specific items he found in Yamada's belongings before he returned them. While doing this, he suddenly falls asleep and has a weird dream where Yamada pulls a Godasala on him. Soon after Kyotaro wakes up, he learns he has a fever and decides to watch television, wondering why the fever dream he had wasn't at least heated. Just then, Kyotaro hears his doorbell and learns Yamada's waiting outside. He rushes out to speak with her and she hands him some food they received at school today, apologizing for stopping him in the rain the day before. However, Kyotaro tells her not to worry about it, and before Yamada leaves, Kyotaro asks her to come inside for some tea. When she walks in the house, Yamada asks if anyone's home since it's so quiet, and Kyotaro says his mother works part-time. While Kyotaro prepares tea for Yamada, he notices he's not wearing proper clothing, so he excuses himself to his room, but faints before he can put something on. After a while, Yamada notices the tea is finished, but worries about Kyotaro's health, so she heads to his room, only to find him lying on the ground. Immediately, Yamada helps him into his bed and dresses him up in warm clothes. Meanwhile, Kyotaro wonders if he's dreaming, and decides to use her natural pillows to support his head, which gives her the green light to bury him in them. Later at night, Kyotaro wakes up and sees his sister looming over him. His sister shows him the cream Yamada gave him before Kyotaro invited her inside, and she hands Kyotaro Yamada's note, which tells him to get well soon. Some days later, Kyotaro overcomes his fever, and his mother tells him she spotted Yamada the day before and she asked after him, which makes him happy. While he heads to school, Kyotaro bumps into Yamada and learns she's having throat issues. However, she's more concerned about him, asking if he's feeling better and remembers anything from yesterday. Before he can respond, Kobayashi bumps into them and learns of Yamada's cold, while Yamada stares at Kyotaro as he walks away. Some days later, while in the library, Yamada asks Kyotaro if he uses line to text, and while they discuss, Yamada asks Kyotaro if the data processing club has a line group chat, but Kyotaro doesn't know nor plan to ask his club if he can join it, irritating Yamada. Later in class, Sakina informs her friends that she would love to get a boyfriend before Christmas, and says she plans to lend her line ID to all the boys in class. Yamada then thinks her plan's brilliant and proceeds to chat with Kyotaro. However, Sakina interferes in their conversation and asks Kyotaro for his line ID. They exchange IDs, angering Yamada, and Sakina says she should exchange IDs with a higher-ranked guy, bringing up the track team's ace. Hearing this, Yamada tells the others they live in the same apartment complex, and Sakina pressures her more to get his line ID, even though Kobayashi knows Sakina wants it for herself. Although Kyotaro doesn't want to stop Yamada from getting Ishimura's ID, he can't help but feel jealous, and after recalling their conversation in the library, Kyotaro freaks out in class as he realizes Yamada was trying to get his line ID. This convinces Yamada not to exchange her line with the dude. Meanwhile, Sho approaches Kyotaro and mocks him for having his sister as a line contact. After school, Kyotaro continues reading the manga Yamada lent to him, and he questions if Yamada was trying to lend him her line ID in the library that day, and wonders if he has a legit shot with Yamada, but doesn't want to give himself hope. The following day, Kyotaro spots Yamada chatting with Haruya in school, and sees he's making moves on Yamada by convincing Kobayashi to come to his place to play a new video game. He then says that Yamada's welcome to stop by if she wants, and afterward Yamada tells Kobayashi she's not going to Haruya's place. Hearing this, Kobayashi says she'll visit his place with Sakina instead, and Yamada tells her she should reconsider going, but doesn't explain why. Meanwhile, Kyotaro knows it's because Yamada doesn't want to tell Kobayashi that Haruya invited her as bait to get Yamada to go, and Yamada says she doesn't trust Haruya, but Kobayashi insists on going, which upsets her. Later on, Kyotaro spots Yamada crying in the library, and immediately she sees him. Her mood switches up. While they talk, she asks Kyotaro if he plays video games, and he says he likes playing his Switch. Yamada then tells him how much of a gamer her father is, and they get interrupted when the girl who hung out with Haruya arrives in the library with her friend. Immediately, Kyotaro leaves the table for a minute, and the girl apologizes for Haruya's behavior. The girls butter Yamada up, saying she probably has a boyfriend, but Yamada looks at Kyotaro and repeatedly tells the girls she doesn't have one. Suddenly, she turns to Kyotaro and promises she doesn't. This makes them figure that she has a thing for Kyotaro, and they quickly leave the library. Meanwhile, Kyotaro is confused about everything, but tells Yamada she shouldn't hang around him when others are present. Yamada suddenly gets closer to Kyotaro when she notices Haruya and the girl walk into the library. When Haruya sees Yamada sticking to Kyotaro like super glue, he angrily leaves the library, and Yamada apologizes to Kyotaro, who is baffled by what happened. After this, Kyotaro walks through the halls and overhears Sakina telling Kobayashi the harsh truth about Haruya's willingness to invite her to his home. Kobayashi then plays it off like she knew that was his intention, while Kyotaro spies on them all. After class, Kobayashi approaches Yamada, telling her she's not going to Haruya's place, which makes Yamada happy, and the two venture out somewhere. Meanwhile, Kyotaro spots Haruya but doesn't engage with him, and he wonders if Haruya thinks he and Yamada are dating. He also wonders if Yamada used him as bait to lure Haruya, and he feels Yamada has been using him this whole time to get closer to her. The following day in class, while Kyotaro reads his murder book, Yamada walks past him and he decides to ignore her. She also notes that he doesn't visit the library anymore, nor does he care. After he continues to avoid her, Yamada then approaches Kyotaro in the school hallway and asks him if he's mad at her for being too close to him. However, Kyotaro says he's got places to be, but hears Yamada crying, and he realizes Yamada isn't the type of person to use people, questioning if his mind just wanted to give him an excuse to hate her. Kyotaro then tells Yamada he isn't mad at her, and the two hug it out before heading home together. They talk for a while, and before Kyotaro goes on his separate path, Yamada stops him because she wants to chat with him more. After discussing Kyotaro's planned trip, he returns Yamada's manga to her and shares his favorite moment, so she plans to bring him the next book on Monday. However, Monday arrives, but Yamada forgets her book, and promises she would bring the next volume tomorrow, but Kyotaro reminds her that winter break starts tomorrow. So she suggests they plan to meet up during the break, and Yamada finally exchanges line IDs with Kyotaro. Some days later, as Kyotaro waits for Yamada to arrive in Hachiko to receive the next manga volume from her, he notices Yamada standing around and approaches her. Just then, Yamada asks Kyotaro to follow her to a place in the city, and as they walk, Kyotaro removes his hood with his mask to avoid looking creepy while Yamada tells Kyotaro to hold onto her bag so they won't get lost. After a while, they arrive at an eatery because Yamada wants to eat the place's pancakes. And while in line, Yamada discusses some dating myths with Kyotaro about amusement parks and waiting in line. As they chat, Kyotaro asks Yamada about how she did her hair, and she says her mother did it for her, claiming that her mother is only strict when they are out in public. She goes further to say that her mother is kind at home, and likes calling her Chan, which Kyotaro finds cute. At their table, Kyotaro notices how expensive everything is and orders cheap meals. When the waitress leaves, Yamada notices Kyotaro loves wearing dark clothes, and she admits she likes wearing dark clothing too, which Kyotaro says must look great on her, because she'd probably make it look stylish and cool. Later on, Kyotaro contemplates his day with Yamada so far, while she explains how her stylist has the same sentiments. Just then, Kyotaro starts regretting meeting Yamada outside of school, and he feels he can't connect with her on a personal level. Shortly after, the waitress returns with their food, and Yamada asks Kyotaro to take a photo of her eating her meal for her socials. Hearing this, Kyotaro says it would be best to shoot a video, and Yamada agrees. Kyotaro then tells Yamada it might be a bad idea to upload those videos, and she says she's not uploading them because she wants to send them all to him. After this, Yamada and Kyotaro visit a clothing shop, and he says she looks fine in the outfit while feeling bad that he made Yamada pay for their meal. Yamada then finds two dresses, and asks Kyotaro which one he finds cuter. In response, he points toward the pink one and Yamada changes into it in one of the booths. When she's finished dressing up, she exits the booth only to spot Kyotaro attempting to leave because of his thoughts regarding Yamada changing clothes. Seeing this, she tells Kyotaro to wait near the booth, and while waiting, he notices his sister and her friends entering the store. When Yamada finishes putting on the other dress, Kyotaro tells her to keep her voice down because his sister's here. However, Yamada wants to introduce herself, but Kyotaro refuses to let his sister know he's with Yamada. Just then, Kyotaro's sister grabs some shorts and heads for a booth. Meanwhile, Yamada grabs Kyotaro and pulls him into the booth. Kyotaro then apologizes to Yamada for this, but she says it's okay, and he says Yamada can meet his sister another time. He also tells her the red dress looks great on her, so Yamada plans to buy it. After which, the two leave the store. Later on, Yamada apologizes to Kyotaro for dragging him out to different places, and he notices she might be worried, so he opens up about some aspects of his life to ease her mind. He then tells her he's not a people person and isn't afraid to turn down invitations. However, he said he had fun today, and Yamada wraps her scarf around Kyotaro, telling him she knew he had a blast today. The two stare at some gorgeous lights in the city and visit the train station afterward. While there, Kyotaro asks Yamada for the bag with the manga and grabs it. While on the train, they get into a tight predicament, causing them to split up. Just then, Kyotaro grabs Yamada's hand unknowingly, and they continue to walk home. Shortly after, Kyotaro feels he doesn't know when to stop holding hands with Yamada, and he worries she might realize how he feels about her. For a while, Yamada and Kyotaro reach his home and stop holding hands. Before he heads inside, Yamada tells Kyotaro not to tell her Happy New Year yet, because they have got some days left in December. While Yamada cheerfully plays the role of Santa Claus during the holiday festivities, Kyotaro can't help but watch her from a distance, with a bunch of emotions building quietly within him. Her bright smile only deepens his internal conflict, making him wonder if she knows how he feels about her. As he retreats to the solitude of his room later that night, Kyotaro tries to distract himself by diving into the next volume of Kimi Iro Okta, but the words on the page seem to blur as his mind drifts elsewhere. Lying on his bed, manga still open in his hands, Kyotaro begins to imagine a conversation with an idealized version of himself, a doppelganger shaped by both his own image and that of the romantic protagonist in Kimi Iro Octave. This imagined figure leans casually against the wall and asks the question Kyotaro has been too afraid to say out loud, questioning if he really has a chance with her. Even though he thinks he has a chance since they held hands, doubt quickly creeps in as he thinks Yamada's always kind to everyone. As the night deepens and the house grows quieter, Kyotaro continues to wrestle with uncertainty and replays their conversations in his mind, searching for signs that might hint at something more, but the answers remain just out of reach. Some days later, Kyotaro is at a restaurant with Sakina, Haruya, alongside another baddie, and Haruya asks him what Yamada has been up to while his arm looks injured. Just then, Kyotaro thinks back to when he and his family went on their annual trip to their hometown. After their granny welcomes them, they head to the rooms, and Kyotaro is upset that he's stuck sharing a room with his sister. While they set up their stuff, he remembers that he promised to send a photo of the snowy scenery to Yamada, so he takes one through the window but isn't satisfied with it. This makes him head outside for a better photo, and after wandering in the snowy wilderness, he finally stops by a cliff and tries getting a perfect shot, but ends up like Jack from the Jack and Jill poem, falling down the cliff. Later that evening, his sister finds him in the snow, and when he tries to get up, he notices he's broken his arm. After returning from the hospital and having dinner with his family, Kyotaro decides to send Yamada a photo of him with his broken arm. Later at night, Yamada video calls Kyotaro, and the first thing he sees are her huge chest eyes, making him frustrated since he can't self-care to them. Yamada then asks him about his arm, but he promises it doesn't hurt and says he will head home tomorrow. While they talk, Kyotaro sees his sister spying on him, which shocks him, and he mistakenly ends the call while attempting to cover up his screen. Seeing this, she immediately pesters him about who Yamada is, and he manages to convince her that she's simply a friend from school, hoping she doesn't tease him for it. Surprisingly, his sister doesn't mock him and returns to sleep. Following this, he notices Yamada sent him a message asking him about the situation with his sister, and why he stopped the call. In response, he says that he told his sister that they're friends for now, and this makes Yamada happy. Yamada then asks Kyotaro if she can call him again, making him nervous, so he heads into the hallway to continue his conversation with her. And while they talk, she asks him to perform some tasks that seem to correlate with themes in the manga she's reading. Afterward, they send each other goodnight texts and end the talk for the night. The following day, Kyotaro and his family return to Tokyo, but stop by an antique shop to get some stuff, and his sister suggests they get matching dog keychains. Although he rejects the idea at first, he thinks it'll be a good gift for Yamada, and ends up getting it. On their car ride, his sister asks him questions about Yamada, and he realizes how relatable he is to his sister regarding their thinking patterns of giving up on stuff that may hurt them. Even if his sister may think Yamada is out of Kyotaro's league, he can't get her out of his mind, and while they talk, he tells her Yamada was the girl that left a note for him the time he fell sick, which convinces his sister he may have a shot with Yamada. Just then, his sister starts teasing him about his potential interest in Yamada, and tells him to introduce Yamada to her sometime. When they return home, Kyotaro leaves to give Yamada her manga and scarf back, alongside the keychain he bought for her, but then bumps into her while she's walking her dog to his house, and she explains that she decided to meet him at his house since his injury would prevent him from riding his bike to the spot they planned to meet. After this, they visit a park, and while Yamada shows off the tricks she taught the dog, Kyotaro worries that he bought her a bad gift. Soon after, Yamada asks him to give her dog some commands, but it doesn't obey his orders, and this results in Yamada performing the actions instead. She takes Michael Jackson's lyrics to heart, becoming a smooth criminal as she holds his hand while carrying out his orders and sits beside him. While they talk, she grabs her scarf from Kyotaro's bag since he wants to return it, but she admits she wants him to keep it. So Kyotaro gives her the keychain in exchange for the scarf, and this makes Yamada happier than a person on laughing gas. On the walk back home, Yamada asks Kyotaro if he wants to visit a temple with her on New Year's Eve, and he agrees to go with her, so Yamada plans to text him the details later. Several days later, Kyotaro realizes he's been texting Yamada every day, and when he visits the nearby supermarket, he runs into Haruya, making him freak out. They then force him to hang with them, and Haruya attempts to use Kyotaro to get closer to Yamada, asking if Kyotaro has her line contact, but he says he doesn't. Suddenly, Yamada's name pops up on his phone, and Haruya realizes he is lying about not having her line. Just then, Haruya creates a situation for them to be alone, and sits in front of Kyotaro, demanding Yamada's line from him. However, Kyotaro refuses to hand it over and says he doesn't feel like giving it to him when Haruya asks why he's gatekeeping Yamada's contact. Seeing the tension build up, Sakine steps in and asks Kyotaro to walk her home. Although Haruya says he can walk Sakine home, Sakine says she trusts Kyotaro and says they're friends, which surprises Kyotaro. While walking home together, Sakine advises Kyotaro to be more honest with Haruya about Yamada, but he says he doesn't want him to get the wrong idea about them, and finally grows the balls to say out loud that he likes Yamada. However, Sakine says that it's obvious to everyone around, and while she heads into her apartment, he thanks her for standing up for him, but she ruins the moment by teasing him, making him hurry away from her. Just then, he decides to call Yamada since he misses her, and she admits that she's surprised he called. He says he just wants to wish her a happy new year, and quickly ends the call when he hears Sakine on the line. Next morning, Haro visits the New Year temple event with his family, and he plans to make up an excuse for his family to leave somewhere so he can meet up with Yamada in an hour. Unfortunately, his mother spots Yamada waiting for him, surprising him, and his sister tells him to say hi to Yamada, but he knows she wants to stand by to watch. Just then, Yamada spots Kyotaro with his family and introduces herself to them. Following this, they head for a temple to make their wishes, and Yamada notices that Kyotaro can't take a prayer posture since his arms are broken, so she gets behind him to help him out, which alerts the dragon in his pants. They head over to Kyotaro's family. Yamada asks Kyotaro about his wish, and although he didn't get a chance to make a wish, he says he wished for things to stay the same, which makes Yamada pout. Afterward, Yamada bids everyone farewell while Kyotaro plots to meet up with her again soon, and his sister praises him for his maturity in the situation. Before they head to another location, his sister grabs Kyotaro and rushes to catch up with Yamada so she can make a better first impression. Soon after, they find her stuffing her face with meatballs, and his sister asks her if she'd like to visit their home, which she immediately accepts. As they walk to their place, Kyotaro's sister realizes Yamada may have bought food for Kyotaro, and thinks he has a solid chance with her. At Kyotaro's home, Haro panics as he notices she has his keychain on, as it's the same as his sister's keychain, and he gets worried that his sister will see it. So he tries grabbing the keychain from Yamada's waist, and his sister thinks Kyotaro's putting the moves on Yamada, which makes him panic. Following this, Kana asks him what she should call Yamada, and Yamada plays along with it to embarrass Kyotaro, but he tells Kana to back off. Just then, Kana shares her yearbook with Yamada, and proceeds to whip out Kyotaro's yearbook. While showing her his old photos, she makes fun of his bland expressions, and Yamada asks if she has photos of Kyotaro at the school outdoor excursion event, but Kana reveals that he didn't go. This creates a tense atmosphere, and suddenly Kana tells them she has to go meet up with friends, but asks Yamada to stay with Kyotaro since they have leftover soup. While she heads out, Kyotaro overhears her conversation with Yamada, as she thanks Yamada for being close friends with Kyotaro, and Yamada asks her if she can call her sister, surprising Kana. After this, Kyotaro plans to put away the albums while Yamada is busy with the dishes, but Yamada follows him to his room, rambling on about how cute and friendly Kana is. Just then, she grabs the album from his hands and asks him about two boys Kyotaro hung out with during his younger years. Kyotaro then explains that they were his former cram school buddies, and that they went to private schools, so he hasn't spoken to them in a while. Seeing he's getting sad, Yamada asks about his trophies and spots his bizarre Crime Files murders book, so he explains what it is to her, expecting her to freak out, but she surprisingly gets very excited and asks Kyotaro if he can read her mind. But Kyotaro says he knows she's not a murderer. While she toys with Kyotaro, she spots a magazine under his sheets, and before she can grab it, Kyotaro stops her, mounting her like she's a sports bike. This makes them shy with Kyotaro, thinking he's messed up his chance with her, and after Yamada pushes him off, she takes some photos of his yearbook before leaving his room. While she heads out, she promises Kyotaro to show him her yearbook, and he realizes that it's her way of inviting him over, but shoves it off. Then, Kyotaro remembers when his application wasn't accepted to the private school his buddies were going to, and how they told him to hang out with them from time to time. He also remembers a time when some of his new classmates spotted him reading his favorite murder book, and how they felt creeped out. Soon after, he wakes up from the dream and chats with his inner self about his fears of getting abandoned because of what he likes, then meets his family outside. Just as his mother drops him off at school, Yamada pops up to meet him, and Kana asks Yamada to look after Kyotaro since this is his first day back after being hurt. As they walk to class, Yamada asks Kyotaro where his keychain is, and as he shows it to her, she helps him strap it onto his shirt. While she does this, he reflects on his past interactions with Yamada, and opens up to her, revealing that he never liked going to school as the thought of being around people felt exhausting. He, however, says that things are now different thanks to her, but she says he should appreciate himself for having the courage to be different instead. Just then, his books fall to the ground, and he thinks about how he used them as armor to protect himself while she picks them up. As she hands them to him, she notices the gloomy look on his face and suddenly hugs him, which surprises him. However, he leans into the hug, and they have a moment together. Soon after, they rush to class as they realize they're running late and soon bump into Sekine in the hallway, who teases them for acting weird. While she leaves them, Yamada hands him an empty shrimp snack bag. As a joke, however, she gives him a spare shrimp candy. Arata is a broke wimp who spent his whole life being a loser. However, everything takes a turn when he suddenly wakes up as a student. Now he will have to redo his life but end up rizzing a shy girl instead. But before all this, one night while he is on his way home, a young, cheerful man appears on the spot and greets Arata. He introduces himself as Ryo and hands Arata a visiting card that says he works for a company named Real Life Laboratory. Ryo reveals that Arata has been selected for an experiment that will last for 1 year. During this, all of his expenses will be covered, and he will be provided with a job once the experiment is successfully over. Ryo pulls out a pill and explains everything about the experiment. The next morning, Arata wakes up groggily and heads straight to the bathroom. There, he casually looks in the mirror, and to his utter shock, he looks like he has become 17 years old again. He rushes back to his bedroom and sees an empty pill box lying on the table. He suddenly remembers what had happened last night, but can't recall when he took the pill since he drank like there is no tomorrow. Eventually, he remembers what Ryo had told him yesterday. He must take this pill every day for the next year and live the life of a high school student. His train of thoughts is interrupted by Ryo, who arrives at the apartment with several boxes worth of school supplies. Ryo then tells Arata that he will be joining a local school for the entire year, so Arata agrees to the experiment and signs a contract with Real Life. A few hours later, Arata arrives at the high school where he has been admitted as a third-year student. He immediately heads back to the last bench so that he doesn't have to interact with all the teenage kids. But then, a girl named Hishiro comes to him and points out that the seats have been assigned by roll number. And embarrassed, Arata finds his desk and eventually gets settled down. Seconds later, he sees that Ryo is also one of the students in the class. Before he can inquire any further, their home teacher, a 25-year-old busty babe named Amatsu, enters the class. She asks all the students to introduce themselves, since it's the first day of college. One by one, the students introduce themselves, but when it's Arata's turn, he completely fluffs his lines and blabbers an awkward introduction. The girl next to him, whose name is Rina, seems to be struggling with common cold and is constantly coughing. There is also another transfer student in the class, a geeky girl named Noya. She approaches Arata and says that they can help each other. Upon hearing this, Arata cannot believe that he can now flirt with high school girls without it actually being illegal. After the introductions, the teacher tells her students to get ready for a test. Arata immediately begins to panic because he wasn't aware of any test. He then looks into his bag and realizes he doesn't even have a pencil. Arata is so embarrassed that he tries to bury his head into his school bag. Unfortunately for him, the teacher sees this and thinks that he is trying to cheat in the exams. Miss Amatsu immediately orders him to hand her his bag for an inspection. As if things weren't bad, she finds a packet of cigarettes in his. Arata, who is a 27-year-old man, doesn't even bat an eye when the teacher asks what a packet of cigarettes is doing in his bag. But seconds later, he realizes that he's in the body of a high school student and profusely apologizes for his mistake. The teacher lets the matter go for the time being but tells Arata to meet her in the office after the classes are over. Thankfully, Cough Machine Rena helps him out by lending him an extra pencil. However, just because he has a pencil now doesn't mean Arata can actually pass the exam. He struggles with high school level mathematics despite actually being a graduate. Once the test is over, Arata thanks Rina for her help. It is then revealed that Rina actually takes her studies seriously and wants to be the best student in the class and starts talking to her. That is why she attended the school despite suffering from a common cold and coughing like a geriatric patient. Later that day, Arata goes to Miss Amatsu's office where she chastises him for smoking at such a young age. Arata promises not to repeat his mistake, but at the same time he is extremely impressed by Amatsu. She is barely 25 years old and has already started a career as a teacher, unlike him who had been living like a delinquent. He compliments her out loud and she thanks him for his kind words. After his scolding, Arata's first day at school finally comes to an end. He heads out, meets Ryo at the school gate, and the two have a conversation. It is revealed that Ryo is required to attend the school along with the test subject of Real Life's experiment. Despite having known each other only for a day, the two men form a friendship. The next day at school, the teacher announces that Oga and Hishiro scored the highest marks in the test. It is also revealed that the test was conducted for selecting the class captains. Meanwhile, Arata has failed in all subjects and managed to score 4 on mathematics despite being a graduate in real life. He notices that rasping Reina is visibly fuming because she could not top the exams. Soon, Uka returns to his bench, and it immediately becomes clear that he has absolutely no control over his mouth. He tries to sympathize with Rina by telling her that she stood third only because of her cold. Rina replies that she doesn't want to hide her failure by making and that she just wants to be as good at studies as Hishiro. But But Uka the Dumbo keeps yapping and doesn't realize that his words are hurting Rina. Arata cringes hard at the topper boy's insensitivity, but he also notices that there is some sort of a spark between Rina and Oga. Shortly afterwards, the teacher announces that those who failed must retake the exams until they score above 50 marks in one attempt. Arata, who had been smiling at the cute romantic moment, quickly slams back to reality. Uka and Rina can't believe a student can even score 4 in mathematics. Uka offers to tutor him so that he doesn't get caught up in this vicious cycle of giving one retake exam after the another. The other transfer student, geeky girl Noya, overhears this and asks to join this tutoring group. She, just like Arata, has also failed all subjects, and even more impressive is that she has scored only 2 marks in mathematics. During the lunch break, Arata, Oga, and Noya decide to eat together. They head to the canteen where Noya directly asks Oga if Rena is his girlfriend. Arata realizes that he is sitting with one person who has no filter. Nonetheless, he joins Noya in teasing Oga about his chemistry with their classmate. Oga firmly denies it, calling Rena just a friend. But Arata and Noya don't believe him and start whispering to each other like a bunch of boomers ogling women in yoga pants in a public park. While they are talking, they notice Hishiro arguing with the canteen staff near the food stalls. Arata confidently goes to find out what is happening and asks Hishiro if she is doing okay. She recognizes him as the student who got 4 marks out of 100 in mathematics. This stings Arata, and he asks Hishiro not to address him that way. She agrees not to do it, then comes up with another name for him, the cigarette guy. Arata realizes that he is reading the Bible to a buffalo and changes the topic by asking her if she is in some kind of trouble. It turns out Hishiro forgot to bring money for lunch and is still hungry. Actually, class monitors get free lunch and other perks, but Hishiro hasn't yet received her silver pin, which indicates she's a monitor. The canteen staff refuse to believe she's a monitor, which led to the argument. Upon hearing this, Arata casually takes out a 100 yen bill and hands it to Hishiro. She initially refuses to take it, and she also deduces that Arata acts like an adult instead of a teenager who is much more stingy with money. But eventually, she accepts, since she has no other option. Then Arata returns to Oga and Noya, and the 3 exchange phone numbers to stay in touch. Later in the evening, Arata heads to the staff room to submit an apology letter for the cigarette incident. As he opens the door, Hishiro comes out and she is deadpan and direct as always. She addresses him as the guy who lent her money, got 4 marks, and keeps cigarettes in his bag. Arata is exasperated by the constant humiliation and asks if she even knows his name. Hishiro genuinely doesn't know his name, which bothers Arata, especially since she's a topper and is supposed to know everything. So he introduces himself again and asks what she was doing in the staff room, because good students are not generally called to the staff room. Hishiro replies that she came to collect her silver pin and discuss something exam-related. Upon hearing this, Arata casually calls her a very serious girl, but he doesn't realize that he has touched a deep insecurity in Hishiro. She responds by asking if he also thinks that she is a boring, serious girl. Arata immediately clarifies that is not what he meant, and even apologizes for offending her. He makes it clear that he said so simply because Hishiro speaks very formally all the time. It turns out she doesn't talk much with others, and doesn't know how to interact properly, which makes her seem strange and distant to many. She has no close friends, which never bothered her, but society sees it as a problem. She tried to change herself, but didn't know where to start. Hishiro then asks Arata if he thinks she is different from others. The dumb dude replies that she is in fact different. Thankfully, he saves it by adding that she can change it by just smiling a bit more. So Hishiro gives a demonstration of her smile, and she looks like she came straight from a murder thriller film. Arata quickly cancels this plan of smiling because if yes, she will end up making more enemies than friends. A devastated Hishiro says if she can't even smile properly, she will always be in trouble in this world. Arata finally shows that he's an adult by saying that there is no need to rush as she still has a lot of time. Using time as an excuse, he starts to leave, but Hishiro hesitantly stops him and asks him for his phone number. He gives her his number and playfully pats her head. Hishiro swats his hand away and tells him not to treat her like a kid. However, she also smiles genuinely and calls Arata an interesting person. Unbeknownst to them, Ryo has been listening to their conversation from nearby. That evening, Arata is in his apartment and is about to smoke a cigarette, but remembers the teacher's warning. At that moment, Ryo calls and openly admits he had heard Arata's conversation with Hishiro that afternoon. He then warns Arata that after 1 year, when real life ends, everyone will have their memories of Arata erased. If Arata tells anyone about real life during this year or afterwards, his memories will also be erased. Once the phone call is over, Arata gets a little sad, but right then he receives a message from Hishiro. They start chatting and Arata doesn't feel the need to smoke anymore. A few days later, Arata finds a letter in his shoe locker with his name on it. The letter is from Hishiro. Unlike adults, she returns the money through this letter, but by folding the bill in a unique way. Arata then goes to Hishiro and asks why she wrote him a letter when she could have just handed him the money. Hishiro replies that giving it directly would be too serious and boring, so she learned this folding technique from the internet. Arata is surprised by her level of autism, and they talk a bit more. However, he notices Ryo listening to their conversation like a creep, so he heads back to his desk. A few minutes later, Arata and Noya get their re-exam papers, and they have failed yet again. In fact, Arata has managed to bring less numbers than the last time, which angers Oga. Hishiro arrives and informs Oka that the teacher has called them to the staff room. Her eyes fall on Arata's test papers, and seeing that he failed again, she exclaims that he is even more of an idiot than she thought. As the 2 class representatives leave, Hishiro notices Rena staring at her. She remembers Arata's advice and gives Rena a smile. Unfortunately, her laugh makes her look like a serial killer, and Rena ends up thinking that Hishiro is mocking her. That afternoon, all the students gather on the school grounds for their sports period. The first activity involves a kind of short put but with a rubber ball instead of a metal one. First up is the sports representative of the class, a boy named Asaji, who throws the ball 45 meters. This is particularly impressive as the average for a third-year student is 28 meters. Next is Inukai, an emo-looking, slightly unhinged high schooler, who throws the ball right at Arata because he had noticed Arata's attention is elsewhere. Then Oga tries his best but can only throw it a little over 2 meters. Arata mocks him for being a pathetic wimp who knows nothing outside of the pages of his books.
Embarrassing!
When it's Arata's turn, he thinks he should be good at this because he was decent in sports back in his time. He confidently gears up to throw the ball, but before he can yeet it away, his shoulder gives up and the ball barely goes a meter. Since Arata threw the ball even shorter, Uka seizes the chance and calls Arata a failure in studies as well as in sports. Next, the girls' 50-meter race begins, and Rina completes it in 7.38 seconds. Uka tells Arata to notice a girl named Tamarai, who finishes the race in an impressive 6.78 seconds. Uka explains that Tamarai and Rina are childhood friends and both are on the volleyball team, with Tamarai as captain and Rina as vice-captain. Arata realizes that poor Rina is always grumpy because she is second in everything. Nearby, Hishiro calls out to Rena, but instead of using her name, she addresses her as the girl who finished the race in 7.38 seconds. Rena turns around and tells the weirdo to address her using her name. However, Hishiro actually doesn't even know her name despite the two having been classmates for 2 years now. Rena thinks Hishiro is trying to insult her by pretending not to know her, so she plans to act nonchalant as if it doesn't affect her and then introduces herself. She extends her hand for a handshake, but Hishiro gives her a stopwatch instead. The Spectrum Queen simply approached Rena so that someone could time her. Following this, Arata asks Ryo for his school progress card. To his surprise, Ryo has mastered the art of scoring bang average on everything. Ryo then points out that even though they look young, their body is still that of a 27-year-old. He warns Arata to not push himself like the teenagers who have endless supply of energy and bodies that heal rather quickly. Despite this, when it is time for a 100-meter sprint, Arata twists his ankle and falls hard, badly injuring his knee. Asaji immediately comes over and picks the injured Arata up in his arms and heads to the nurse's office. Everyone stares at Arata, making him even more embarrassed that he is now being carried by a teenager like he's some girl who weighs 40 kg. The next day, Arata is heading to school when he meets Hishiro, who's walking alone. He catches up to her and she immediately asks why his injury hasn't healed yet, like a normal teenager. With age, the body's immune system weakens, which is why Arata's injury hasn't healed, but he can't explain this to her. They soon reach school, where Rina notices Hishiro smiling warmly from a distance. This confirms Rina's belief that Hishiro actually smiles normally with other people and is simply mocking her with that serial killer smile. That evening, Ryo is busy preparing reports about the test subjects of real life. A month has passed, and Ryo has reports for 2 test subjects, 001 and 002. He notices that the other test subject hasn't made much progress in a month, but Arata has blended in well with everyone at school. It is revealed that, for Reina, one of the main perks of being a class representative was the status, which is why she desperately wants that position. But the main reason is that she is a total simp for Arata's company. Last year, they were both class representatives, but this year, Hishiro has taken her place, which makes Reina resentful toward her. Meanwhile, Noya and Arata have taken their exams again, but have failed for the 3rd consecutive time. This shameless duo isn't bothered by their failures, but Uka keeps scolding them. Both salute and promise that they will try their best to pass the next time. Uka starts doubting his teaching skills since he's the one tutoring them. Right then, Uka notices Hishiro eating her lunch all alone at a nearby desk. He suggests that they should invite her to join them for lunch, so that she could also share the burden of tutoring the two. Then Uka heads to invite Hishiro, but Arata suddenly stops him in his tracks. Arata seems reluctant to call Hishiro up to their desk, but Uka is as clueless as an autistic child about which shoe is right and which shoe is left. Noya, however, gets it, because she sees that Hishiro is sitting right in front of Reina, who is currently staring angrily at her. Ultimately, Arata manages to stop his friend, but he starts regretting it as he realizes Hishiro will be left alone again. That evening, Arata messages Hishiro, asking if she has any friends to eat lunch with. Hishiro instantly replies that she has no friends at all, let alone the ones who will want to eat lunch with her. Arata feels sad about this and sends a sorry cat sticker in the chat. Hishiro responds by telling Arata not to worry because she thinks she will soon befriend Reina. Arata reads this message and realizes that Hishiro is as dense as a 100-year-old tree bark. Once he hangs up, Arata calls Ryo, thinking that since Ryo also eats lunch alone at school, he and Hishiro could eat together. However, Ryo refuses, saying that he stays alone because of his job. If he spends all day with someone, he will not be able to keep an eye on his test subjects. Arata tries to persuade him, but stone-hearted Ryo doesn't budge. Ryo tells him that some things should be left to the teenagers because when they feel the pain, they'll find their own remedy. But he also makes it clear that Arata can live his real life however he wants. Arata thinks that he is trying to help Hishiro because he wants her to live her remaining college life well. She won't realize what she's missing now, and will only understand when she grows up. The next day in class, Hishiro arrives to call Oga for the class representative meeting. They leave together, and just like last time, Hishiro and Rena lock eyes. This time, Hishiro considers talking to her, and is about to say something, when Rena abruptly gets up and runs off. Later, Reina and her friend Tamarai practice volleyball together after the classes are over. It's gotten late. Their 2 classmates Inukai and Asaji come to pick up Tamarai. The 3 have been together since kindergarten and go home together daily. Seeing the trio so happily go home together, Rina feels jealous that she has no one to call her own like that. Last year she had Oga by her side, but this year she doesn't even have him. In the meantime, Arata is finally studying in the library all by himself, and he is still in pain from his knee injury from the sprint. Rina, on the other hand, going to the staff room to return gym equipment and notices that Hishiro is already there. After returning the equipment, Rina steps out and notices Hishiro's bag outside the staff room. She stares at it intently, then picks it up and starts running. She thinks to herself that Hishiro has never worked hard for what she has currently got. Rina thinks she deserves to be with Oga because she deserves that position. She plans to quietly leave Hishiro's bag in the train station's bathroom, like a budget Joker from Batman. As Rina's heading there, she runs into Arata, who's on his way to return the study room keys, but doesn't know where to take them. He asks Rina for help, but she's worried he will notice that she is a jealous, whiny chick. She tries to leave, but Arata stops her and asks if she always carries 2 bags. Arata notices what Rina didn't want him to see, so she starts sweating and making silly excuses. However, Arata uses his creep powers and correctly points out that the bag belongs to Hishiro. A panicked Rina starts running, and Arata chases after her. In the chaos, Rina nearly falls down the stairs, but Arata saves her in the nick of time. But he has the luck as dark as a piece of coal, and suddenly, his foot slips, causing them both to fall. Right then, Hishiro comes out of the staff room, hears a loud thudding noise, and also notices her bag is missing. She heads to the stairs to see what is happening, and finds Rina and Arata sprawled on the ground like GTA NPCs. Afterwards, Arata regains consciousness and finds himself in the nurse's office. The nurse is aware that Arata saved Rina from falling, and praises him by calling him a good boy. Hearing good boy feels oddly exciting to Arata because, as a 27-year-old man, he's neither old nor a boy. After a while, Rina wakes up completely startled, but Arata calms her down and explains everything. They passed out, Hishiro brought them there and she was worried about them. He then says that Hishiro took that green bag with her, and he is certain it was hers. He then asks Rina to tell him honestly what she was doing with Hishiro's bag. In a hushed voice, she admits that she just wanted to trouble Hishiro a little, and was going to hide her bag somewhere. Arata explains that he's not against her, but tells her not to ruin the trust she's built with everyone at school just to bring someone down. He knows how much effort she's put in, so he's not angry, simply disappointed. Upon hearing this, Rina can't hold back and bursts out crying and says that she doesn't want a lecture from a classmate. She also says she is doing everything to surpass Tamurai in sports and Hishiro in studies, but they don't even know it's a competition. Arata places a hand on her head and counters that she's always comparing herself to others, but she never looks at her own personality. She's not just a scholar but also great at sports, and that's what her efforts have earned her. Hearing this, Rata cries even more, thinking to herself that maybe Arata is right and her efforts aren't wasted after all. Arata asks if she's ever tried talking to Hishiro, but she stays silent. He suggests that next time she sees Hishiro, she should ask her to smile. Later on, Arata mentally kicks himself for lecturing Rina like an old man about never giving up when he himself gave up on life long ago. At the school gate, he meets Hishiro, who hasn't gone home yet. When he asks why, she says she has been thinking about the incident. She asks if he can tell her what Rina was doing with her bag. Lately, their eyes have been meeting, and she smiled every time, thinking they were becoming friends. Arata realizes keeping her in the dark won't help, so he decides to tell Hishiro the truth. Arata explains that she wanted the silver pin but didn't get it, so she was upset and acted out. Hishiro asks if she gives Rina the silver pin, will they become friends? She says she doesn't understand why Rina hates her so much. She's read many books to understand people, but still struggles. Arata explains that she doesn't need books to understand people, as different people's words mean different things. This overwhelms Hishiro, who wonders how she'll understand so many people. Determined to befriend Rina no matter what, she tells Arata to go home while she waits for Rina. Arata considers leaving, but after a few steps feels it's wrong to leave Hishiro alone. He turns back, hides behind some bushes to watch her. To the surprise of absolutely no one, Rado is hiding there too. Soon Rena comes out of the school, and now she and Hishiro are face to face. Rena braces for an interrogation about taking Hishiro's bag, but that doesn't happen. Instead, Hishiro asks if Rena wants the silver pin. Rena is furious at Arata for snitching, and Arata is stunned that Hishiro casually revealed he told her everything. Hishiro offers to give Rena her silver pin in exchange for friendship, but Rena refuses. Hishiro presses her, asking why someone would do that unless they hated the other person. Initially, Rena wants to escape the situation, but Arata's words echo in her mind. She decides to face it and tells Hishiro what she told Arata. No matter how hard she tries, Hishiro has taken everything from her and keeps mocking her with her smiles. Recalling Arata's advice to ask Hishiro to smile, and Rena does so. When Hishiro smiles, Rena realizes she's been misunderstanding her friendly smiles, which looked like mocking due to Hishiro's oddly murderous expression. Hishiro explains that she smiled hoping they'd become friends, which makes Rena laugh. Hishiro shares everything about herself, her struggle to connect with people, her loneliness, and what she told Arata. Once the misunderstanding is cleared, the girls shake hands and end their enmity. Arata is sleeping soundly after studying hard when he receives a call from Oga. Since vacations have started, Oga and Noya have come to Arata's house for group study. When Arata learns they are standing outside his door, he panics because his house is a mess, with beer cans and cigarette packets scattered on the table. He tells them to wait outside and quickly cleans the house, hiding the beer cans on the balcony and cigarette packets inside a table. Though the items are hidden, their smell lingers, so he sprays room freshener like a virgin sprays perfume on his first date. Once they are in, he serves them tea, but he is nervous that they might suspect something. Uka then finds a mini-disc and Arata realizes neither Oga nor Noya knows what it is, since they are from the 4G generation and unfamiliar with old gadgets. Soon they begin studying, but Arata grows tired barely after 20 minutes. Uka wonders how Arata even passed school and starts lecturing him. Meanwhile, Noya is chatting on her phone to someone, which prompts Arata and Oga to tease her, asking if she is involved with someone. Noya insists they are mistaken, and then shifts the conversation to Oga's baggy sweatshirt. Oga explains it belongs to his older brother, but Arata takes the chance to joke how skinny Oga is. Arata and Noya discuss how Oga is smart and handsome but does not hang out with girls, and thus they name him a genius virgin. They also refer to Oga's romantic chemistry with Rina, but Oga is clueless about such things and does not get it. He scolds them for wasting time, and they settle down to study seriously. Arata also realizes that he has started enjoying real life, as it is fun to spend time with friends, joke around, and study a bit. After studying for a while, Arata and Noya are exhausted, but for Oga, it is just a warm-up. He warns that if they fail re-exams, midterms start in the second week, and failing those means more re-exams. Arata feels trapped in an endless loop of tests that don't end at all. While Arata and Oga talk, Noya notices Arata's calendar. She flips to the previous month, when Arata was a 27-year-old unemployed man, and sees job interview dates. Arata catches her, snatches the calendar, and claims he was killing a spider. Just then, Oka gets a call, and is about to step onto the balcony, but Arata stops him since the beer cans are hidden there. Oka stays put, and thankfully learns there is work at his part-time job. Arata urges him to take Noya with him, but Oka asks why, which prompts Arata to shake him and question if he has the mind of a teenage boy. Oka is as clueless as ever, and leaves without taking Noya with him. Arata asks Noya if she wants to go, but she says she is fine staying, and the duo resume studying. Meanwhile, Ryo is at his office requesting permission to access Arata's mic. The real-life team installed surveillance equipment in Arata's house but monitors it based on a schedule. Once approved, Ryo hears Noya's voice and hears everything that is going on. He then quickly rushes to Arata's house before something disastrous can happen. Noya asks Arata about the calendar and the interview dates, and he casually explains he was looking for a part-time job. She asks if he worked at the convenience store near the station, and Arata confirms he did. Noya says she thought so and even claims they met there. She removes her glasses and lets down her hair and asks if he recognizes her now, but Arata does not. She says he looked older and cooler then, likely due to the uniform. Noya is happy that they reunited in the same class and says she fell in love with him that day. Noya keeps yapping and asks if he feels anything being alone with her. Arata controls himself and tries to push her away. Noya asks if he loves someone else, and in a surprising twist, Hishiro's image flashes in his mind. Noya places her hand on his chest, asking if she can be his girlfriend, and confesses her love. Meanwhile, Ryo overhears this and believes Arata would not do anything wrong. Arata has resolved to avoid mistakes in real life and pushes Noya away. At that moment, Ryo bursts in, and a stunned Arata asks how he entered. Ryo points out the obvious answer that he used a spare key. Then, a major truth is revealed. Noya is also from Real Life Laboratory, and her real age is 27. Noya's actions were a test to see how Arata would handle the situation. She did not inform Ryo beforehand, which caused his panic. Like Ryo, Noya works in the support division and monitors a test subject. A few days later, Ryo updates Arata's reports and notes he passed his re-exams on the 4th attempt. In a flashback, Ryo and Noya, who are both Real Life Laboratory support staff, are told that they are not allowed to get close to subjects. However, Ryo defies these orders, which leads to him being reprimanded. His superiors remind him that supporters must remain detached and not emotionally involved. They acknowledge his inexperience but warn against repeating this. Later, Subject 001 calls Ryo for advice. Though tempted to help, Ryo refuses and reminds them that real life exists to help subjects solve their own problems. Assisting too much defeats the purpose. Soon after, Ryo is notified that Subject 002 has been selected. He observes this new lab rat, Arata, a 27-year-old friendly man with no permanent job. Ryo visits Arata's night shift store, tests his integrity by leaving his wallet behind, and sees Arata promptly return it. Ryo smiles as he is impressed by Arata's attentiveness and honesty. Noya appears and asks what Ryo is doing. She quickly learns he's observing Arata, and wonders if he is trying to kick her out of this job for a double salary. Ryo explains he's only following orders. Noya suggests Arata seems like a good person and possibly ready for 3rd year. Ryo agrees. As they leave, she asks about Subject 001. Ryo replies he's doing what he's told, but adds human behavior is unpredictable. The next day, Ryo is called back to the office where his boss angrily reveals the experiment with Subject 001 has failed, as there has been no progress after a year. He then blames Ryo for being too distant, which makes Ryo confused. Earlier he was too close, now too distant, and he cannot understand what approach is the best. Later on, Ryo meets Noya while he is still frustrated. He shares his confusion over the mixed messages from his superiors. Noya listens and says she too has been feeling off. She's been selected as Arata's supporter, and likely wanted to talk about it but holds back after seeing Ryo, who looks like he has been going through withdrawal from white powder. Meanwhile, Ryo continues observing Arata, waiting for the right time to approach. One night at a bar, Ryo watches Arata drink heavily. Outside, Arata yells into the night as his mother had just refused to give him any more pocket money. Seeing an opening, Ryo approaches him, and from there on things went quite smoothly for the most part. That night, Rado visits Noya and gives her a school uniform and books as she must attend school as a supporter. Excited, Noya asks about Arata, but Rado, still discouraged from Subject 001's failure, expresses concern that something might go wrong again. Noya reminds him that real life is about helping people like Arata rediscover life and value it. Later, Arata calls Ryo, requesting medicine to temporarily return to his real age. Ryo fears he wants to quit, but Arata explains he just wants to resign from work personally and inform his friends. Relieved, Ryo agrees and visits the R&D department, where Dr. Emma Gus approves the request. Back at 27, Arata visits the store and yeets his resignation letter on the floor. He then takes the real-life pill again, and Ryo calls him gung-ho, explaining it means energetic, enthusiastic, and dedicated. Arata replies that quitting without other options leaves him no choice but to be enthusiastic. Ryo warns the pill may cause drowsiness and says not to drive. Arata jokes that he doesn't even own a car and Ryo should have warned him earlier. They bicker lightly, and the story returns to the present. Reflecting on everything, Ryo writes in his report that Arata's habit of facing problems head-on is helping him improve his life. In the meantime, Arata looks dejected after failing 7 out of 8 midterm subjects. In contrast, Noya passes all her exams, a surprising shift from when she once scored 2 marks less than Arata in math. Uka is stunned and jokes along with Noya, teasing Arata. Their teacher announces that students who failed more than 3 subjects must meet her in the staff room. Noya and Uka tease Arata, telling him to enjoy himself for being one of those unique students who just can't seem to pass an exam. In the staff room, the teacher sees Arata's poor results and wonders if he's sick or on the spectrum. Arata admits his results reflect his preparation and apologizes. Rather than scolding him, the teacher encourages him, recalling how he cleared his previous re-exams and expects the same effort again. Arata reflects that she's right as he once gave up easily. But now he's pushing through. He credits Uka for helping him during his earlier re-exams and realizes he might have given up again if alone. Just then, Tamarai enters, and it is revealed that she too is not so bright as she has failed 5 subjects. Arata is relieved he's not alone. The teacher gently tells Tamarai that as the volleyball team captain, she's a role model. She reminds her that the June tournament is the last for 3rd years, and if she doesn't clear her re-exams, the team could suffer. Tamarai listens earnestly. Outside, Arata asks how Tamarai failed after passing everything last time. She explains the previous exam had only 3 subjects, and this one had 8. She also got into college through a sports scholarship and struggles academically. Arata suggests she'd have more recognition at a sports-focused college. Tamarai reveals she chose this college to stay with her best friends Inukai and Asaji. Though it's their first conversation, Arata already knows about her through the loudmouth Oga. He asks if she and Rata close. Tamarai says she can't imagine college without Rana, who makes volleyball fun. She then asks Arata if Noya likes Oga. Arata denies any involvement between them, secretly happy, hinting at a future reveal. Later that evening, Arata is packing up when Hishiro enters the classroom. She explains she was studying and teases that he must have been called to the staff room for failing. Arata is used to her awkward, insulting jokes, smiles, and asks if she's been eating with Rina lately. Hishiro credits Arata for helping her open up, and notes he seems to enjoy college now. Arata says he still struggles, stuck in a cycle of re-exams. Hishiro asks about the 4-eyed girl with him, aka Noya, and whether she and Oga are a couple. Arata laughs and denies it, but internally, he knows Rena sees them as competition, while Noya and Oga are just trying to help. With Arata, Noya, and Oga spending more time together, Tamarai, Hishiro, and Rena grow concerned, prompting their subtle questions. As they leave, Arata asks Hishiro to walk to the station with him. She agrees, calling him Sir. Arata jokes about being her captain, and Hishiro playfully shouts, Aye, Captain. Elsewhere, Reina and Tamarai prepare to go home after practice. Tamarai reassures Reina that there's nothing between Uka and Noya as she had confirmed it with Arata. Embarrassed, Reina asks who told her to investigate such a cringe thing, but Tamarai slips away. Heading to the clubroom, Tamarai overhears girls gossiping about her. They mock her for failing yet still playing in the tournament. Hurt, Tamarai hides behind lockers, and right then Rina enters, overhears the same conversation, and fiercely defends Tamarai, stating only those who work as hard as her have a right to speak. She silences the gossipers and leaves. Motivated, Tamarai begins preparing for her re-exams with Inukai's help. At Arata's house, he's on the phone with Ryo, who jokes that failing was a blessing as it got Arata sent to the staff room, where he ran into Hishiro, leading to what Ryo calls an after-college date. Flustered, Arata insists they only walk to the station. Ryo asks about his re-exam strategy. Arata admits he doesn't have one yet, depending on Oga's help and some self-study. Noya, overhearing the call, yells at Arata to keep trying and not forget that she's there for him. Realizing Noya is with Ryo, Arata is no longer surprised. He now knows their true identities. Ryo and Noya bicker as Ryo ends the call, and Arata resumes studying. The next week, Tamarai and Arata take their re-exams. Tamarai passes, and to the surprise of 0 people, Arata fails again. In class, Oga asks if he failed, and upon confirmation, he smiles as he had expected it. That afternoon, Tamarai, tired from intense studying and lack of sleep, faints during practice. This causes a volleyball to hit Rina, who falls and sprains her leg. At the nurse's office, they learn she'll need 2 to 3 weeks to recover, meaning she'll likely miss the tournament. Rina is devastated after working so hard and lashes out at Tamarai, who takes the blame silently and runs outside. She heads to the field, barely holding back tears. When Uka and Asaji find her, Inukai gently turns her around and Tamarai breaks down crying. A few days later, Tamarai asks Hishiro about lunch, and the latter asks if it's just the two of them, wondering where Rena is. Tamarai points out it's lunchtime, and Hishiro hasn't noticed that their friend hasn't come to school. True to her oblivious nature, Hishiro doesn't react much, and they head to the cafeteria. Over lunch, it's clear Tamarai has been overworking, hasn't slept properly, and after crying heavily, has developed dark circles, making her look like Hagrid from Harry Potter. Hishiro bluntly asks why she looks odd, noting her eyes seem strange. Tamarai, unable to explain, just says she hasn't been sleeping well. Satisfied, Hishiro advises her to rest and continues eating. After a moment, Tamarai musters the courage to ask if Hishiro has ever hurt someone's feelings or had a fallout, suggesting that as a top student she might have faced such things. The question stems from Tamarai's guilt over unintentionally hurting Rena. Hishiro is confused and asks for clarification, but Tamarai tries to sweep away the whole matter. The scene shifts to Rena, who arrives at college late due to a sprained ankle. She informs her teacher that recovery will take 2 weeks and expresses a desire to retire from the volleyball team. The teacher tries to change her mind, but Rena is firm. She then heads to class, where she crosses paths with Hishiro and Tamarai. Tamarai spots her, makes an excuse and flees, which only deepens Hishiro's suspicions that there is a catfight brewing up. Later, as college ends, Tamarai considers talking to Rina, but lacks the courage and runs off in tears. Inukai and Asaji notice and start to approach Rina, but Asaji stops Inukai, recalling Tamarai asked them not to interfere. Rena, reluctant to go home due to her limp, decides to stay until everyone leaves. Uka offers to stay and invites Arata to join, but Arata declines, feeling he shouldn't interfere. As time passes, Rena grows impatient and tries to slip away quietly, assuming Uka will stay longer. However, Uka, having finished his work, asks to walk with her. His horrendous timing irks Rena, who straight up refuses to his face. When Uka presses, Rena snaps, telling him to stop asking questions and leave. Instead of reacting harshly, Uka grows suspicious, noting she skipped practice and seems upset. He tries to lift her, but they both fall. Rena throws a bag at him, tearfully demanding he leave. Uka says he can't leave a crying girl alone, admits he's too weak to carry her but offers his shoulder instead. Likely understanding her pain, he stays. As they walk, Rena thinks that if she were a boy, she wouldn't talk to someone like herself, hot-headed, angry, and difficult. She regrets yelling at Tamarai, fearing Tamarai may never speak to her again, and grips Uka's shoulder tightly. Meanwhile, Noya, like Ryo, has been monitoring the group, clarifying that neither Oga nor Rina is subject to 001. Arata is shown reflecting on recent strange events. Hishiro eating lunch alone again, Rina skipping practice, and Tamarai and Rina not talking. He recalls a similar past at his company, where tensions rose among colleagues harassing a girl. Arata wanted to help, but was stopped by the woman he worked under. As he ponders, he receives a message from Hishiro, saying she needs help and is outside his house. Panicked, Arata ignores her messages, receiving repeated hello stickers. With no choice, he opens the door, but quickly changes into something more presentable than his old stinky clothes. Hishiro enters and asks if he lives alone. Surprised there's no family around. Arata fears she might be uncomfortable, but recalls she's like Oga, unfazed by such things. Indeed, Hishiro is calm, while Arata is nervous. As he calms down, he receives a message from Noya, and it's revealed that Noya and Ryo are listening to his conversation, likely through his phone. Hishiro's true purpose is revealed. She's worried about Tamarai and Rina's broken friendship and hopes Arata knows what happened. He doesn't, but is impressed by Hishiro's change as he remembers how she used to avoid any human contact like the plague. Hishiro admits she used to be emotionally unaware and often made things worse when trying to help. She shares a past incident where she tried to stop boys from bullying a girl, but ended up worsening things. The girl told her to stay out of it, and when Hishiro complied, the situation got worse, and the girl eventually transferred schools. This reminds Arata of a similar incident. He shares an incident from his school, carefully avoiding the word company so that no one suspects he is an oldie. He reveals that a girl in his class was harassed. He confronted the harassers out of anger, only to learn the girl was trying to handle it alone. He stops short of elaborating. Hishiro asks what happened to the girl, and Arata is overwhelmed. A flashback shows him entering a room at work, implying the girl may have taken her life. Arata blames himself. In the present, lost in emotion, he sees the girl in Hishiro, hugs her, and begs for forgiveness, saying he should have listened. Hishiro, confused, doesn't understand. Arata then realizes what he's done and panics, frantically apologizing and begging her not to call the police. Hishiro calmly assures him she won't, relieved he's back to normal. Noya and Ryo, listening, are puzzled by the police comment, having only audio access. Arata and Hishiro discuss whether they should intervene in Tamarai and Reina's fight, given their past mistakes. They decide doing nothing won't help and agree to act together, believing it'll work out. The next day, they approach Tamarai, avoiding Reina for now due to her short temper, and hear the full story. Inukai and Asaji overhear them from outside the clubroom, having been searching for Tamarai after hours. Not finding her in the gym, they head to the clubroom where the three are talking. Inukai decides to fetch Reina so she can hear Tamarai's feelings, brings her in, and the three continue talking while Inukai and Asaji listen from outside. Tamarai explains to everyone that she has always excelled in sports, consistently outperforming other players. She continues to blow her own horn by sharing that her dedication to sports was fulfilling for her, but often led to resentment from others. The harder she worked, the more people distanced themselves, leaving her isolated during her school years. Addressing a question Arata asked previously about why she didn't choose a college that values sports, Tamarai reveals she was tired of the negativity and rejected offers from such colleges, opting for this one instead. Despite this, her love for volleyball persisted, and on her first day she visited the college's volleyball team, where she met Rina by chance. 2 years prior, during their first year of college, Tamarai is preparing to leave after practice, when Rina approaches. She has heard a lot about Tamarai's skills with her finger, but also notices that Tamarai hides them. Rina hands her a volleyball, urging her to serve with full effort and no pretense. Tamarai complies, and the ball accidentally hits Rina's face. Instead of getting angry, Rina laughs, saying she knew Tamarai was faking her poor performance. Extending her hand, Rina introduces herself, expressing excitement about Tamarai joining the team, challenging her to never hold back and promising to surpass her in 3 years. This moment marks the start of their deep friendship, evolving from strangers to best friends. Returning to the present, Tamarai fears their friendship might end as she is hesitant to confront Rina due to her fiery temper and worries it could be their last conversation. She advises Tamarai not to isolate herself like she did, emphasizing the importance of valuing friends, as no one can replace them. Hishiro admits she envies Tamarai and Rina's bond and wants to encourage Tamarai but struggles to express it. Arata helps her convey this, and Hishiro urges Tamarai to seize the chance to mend things, warning that she will regret it if she doesn't act now. Buoyed by Hishiro's words, Tamarai musters the courage to confront Rina. Hishiro notes it's the first time in days she's seen Tamarai smile, but also adds that she's looked unattractive lately. Tamarai interrupts, asking her to stop, and they decide to leave as it's getting late. Outside, Inukai and Asaji, who were eavesdropping, panic and try to hide but get caught. Arata casually greets them, attempting to lighten the mood, but Rina, lacking the courage to face Tamarai, runs off, her ankle improved enough to allow it. Uka explains that Rina's tears weren't due to her injury, but her concern for Tamarai and the team, though her stubbornness hides it. Tamarai agrees, believing Rina will attend the tournament. The group shares some lighthearted banter, and Arata watches them happily. Later, Ryo calls Arata, asking about his weekend plans. Arata says he's watching a volleyball match with Hishiro. Ryo teases if he plans to just watch or also play with ball or volleyballs. Unexpectedly, Ryo thanks Arata, who is surprised and asks if he's gone mad. Ryo brushes it off, saying he felt like it, and ends the call, promising to meet tomorrow. The next day at the tournament, everyone is present except Rina, causing concern, as Tamarai may not play well without her. Hishiro asks if anyone knows Rina's address, but no one, including Oga, does. Arata receives a message from Ryo with Rina's address, astonished that Ryo knows it while Oga doesn't. Arata and Hishiro then head to Rina's house. Upon arriving, Hishiro nearly announces their presence, but Arata stops her and pretends they're delivery people to ensure Rena opens the door. Rena does, but upon seeing them, tries to close it immediately. Arata stops her, insisting they've come too far to leave without talking. Inside, Hishiro asks why Rena isn't at the match. Rena retorts that no one can force her, but her volleyball uniform betrays her intentions. Hishiro points this out, asking why she's dressed for the team if she didn't want to go. Flustered, Rena claims she always wears such clothes at home. Hishiro calls out her pretense, suggesting Rena wants to play with Tamarai one last time, but her log-headed stubbornness is stopping her. Rena snaps that Hishiro, with few friends, can't understand her feelings. Hishiro counters and asks if her lack of experience means she can't care about Rena. She calls Rena stubborn and foolish, asking if she wants to lose her best friend and spend her remaining college life alone, urging her to play the match with Tamarai or regret it forever. Hishiro expresses her desire for the three to lunch together again. Rina's ego finally breaks, and she admits she wants to play, having trained 3 years for this moment, but feels unprepared due to her injury and unable to face Tamarai or the team. She questions why they're pushing her, and Hishiro explains it's because they're friends who love her. Tamarai wants to play with her too, and thus they encourage her to seize the chance. Uka calls Arata, reporting they've lost the first round and are likely to lose the second. Arata, Hishiro, and Rina rush to the match. At the venue, Rina hesitates, but Arata and Hishiro encourage her. She meets Tamarai, and they apologize, sharing a heartfelt and slightly over-the-top reconciliation. Later, Tamarai and Rina are seen crying, having lost the match, as expected given the drama. Hishiro, sitting between them, wonders why she's there. Despite the loss, they're happy to have played their final match together, their friendship restored. They thank Hishiro, who is overjoyed seeing them happy. Their friends, watching from afar, share their joy, as do Ryo and Noya, observing from a distance. A few days later, Arata needs Ryo's help and takes him to the college ground. Arata requests medicine to revert to 27 years old, explaining he must visit a graveyard. As seen earlier, the woman Arata worked under, Saiki, died by suicide, and he visits her grave annually on her death anniversary. Ryo suggests he could go as a 17-year-old, but Arata clarifies he can't risk meeting former colleagues and must be cautious. Ryo agrees but expresses a desire to accompany him. Arata refuses, saying Ryo can monitor him from a distance as usual. Ryo counters that last year, Arata froze at the grave, lost in another world, and he worries Arata might lose himself again. Arata dismisses it, claiming he's fine now and urges Ryo to forget last year. Unconvinced, Ryo insists he'll provide the medicine only if Arata lets him come along. Left with no choice, Arata relents, and the scene cuts. Ryo is then seen applying for the medicine when Noya approaches, asking what he's doing. Ryo explains he's requesting medicine, and when Noya presses for details, he shares Arata's plan. Noya suggests it's risky for Arata to go alone, and asks Ryo to order medicine for her to join them. Ryo explains that only a subject supporter can accompany them, and since Noya isn't Arata's supporter, he can't comply. Noya proposes going as a 17-year-old, but Ryo objects, noting that two 27-year-old men with a 17-year-old college girl might attract police attention, and tells her to stay behind. At Arata's house, Ryo arrives with the medicine, informing Arata it'll take an hour to revert to 27 after taking it. He jokingly asks if they should spend the hour bickering, a side effect of the medicine. Arata suggests sleeping instead, finding fighting daunting. Ryo agrees, setting an alarm for an hour and asking Arata to wake him if he doesn't stir. Surprised, Arata asks how Ryo wakes for college. Ryo admits he sleeps lightly when needed, even sitting up. Arata questions how Ryo finds peace sleeping like that. Ryo teases that their bond has grown since Arata now worries about him, suggesting Arata find a girlfriend to wake him daily, like Noya. Arata retorts not to joke, saying thinking of Noya makes him sleepy. After some banter, they take the medicine and fall asleep. An hour later, Arata wakes, but Ryo is lost in dreams. With effort, Arata rouses him, and they head to the graveyard. On the train, Ryo remarks that 4 months have passed unnoticed, and they're meeting as adults again after that time. At the graveyard, Arata stands with clasped hands at Psyche's grave for a long time, worrying Ryo that he might lose himself again. Ryo asks if he's okay, and Arata, annoyed, says he's talking to her, alarming Ryo further. A flashback shows Arata and Sayaki, whose full name is Sayaki Michiru, going to lunch. Arata's sales were high that day, earning him a treat from Sayaki. He enjoyed her company, initially unsure about working under a woman in sales. Sayaki, however, excelled in sales and was kind-hearted. Arata was dissatisfied with his salary despite hard work, but Sayaki stayed cheerful, enjoying her job. Others envied her, leading to frequent scoldings. One day, after Sayaki was unfairly berated, Arata tells her it wasn't her fault, knowing she was framed. Sayaki, aware of this, asks him to stay quiet, saying she'll handle it herself, and that Arata is too young to understand. Unable to stand by, Arata confronts her harassers, worsening the situation. They torment Sayaki further, and she ultimately takes her life. The flashback continues, revealing that Psyche's suicide barely affected the company. Colleagues acted as if nothing happened. Disgusted, Arata quits after just 3 months. Psyche's death led Arata to lose confidence, withdraw socially, and be selected as test subject 002. Back in the present, Arata is consumed by regret, wishing he hadn't intervened, believing Psyche might still be alive. As they leave, they meet 2 current employees from Arata's old company. Arata learns his resignation wasn't in vain. His brief tenure and Psyche's story are discussed at the office. The boss mentions them to new employees, urging them to emulate Psyche, though the company's conditions remain poor. The 2 workers admire Arata's courage to quit, admitting they lack it, and ask what he does now, noting a 3-month stint could ruin a resume. Arata explains he struggled to find work afterward, lacking a valid reason for leaving, and ended up at a convenience store. Asked if he's still there, Arata hesitates, then sees Psyche's face clearly in his mind for the first time. Gathering courage, he admits he's still doing part-time work while his friends have stable jobs, but he's content not returning to toxic companies like theirs, even if it means lifelong part-time work. He's glad he left. Arata and Ryo head home, and Arata shares that unlike previous visits filled with regret, meeting the workers brought relief, knowing Psyche is remembered at the company. He reflects that staying would have normalized everything, and Psyche would have been forgotten. The episode opens with Arata observing posters for the upcoming fireworks festival when Hishiro joins him, and they walk to school together. Hishiro wears a hair clip gifted by Tamarai and Rina, which Arata comments on, noting to himself how much she's changed. Noya arrives, enthusiastically hugging Arata and greeting them both. Hishiro, with her unique flair, greets Noya as the four-eyed girl, sparking an early morning clash. Hishiro starts to leave, but Noya accuses her of being jealous. Before the situation escalates, Ryo rushes in, pulling Noya away. Arata and Hishiro continue to school, and Arata notices Hishiro speaks comfortably with Ryo, calling him by name, unlike the class and teachers who call him Yo. This makes Arata briefly worry that Hishiro might like Ryo, but he reassures himself it's unlikely. In the classroom, Arata is thrilled about the upcoming summer vacation, but Uka dampens his mood, informing him he must attend summer school for re-exam preparation. Uka will also attend to prepare for university entrance exams, aiming for Aoba University, affiliated with their college, which many students target for easier admission. Arata's joy fades, knowing he'll be stuck studying. At Arata's house, Ryo and Noya arrive for a pizza party, frustrating Arata as they always choose his place for gatherings. They discuss summer plans, and Ryo teases Arata about spending the entire year on re-exams, unable to visit family, hoping he passes before vacation ends. Ryo adds that if Arata finds time to go somewhere, he should inform them, as they must monitor him. Learning that Ryo and Noya will also attend summer school, Arata laments that this summer will be tough, especially with Oga already attending. Noya calls Oga clueless for not understanding Rena's feelings, sparking a discussion about matchmaking Oga and Rena. Ryo joins in, surprising Arata and Noya, who whisper about whether Ryo has a romantic interest, as he's never supported such plans before. Ryo dismisses their suspicions, telling them to relax and eat pizza. He then asks Arata why he doesn't have a girlfriend. pointing out that as a real-life subject, Arata's one-year life leaves no lasting memories. Arata, saddened, acknowledges this and asks Ryo not to remind him, ending the scene. The next day at school, Arata and Oga eat lunch together. Recalling the previous night, Arata asks Oga if he's ever had a girlfriend. Oga admits he hasn't, surprising Arata. Given Oga's third-year status, Arata indirectly asks if Oga likes anyone, but Oga, confused, says he likes everyone. Frustrated, Arata clarifies he's talking about love and romance, exasperated by Oga's obliviousness. Ryo, watching from a corner, laughs. Arata tries again, asking if there's a girl Oga enjoys being with, shares everything with, or wants to hold hands with. Oga agrees to each point, thinking of Reina. But when Arata asks if there's someone he'd kiss, Oga blushes, denying he's ever viewed a girl that way. Arata advises that while studying is important, love matters too, warning Oga he'll stay single unless he recognizes his feelings. Arata grows sad and reflects on his own single status. Oga asks if Arata can do those things, kiss or hold hands, and Arata confidently says yes, which makes Oga shy. Arata jokingly asks if Oga is even a guy, and this banters lightens the mood a bit. As the day ends, Arata and Oga head home and spot Rina with an unfamiliar man, and they hide to observe. Arata recognizes him from the graveyard visit and fears he might expose Arata's past, while the less selfish Oga worries the man might kidnap Rina. They see him urge Rina to get into his car, but she refuses and slips. He catches her by the waist, unsettling Oga, who rushes over, leaving Arata behind. Oga learns the man isn't a threat. Rina felt unwell and he stopped to help, offering to drive her home. Since Oga arrived, the man leaves Rina with him. Oga, having misunderstood, feels relieved and Arata messages him before leaving them alone. Oga offers to walk Rina home and she shyly thanks him for his concern. Oga remarks she seems unusually innocent, puzzling him. Rina playfully hits him with her bag and they head home, joking. Oga stares at Rina's hand, lost in thought. At home, Oga reflects on Arata's words by staring at his hand as if there is absolutely nothing going on in her head. He messages Arata, admitting he might love Rina. Thrilled, Arata celebrates Oga's realization. The next day at school, Oga tells Arata he wanted to hold Rina's hand while walking her home. Noticing Ryo watching oddly, Arata urges Oga to confess to Rina and propose. Oga panics, fearing Rina's reaction, and Arata teases she might lash out. A meeting is called to help Oga, but friends refuse, citing Arata's knack for befriending girls as their best resource. Oga agrees, but Hishiro suspiciously asks how Arata connects so easily with girls, wondering if he's older. Arata is alarmed by this accusation and denies it vehemently. On the other hand, Oga decides to invite Rina to the fireworks festival and propose to her. The next day, Hishiro admires her dress as she is thrilled about attending the fireworks festival with friends. In the evening, she joins them and is visibly nervous as she's never been to crowded festivals, especially with friends. Almost all of her friends from school are there, and they walk slightly apart to avoid overcrowding the busy festival. Hishiro struggles with the crowd, barely able to walk, and Ryo, noticing her discomfort, suggests she hold his hand. Hishiro asks if he's sure it's okay, and Ryo reassures her, saying he offered, so there's no issue. Hishiro agrees and grabs his hand, and now they appear like a couple. Arata, spotting them from afar, grows uneasy, wondering if Ryo is hitting on Hishiro or if she's making a move on him. He dismisses the thought, convinced Ryo wouldn't do that. Rina and Oga are left alone, deliberately, as Oga plans to propose. Both are nervous, unsure how to proceed despite their mutual feelings. Meanwhile, Tamara and Inukai catch an impressive number of fish at a festival stall. Ryo approaches Arata and says he noticed Noya clinging to him like leech to a hiker's foot. Yet Arata was focused on Ryo and Hishiro, as he was jealous. This accusation flusters Arata and he denies that he was jealous. Ryo says this is the only summer vacation in Arata's real life, and urges him to make the most of them. Elsewhere, after casually chatting about the weather, Oka bluntly confesses his love. Reina is stunned by his daftness and puts on a horrible performance by acting like she is surprised. Oka sees through her act and asks if his timing was off. Reina agrees but questions if he's serious or joking. Oga insists he's serious and this disappoints Reina, who had imagined a more romantic proposal. Nevertheless, she eventually reciprocates and expresses her feelings. As fireworks are about to begin, the group gathers excitedly, but their party is a little dampened by mosquito bites. Arata and Hishiro, separated from the others, decide to watch the fireworks from their spot, rather than search through the crowd. Hishiro asks Arata if he and Ryo are friends, noting she's seen them talking in class. Arata confirms they are, and Hishiro remarks how quickly he made friends since joining in April. Arata praises her progress, noting she's here with them despite getting separated, and credits her for making friends. As fireworks start, everyone watches joyfully, but Arata reflects on his real life. Initially reluctant, he now cherishes this second chance at youth, creating memories with friends, something many only dream of. Hishiro too reflects on her transformation, and she goes through several of her past moments. In one such moment, Ryo is shown congratulating her on being test subject 001 at the real-life laboratory. Back in the present, Arata and Hishiro notice Rina and Oga approaching, holding hands, and Arata realizes their confession succeeded. The group reunites, congratulating the couple, and enjoys the festival. As it's time to leave, only Arata and Hishiro remain and decide to walk home together. Since there is a lot of crowd, Arata extends his hand towards her, and to his surprise, she takes it. That next day in the school cafeteria, Oga, Arata, and Noya are eating lunch and discussing exam results. Rina, with her characteristic fiery temper, is upset despite becoming class monitor. Many might assume she'd be thrilled. as she always wanted to be close to Oga, but her anger stems from believing Hishiro deliberately lost to her. In reality, Hishiro wasn't intentional. She's been too distracted lately to focus on exams. Still, Rina refuses to accept this and remains furious. Tamarai intervenes, telling Rina that winning or losing doesn't matter now, as she can be with Oga regardless. Tamarai then asks Hishiro if her distress is linked to Arata, noting they spent much time together at the fireworks festival. Hishiro is confused as ever, and admits she doesn't know if Arata is the cause. Rina remarks that Hishiro never overthought things before, always acting impulsively, and urges her to talk to Arata directly if needed. Hishiro counters that Rina wouldn't understand her confusion, as Rina's already confessed to Oga, but reminds her of her own pre-confession turmoil. Rina, unable to argue, falls silent, as Hishiro's words ring true. Feeling better, Hishiro calls Ryo to discuss something. When Ryo arrives, Hishiro directly asks if Arata is a real-life test subject like her. Ryo stands silently as he knows a misstep could alert Hishiro, who has the sixth sense of a neighborhood auntie. He calmly asks why she suspects Arata, and she explains his mature thinking, observant nature, and decision-making, plus the mini-discs at his house and his smoking habit. Ryo responds that he can neither confirm nor deny, but hypothetically, if Arata were a test subject, Hishiro would never see him after his experiment ends. He asks if she's okay with that, but this revelation leaves her speechless. Ryo continues, expressing surprise at her focus on Arata, noting it shows she's changing, smiling more, and that he enjoyed being her supporter. He reveals their journey ends here, as he's no longer her supporter. Before he can say more, Noya emerges from hiding, announcing she's Hishiro's new supporter, proudly calling herself the bravest girl in Real-Life's support division. At Hishiro's house, she tries to probe Ryo about Arata's status, but Ryo skillfully dodges. Meanwhile at the college, the annual cultural festival preparations are underway. Oga and Rina, as class monitors, can't manage alone, so they decide to appoint a boy and girl to lead. Oga asks Arata to be the boy's head, given his popularity and influence in class. Everyone agrees, and Arata accepts, touched by their trust after a long time. For the girl's head, Hishiro unexpectedly volunteers, which shocks everyone because she usually has the emotions of a rock. The class, led by Arata and Hishiro, debates and decides on an English-style cafe for the festival. Arata asks Hishiro why she volunteered, assuming she dislikes such roles. Hishiro explains that missing out on class monitor pushed her to take this role, inspired by Arata's advice to make friends and live fully. Arata, both pleased and surprised, gazes at her, his feelings evident, and the scene cuts. The next day, Arata and Hishiro finalize plans, then present Oga with the details about tasks, costs, and supplies. They notice that he is all alone and ask where Rina is. Oga takes them to the ground and then explains that he and Rina fought. Turns out she wanted to visit his house, but Oga refused without a clear reason, and that caused the argument. Oga reveals his brother has been struggling, having quit his job due to harassment similar to what Saiki faced, and barely talks at home. Oga didn't want Rina to know, fearing it would upset his brother to see Oga with a girlfriend while he suffers. Arata relates to Oga's brother from his own past job troubles, and advises Oga not to worry. He explains that pitying his brother might worsen his feelings, as he doesn't want his struggles to burden others, urging Oga to act normal to maintain a home-like atmosphere. Hishiro adds that Rena, despite her temper and stubbornness, is kind-hearted, values hard work, and understands loneliness, assuring Oga she'll understand if he's honest. Arata warns that hiding the truth will anger Rena more. Blushing as he glances at Hishiro, Arata encourages Oga to tell Rena everything. Oga agrees, ready to explain. As Arata and Hishiro work on festival preparations, Hishiro asks how Arata calmed Oga so effectively. Arata counters by pointing out that she also helped Oga understand what Rina is going through. Nonetheless, the college buzzes with festival preparations and everyone is busy decorating joyfully. An exhausted Hishiro falls asleep at a table and Arata watches her fondly, while silently admitting to himself that he's fallen in love with her. The college is bustling with cultural festival preparations, and the class has set up an English-style cafe. Everyone wears cafe staff uniforms, but Rina, who barely likes anything, adds a shirt over it. Arata knows that she can be a pain in the backside to handle in such situations, and thus calls her boyfriend. Hishiro also arrives in her uniform, and Arata gets a little too excited to see her. Soon the cafe opens, and they serve customers while joking around. Tamarai suggests taking group photos despite the busy cafe. She lines everyone up, but Arata, after a moment's thought, takes the camera and photographs the group, excluding himself. Ryo, as usual, observes Arata from the sidelines. Noya is serving customers. Hishiro is distributing pamphlets on the ground floor, so none are in the photo. With the cafe crowd thinning, Arata joins Hishiro to help even though her task of handing out pamphlets isn't demanding. Soon they set off to look around the festival and Hishiro activates her Detective Hishiro Holmes mode, grabbing Arata's hand and standing close. Before he can process, she bluntly asks if he thinks she has feelings for him. Arata is stumped by this question and wonders what's gotten into her. Hishiro, switching off her detective mode, apologizes for her behavior. Understanding her quirks, Arata doesn't press further, and they continue exploring. As the day ends, a campfire lights up the evening, with students enjoying themselves. Ryo approaches Arata and asks if he liked the festival. Arata admits he's both happy and sad, happy for the memories created with friends who included him, but sad knowing they'll forget him soon, as he'll be erased from their memories. He explains his decision to stay out of the group photo to avoid creating more memories he doesn't want them to lose. Ryo acknowledges that while they may forget Arata, The changes he's brought to their lives, like friendships and growth, will remain as his legacy. The next day, students choose universities. Arata selects Aoba University, as does Oga, who initially planned elsewhere but switched for Rina. Hishiro also chooses Aoba, delighting Oga, who believes they'll stay together post-college. Arata, however, is troubled, knowing his time is nearly up. That evening, while heading home, he encounters Ryo, who is likely hiding to monitor him. Arata asks if he must return to his real life. Ryo confirms, reminding him that all memories of him will be erased from everyone's minds, as explained at the start. Arata, reluctant, expresses his desire to stay and grow with his friends. Ryo reiterates that his successful real-life experiment requires him to return to being 28, per the agreement. Once cheerful and sociable, Arata changed after Psyche's suicide, leading to his selection as a real-life test subject to reclaim his old self. The experiment succeeded, restoring his former personality, so he must return. Dejected, Arata starts to leave, but Ryo calls out and vows never to forget him. Noya is then shown preparing Hishiro's reports when Ryo arrives. Noya, visibly upset, questions if it's right to let Arata and Hishiro grow closer, knowing their memories will be erased, finding it increasingly difficult to stay silent. Ryo reassures her that they're just doing their job, and the outcome is uncertain, urging her to focus on supporting them to avoid regrets. Real life teaches living every moment fully, so as supporters they must do their duty. Noya is convinced by this and resumes her work. Hishiro thinks about Arata and struggles to decipher whether he's a test subject or not. On the other hand, during a photo session for all classes, Hishiro asks Noya what happens to photos containing test subjects. Noya explains that another real-life division handles it and tells her not to worry. Hishiro remarks that they'll become ghosts haunting the college forever. The next day, Hishiro reflects on her feelings for Arata, who is stressed about upcoming exams. Unlike Arata, everyone else enjoys themselves, unbothered by exams, which they find easy. He and Oga discuss Christmas plans, with Oga wanting to take Rena on a date but unsure where to go. He seeks Arata's advice, but Arata's adult suggestions go over Oga's head. Frustrated, Arata tells Oga to go wherever he wants and not overthink, as he and Rena are meant for each other, allowing them to have fun anytime. Oga blushes at this. He then asks where Arata plans to take Hishiro for Christmas, noting their recent closeness, which others have observed, suspecting mutual feelings. Arata, unable to respond, knows his love story differs from Oga's, as Oga can't understand his situation. The next day, as Arata heads to college, he spots Hishiro and greets her with a simple good morning. Hishiro reacts as if seeing a ghost and flees before he can say more, leaving him stunned. At school, she ignores him in class, runs away on the stairs, and avoids him in the corridor. In the changing room, Reina asks Hishiro why she's avoiding Arata. Hishiro explains she's been overthinking about him, deciding to control her emotions by keeping distance, believing it's better for both. Yet her feelings for Arata holds her back, though she struggles to understand them. Nonetheless, Reina and Tamarai try to counsel her in their own ways. Later, Tamarai and Hishiro discuss Oga and Rena's Christmas date plans in the sports room. Tamarai suggests Hishiro ask Arata for a date, to which Hishiro hesitantly considers it. In the cafeteria, Arata thinks about Hishiro and wants to ask her out, but doubts she'd agree because he behaved like a twitchy virgin before. As he grabs lunch, Hishiro approaches him and asks if he has plans for the 25th. When he says no, she invites him to hang out, intending to say date, but hesitating. She promises to send details via message and leaves. At home, Arata eagerly awaits her message, jumping to read it when it arrives. Hishiro sends the meeting location for the 25th, including her usual love-themed sticker, which confuses Arata. She confirms it's a date, and Arata goes from being confused to being slightly tensed in the pants. Days pass, and on the 25th, a dressed-up Arata heads to meet Hishiro, rereading her message. He had informed Ryo, who approved the date. At the location, Hishiro awaits, both arriving 30 minutes early. Arata compliments her, making her blush, and they ponder what to do. Hishiro, having researched dating, brought printouts, which doesn't surprise Arata, who knows her well. They begin exploring, enjoying themselves. Unbeknownst, Ryo and Noya secretly photograph their every move, sipping tea and eavesdropping like wannabe detectives. On the other hand, Hishiro buys Arata a Christmas gift, likely a keychain. Arata reciprocates with the same cheap gift, adding it's also for her birthday. Hishiro asks about his birthday because she wants to gift him something. Arata reveals it has already passed a few months ago but tells her not to worry. Hishiro suggests celebrating next year, but both grow sad, knowing there won't be a next year. Arata reflects on how time flies, recalling his transfer to this school, meeting Hishiro, Oga, and others, facing exams and dealing with worries and fears. Yet every day was wonderful, filled with fun and memories. He says he'll miss these days, especially this one with Hishiro, when he's older. Hishiro agrees, standing and vowing never to forget today. As the day ends, Arata asks if they can talk more, reluctant to leave. Hishiro agrees, and they stroll through a park, reminiscing. Hishiro opens up, admitting she's troubled by her constant thoughts about Arata, unsure of her feelings. Arata echoes her confusion, confessing he loves her, uncertain if it's right or wrong. His confession clears Hishiro's doubts, and she reciprocates, expressing her love. A gentle snowfall begins. Cool breezes blow, and they head home under a shared umbrella. A few days later at college, Arata and his friends chat, having just finished their re-exams, discussing both the exams and their upcoming farewell. As Arata heads home, he meets Hishiro, and they walk together unaware that Rio is once again creeping up on them. With Arata's real life ending soon, Rio feels guilty for not revealing an important truth, which he can't share directly. At home, Arata chats with Hishiro, but after saying goodnight, he grows sad as he realizes he will be without a side chick soon. Before he sinks deeper, Hishiro calls, not for any specific reason but to hear his voice. They talk late into the night and even agree to meet the next day. Hishiro wonders how many more times they'll say see you tomorrow and falls asleep with these thoughts. Time passes quickly, and their farewell, the last day of college and Arata's real life, arrives. Arata enjoys his final day with his friends, while their teacher Amatsu delivers a speech in the background. She acknowledges life's challenges but urges them not to give up, emphasizing that no one achieves perfection alone. The students write heartfelt messages on a blackboard, thanking each other, promising never to part or forget, and making typical cringe farewell vows. The day ends swiftly, and everyone heads home, leaving Arata and Hishiro alone. Hishiro tells Arata she lived her college life as he advised and asks if he'll reward her for following his guidance. Arata is initially nervous about what she might want, but to his surprise, she requests a hug. He hesitates briefly, but then embraces her as if it isn't weird to hug a high school girl despite being a full-grown adult. Arata vows never to forget her, but in her thoughts, Hishiro counters that his memories of her will be erased. She admits she never wants to forget him, and begins to cry. Both of them end up crying in each other's arms, and wish time could freeze. That night, Ryo visits Arata's house and announces his real life is complete. As promised, he offers a list of companies for job placement. Ryo asks how his real life was, and Arata admits he enjoyed it, as no one suspected he was 27. But he also laments that everyone will forget him. Ryo counters that Arata's experiences impacted not just his life, but also Oga, Rina, Tamarai, and Hishiro, making the year special for all. Ryo then hands him the real-life pill that started and now ends the journey. Elsewhere, Noya visits Hishiro's house, mirroring Ryo's actions, and similar conversations unfold. Hishiro quickly takes the pill without yapping too much and falls asleep. While adjusting Hishiro's blanket, Noya finds a marker and sees Hishiro's hand, where she has written, I love Arata to avoid forgetting him. Noya tearfully realizes she must erase it as part of her duty. Later, Arata is seen heading to work at the Real Life Laboratory's support division. Having chosen the role himself, he thinks about his real-life memories, but can't recall the keychain on his phone, which was a Christmas gift from Hishiro. He's assigned to recruit a new test subject, Oga's brother. Arata quickly explains the experiment's benefits, and Oga's brother seems convinced. That evening, Arata attends a real-life laboratory party and sits alone. A girl approaches him soon and says he's in her seat. Turns out, the girl is none other than Hishiro herself. Arata apologizes and starts to leave, but she says it's fine and allows him to stay. As she leaves, Arata notices the same keychain on her bag as his phone. After the party ends, Arata stands outside in the rain without an umbrella like a romantic hero. He soon meets Hishiro again, and she offers to share her umbrella, but Arata declines. Before leaving, she mentions hearing he was a test subject last year. Arata confirms this, then asks if she was too. She reveals she was a test subject for 2 years and also joined the Real Life Laboratory. When Arata asks about her experience, she compares it to fleeting but beautiful fireworks, recalling a joyful yet bittersweet festival. Arata relates to this experience and says he felt similarly. The mention of fireworks triggers their memories, and their past comes flooding back. They recognize each other and embrace, tears flowing, ending the series. Comment down below, Nerd Final Boss, if you watch till the end. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video.